And chat. How's it going, guys? Why is this glitching out? Weird. Welcome to the Path of Exile 2 early access reveal stream. I'm excited. Are you excited? Because I'm excited. We're going to be seeing the details of the early access that starts on the 6th, as well as the supporter packs that are coming out for this year, and the early access keys supporter pack, which is going to be $30 instead of $60 like the lowest tier usually is. And yeah, this is going to be exciting. Let me get that above 320p. Oh man. What are you guys looking forward to? I'm hoping that Druid and Shapeshifting will be in the early access from the start. If so, that's what I'm going to play in December on stream, is I'm going to try out Druids and the Werewolf Shapeshift. I want to try something new. I don't want to just go play a Summon Answer. A Summon Answer Witch, which is my usual league starter. I don't want to just start Summon Answer Witch in the early access. I want to do something new. And the new thing I'm most excited about is the shapeshifting. Got to be a werewolf. And apparently there's multiple shapeshifts. Like, I think they said there was also a bear. I'm not sure on the specifics myself. I definitely want to try a melee build for once, though. My transition build for the last few leagues has been transitioning from Summon Answer League start into a Rakiata's Dance Smite build. And I don't even know if Rakiata's Dance is going to be in Path of Exile 2. I'm fond of it, so I kind of hope so. Also, drops are enabled in every Path of Exile 2 stream on the site from 3 p.m. EST, which is in 6 minutes and 50 seconds, until midnight EST. If you want to get the drop, which is a really funky back attachment that's a couple giant hands, link your Path of Exile and Twitch accounts using the Path of Exile site, and watch for 90 minutes. Either me or somebody else or Total or whatever. Let me double check and make sure I've got the stream open so I can earn my own. Yes, I do. Good. I've gotten so many drops over the years. It's at like 20. I've tuned in for every Path of Exile stream day to see what's going on. Love this game. Used to be my favorite game, period. After the Apocalyptic Expedition balance patch, it took a big hit, and I didn't really focus on it as much anymore, but it's still way high up there. And I'm looking forward to seeing if Path of Exile 2 dethrones it. The thing is, we've seen early Path of Exile 2 gameplay, and it's relatively slow. And people are judging the whole game based on that, but we don't know what endgame Path of Exile 2 is going to look like. We don't know how fast it's going to be. It could be almost as fast as Path of Exile 1, in spite of their best efforts. So we'll see. I'm also not convinced they can successfully force players to use multiple buttons. Like, they really want people to use multiple buttons, multiple skills in tandem, one after the other, to play Path of Exile 2. And I'm not convinced they'll be able to manage convincing people to do that, but I'm open to it. Don't really like the hands? Yeah, it's very love it or hate it, from what I've seen. I'm getting them because I get every free MTX I can get in Path of Exile. But I don't know if I'll use them. Man. The successful database migration happened, by the way. So now... So now, every cosmetic and microtransaction you earn or purchase in Path of Exile 1 can be used in Path of Exile 2, with the exception of some skills that aren't in Path of Exile 2. Like, if Fireball isn't in Path of Exile 2, you can't use your Fireball MTX from Path of Exile 1 in it, but, you know. And the same will be vice versa with Path of Exile 2 stuff you buy or earn in Path of Exile 1. Which means I've got 10 years of cosmetics waiting for me. However, the stuff we've seen graphically from Path of Exile 2's gear is awesome. So I may not use any cosmetics in my first playthrough at all. We'll see if the gear looks good. The regular gear, non-unique gear looks good, but I don't know. Definitely want my random portal rotation in Path of Exile 2, though, so I'm really happy about that. That cross-game microtransaction support is, I don't know if it's the most consumer-friendly, player-friendly thing I've ever seen from a video game, or if No Man's Sky putting out 8 years of free updates to repent for the game's launches, but those are the top two. Like, I've never seen anything like what Path of Exile is doing with cosmetic carryover. What are your hopes and dreams for 2? I want minions to be good, because I like League starting minions. I've been a summon answer since Diablo 2. I just want it to be fun. I want it to... I don't really have expectations for how same or different the game is going to be. If the gameplay were the exact same and it was just a new campaign with new skills and stuff, I would play it. But the gameplay is looking to be quite different. I wonder how they're going to divvy up new skills they develop. Like, how many skills and support gems are going to cross over between the games, and how many are going to be developed just for 1 and just for 2? I'm wondering how they're going to handle that. There will probably be a lot of skills that are developed just for Path of Exile 2. Like, I don't expect shapeshifting to be backported to 1, because that's something people are excited about in 2, and they want to keep that as a draw. But we'll see, I guess. 30 seconds. Incoming, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games. I'm calling it. Tell me it's going to be Chris. You've got to start one of these off with Chris. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sir, just what are we facing here?
A relic of the old world. Ready your men, Captain. We will only get one chance.
Ooh.
And remember, when you hear the whispers, call for help. Do not attack.
The Whispers?
When you hear the whispers,
That's an interesting moon.
what do you think he was on about?
It's Dorman, right?
Yeah.
Then Dorman, shut your damn mouth. Ugh, why do I always get stuck with these rookies?
Hey, The kid's got a mean cleave. Give him a chance.
Quiet.
Oh, the hell is that? Oh, right in the eye. Oh, that's a cool skill. I hope we get that. Oh, is that the new Incinerate, actually? Congratulations, you've started a forest fire.
A mean cleave, eh, Captain? Rookie can't even lift his own sword. Captain Oren? Captain?
Uh-oh.
It's here. Rain! Send the signal!
What the fuck?
Rain!
Oh, are we getting fucks in Path of Exile too?
On my back will be blade up!
Come on, come on. I'm ready. I'm ready. It's a man.
No, it's not.
I should try the Fire Tornado skill in Path of Exile 1 sometime.
Run!
Well, no running from that. So who is this guy? Oh!
Captain! Captain! Captain!
Stop! Humanity isn't ready. On your feet, lad.
Sir, the captain,
You'll be fine. Here.
Oh, this kid's about to die. Oh!
what is this?
Now he's getting infected by that.
Get the body.
Stop. Mortal. It can still be contained. You don't know what you have unleashed.
Your kind no longer control this world. We cannot destroy your body, it's true. But you will watch as we destroy everything you have built. Bind him!
What the hell is going on? Why are you unleashing a monster plague?
My child. I'll make sure you can eat your fill.
What the hell is that? What the hell are we fighting in Path of Exile 2? This guy's talking shit and building cages.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Rogers,
Aw,
game
no
director
Chris.
on Path of Exile 2. Now, Path of Exile 2 is going into early access in around 2 weeks on December the 6th. But even though it's early access, this isn't just some small taste. The game is huge. In this live stream, we're going to be introducing everything you can expect. So without further ado, let's roll the gameplay trailer.
Okay, well, that was not a trailer, huh?
Is a thing of beauty. Precious, but impermanent.
Hi, it's Ziri.
Life and death are mortal enemies, and yet bound to one another.
Ugh.
The continuation of life must be protected at all costs.
Ugh.
Some have said my methods are brutal.
Is this Storiani?
To this, I say, there can be no salvation without sacrifice.
Oh, their health bar has green if they're poisoned. Cool. It's that character selection screen again. Oh, what if that shadow creature was the original witch? That would be so cool. Time stop?
We are faced with the end, and I will do what I must.
That's an extensive map. That's a cool dinosaur. That is a cool-ass map. That Atlas tree, okay, confirmed. Oh, that's rad. Oh, that's rad.
Those who obsess with death,
Oh, hey, those are the,
let them soon
back
be
attachment hands.
acquainted with it.
Oh, yep, back attachment hands.
Now, as you just saw, even in early access, Path of Exile 2 is a big game. It's actually been 5 years since we announced PoE 2, and over that time we've revealed a lot, but it's been in bits and pieces. It's pretty hard to keep track of it all, so today we're going to do a full rundown of all the content that will be available at the start of early access. Classes, character progression systems, and for the first time, a full overview of the end game. This is going to be a big one, so
Oh,
get comfortable.
tell me you're not going to tell me about the
20
axe.
years, Rayclast has been
'Cause I want
free
no
from any
spoilers.
sources of corruption. But the Count of Ogham, tempted by promises of power, intends to harness it once more. The dead are rising.
Oh, is that a
Monsters are
piece of the
mutating,
beast?
And madness is spreading. Under the dark influence of corruption, the Count doles out sentences of death to any who would question him.
I wonder if that's a random selection of people that get hung.
And this is where you find yourself at the start of PoE 2. Explore the dark forests of Ogham. Traverse
No.
the desert. And delve into the jungle ruins of Utsal, an ancient Val city.
All right, I'm gonna turn down the quality to 480p.
Lost camps and treasures. Roaming merchants. And of course, unique bosses. No two areas are the same. It falls to you to
got
track
low
down the
latency
seed of
already.
corruption, the source of all this devastation.
What is
On the
going
way, you'll
on?
Face fearsome monsters, meet strange characters, forge unlikely bonds, and uncover lost civilizations. But first, you'll need to pick a class.
Oh, come on.
Now, early access will initially have 6 classes available. Let's have a look at them. The Monk is a fast and furious melee fighter. He dashes in and out of combat, and his mechanics involve building up and keeping momentum. Like all classes in PoE 2, you'll want to use a wide variety of skills to mix and match different combos.
Let's not full screen it. See if that works. Come on.
To get new skills, you will first need to find skill gems.
I'm gonna refresh. Oh, ads! Come on. Not just my end. Everybody's having the problem? Okay. Let's turn the video quality back up then. Technical difficulties. Okay. Whew. What the hell was going on? What the hell? Here's something. I tried to update Path of Exile before the stream, and it was stopping and starting and only downloading a few megabytes at a time every few seconds. So it may be something with the GGG servers. All right, well, that's Path of Exile 2, everybody. What do you think? The real Path of Exile starts with stream difficulties. The corruption is spreading to the stream. All right, so Ogham. Oh.
What are we facing here?
Precious. Those who
Power intends to harness.
Okay, they're fast forwarding.
There are 21 active skills for quarterstaves, so this just scratches the surface of the options that you have. By endgame, you'll be dashing from pack to pack, spewing where you find yourself at the start of PoE 2. Explore the dark forests of Ogham, traverse the barren plains of the Vasteri Desert, and delve into the jungle ruins of Utsal, an ancient Val city. There are challenging monsters, hidden runes, lost camps and treasures, roaming merchants, and of course,
I wonder how you're going to get ascendancy classes
no two
into.
areas are the same. It falls to you.
God,
to track
all the
down
bosses and
secret
enemies that we've
the
seen in
source
2
of
have
all
been
this
so
devastation.
good.
On the way, you'll face fearsome monsters, meet strange characters, forge
Are those
unlikely
centaur
bonds,
gnolls?
and uncover lost civilizations. But first, you'll need to pick a class. Now, early access will initially have 6 classes available. Let's have a look at them. The Monk is a fast and furious melee fighter. He dashes in and out of combat and has mechanics that involve building up and keeping momentum. Like all classes in PoE 2, you'll want to use a wide variety of skills to mix and match different combos.
The freeze effect looks really
To get
good.
new skills, you will first need to find skill gems. Using a skill gem will open the gem cutting menu, which shows all the active skills available in PoE 2. You can choose an existing skill to level up, or choose to engrave a new one. Since this is a level 7 skill gem, even if you pick a new skill, it will immediately be level 7, so there's no harm in
Interesting.
trying out something new.
Interesting.
The
That
monk primarily
encourages
uses the core
experimentation.
There are 3 schools of martial arts: lightning, ice, and wind. But don't think you have to stick to just one. The best combos are going to involve mixing elements of all 3. Let's try Killing Palm. Like many monk skills, this can be used to quickly take advantage of a specific situation. If there's an enemy on low life, you can use Killing Palm to dash to them and kill them instantly. This will provide a power charge.
Ooh,
Then you
cool.
use a different skill to consume that power charge for a much more devastating attack.
A
The monk
skill
also
with
has
built-in
powerful combo
call?
skills.
Low
Timber Spell,
life
for example,
call?
is a skill that places a giant resonating bell. Hitting the bell causes it to ring, dealing damage to all enemies around it.
Oh,
You
that's
can also do
interesting.
things like freeze or shock the bell, which will add elemental damage to the strikes.
Oh, it's like,
The monk also has a variety of
Hydrosphere.
abilities to empower his staff. If an enemy is close to being stunned, you can use Staggering Palm to punch them down. After that, any attack you do will shoot out wind projectiles. There are 21 active skills for quarterstaves, so this just scratches the surface of the options that you have.
Shrine.
By
Shrine
endgame, you'll be
confirmed.
dashing from pack to pack, spewing projectiles and obliterating screens of enemies with huge combo attacks. Now, if you like a style of melee that's a little slower but hits much harder, then the warrior is for you. He pounds the ground with big chunky attacks and can shrug off the hits of small enemies with large amounts of armor. Even though the mace slams are slow, you never lose control. Longer attacks can be retargeted as you go. And if you
Oh.
find yourself committed to a long attack, you can dodge roll out of it at any time.
Okay.
Among the skill option for maces, you will find a variety of slams, fire attacks, war cries, and shield
It's
skills.
divvied up by
Here, I'm going
a
to slam the
weapon
ground,
type.
rending it apart with lines of fire. Any slam skill will then cause these fissures to erupt with lava. I can even run through them with a skill like
Interesting.
Stampede to do huge amounts of damage.
Oh, interesting.
Warrior
Interesting
can also
pack
use
clear.
war cries, which can empower your next skill.
Not good single
Flash the
target
Fire,
though.
For example, will double any slams from your next attack. The Stampede counts as a slam, so I can double that for even more craziness. If you want to go a little faster and be a little more defensive, equip a shield. In PoE 2, you can raise your shield at any time to block all damage from the front, even spells.
Oh. All
While
damage.
holding up your shield, your stun meter will build as you take damage, so be careful. If it reaches
Stun
100%,
meter, okay.
your stance will break and you will be vulnerable. Some enemies also have unblockable attacks, which are indicated by this red flash. If you see one of these coming, make sure to dodge out of the way.
Okay.
Using a shield also gives you access to shield skills, like Shield Charge, which allows you to charge towards enemies and stun them. While charging, you're also blocking the whole time, so you have full damage immunity from the front.
Man, directional blocking as a
Warrior also
mechanic
has
is
access
an
to
interesting
totems.
addition.
Some totems have built-in abilities, like Shockwave Totem, which can be placed to stun nearby enemies and trigger aftershocks like those from the Earthquake. But you can also get Ancestral Warrior Totems, which allow you to use any slam skill in your repertoire.
Oh no, melee totems are back.
Which means that it's a skill you can put other skills into. I can take a slam like Sunder and socket it into my Ancestral Warrior Totem. Now when I summon him, he'll sit there and slam the monsters from a distance.
Okay, that's
There are 20 active skills.
That's a
for
better
races,
implementation
so
of melee
try
totems.
out. But by endgame, you're going to be dropping hammers from the sky, leaping fearlessly into combat, and separating the very earth you stand on.
this is a
Times
decent
and
pace of
ranger
gameplay.
types. The ranger is primarily about the bow.
All right,
But we
ranger's
wanted to
in.
Make sure that she feels agile as well. In PoE 2, you can shoot while moving.
Ooh.
Combined with all the skills the ranger has that allow you to jump around, you will have a lot of mobility in combat.
That's built for controller.
Bow skills have a variety of lightning, poison, ice, and physical attacks.
I might try this with
Lightning
controller.
attacks bounce around between targets. You can also stick lightning arrows in the ground which explode when hit by the bouncers, or electrocute enemies to take them out of combat.
Oh,
Ice
electrocute
attacks later slow
freezes
and
them in
freeze enemies
place.
to keep them away from you.
What if it's a combination of shock and
Using
freeze?
poison, not only can you slowly damage your enemies from afar, but also grow some interesting plants.
Ooh.
With 21 bow skills and all the mobility and combo tools the ranger has, you can take advantage of every situation. By endgame, you'll be creating hundreds of arrows, be they falling from the sky, bouncing around between enemies, or spraying out of tornadoes. You might have noticed in the bottom left of the screen that the flask slots look a little different.
There's only two, and they're
PoE 2, you have
supported by
one dedicated
charms.
Life flask slot and one mana flask slot. Flasks gain charges as you kill enemies, and typically allow you to heal 6 or 7 times if they're full. But that's not the only thing you can use charges for. Charms are a new item type that will automatically defend you from various debuffs or damage types. Having trouble with getting frozen? Equip a Thawing Charm. When it's fully charged, it will make you immune to freeze for 3 seconds if you get frozen. To recharge them, just kill more monsters. You can
Oh,
gain
yeah,
more
it's got
sorts of
Wazda
charms by
movement.
upgrading your belt. The Mercenary wields a crossbow that can be loaded with different ammo types, offering versatility, power, and mobility. All classes in Path of Exile 2 can be controlled with WASD, which makes this class play exactly like a shooter. For the crossbow, you will find skills that work like shotguns, sniper rifles, assault rifles, and even grenade launchers.
All right, if you're just going to describe it like
There are a
that,
variety of more interesting elemental ammos too. It's very fast to switch between ammo types, so long as you already have them loaded, which makes the Mercenary able to combo abilities together for devastating effect. Use Glacial Bolt to create walls of ice to separate enemies, then switch to Fragmentation rounds to explode the ice, dealing massive AoE damage. If I come across an armored enemy, I could use armor-piercing rounds to break their armor, and then high-velocity
are they
rounds to
going to
take them down.
say it every
Perhaps I can
time?
fire a gas grenade to poison
Or did they
enemies,
take that
detonating
out?
the cloud
Because
with an explosive
nobody
shot
liked it.
for massive damage.
You can
If you
make
want to
gas
call
clouds
some
that then
explosive fire,
you
can
burn and
summon
explode?
artillery ballistas.
Okay,
These have a minimum
more
range,
and more
so
I'm getting
locate your
sold
position
on
carefully
multi-button
before moving in.
classes. Multi-button characters.
There are 22 active skills for crossbows. By endgame, you'll be calling destruction down from the sky as you litter the battlefield with grenades and pepper your enemies with your automatic shotgun. If you're looking to take a backseat and let your minions do the work,
Minions!
then the witch should be your choice. She can call forth hordes of undead monsters to fight for her while casting powerful chaos spells that debilitate her enemies. Occult skills are some of the most varied in the game, with skeletons, noxious spells, specialty minions, curses, and sacrificial magic. Before we talk about minions, we'll have to talk about a new resource in Path of Exile 2 called Spirit.
Oh.
This is a spirit gem, which allows you to pick from a range of persistent skills. All classes have a variety of these skills,
Replacing
which can add some
auras?
very interesting effects, like Arctic Armor, which does cold damage to enemies that hit you, or Raging Spirits, which summon fiery skulls each time you cast a fire spell.
Summon Raging Spirits is...
We'll want to be using our spirit to create permanent minions. These minions will be revived automatically when they die, so you don't have to worry about resummoning them all the time.
Oh, maybe I will
Here,
play
I'm using the
minions.
skill screen to allocate which minions I would like in my horde. You can see the spirit cost of each one. Skeletal warriors are cheap but weak, useful for tanking damage and distracting enemies.
Oh,
But I
man.
want more heavy hitters.
Maybe I will play a
So I'm
summoner.
going to unsummon some warriors and instead add skeletal arsonists. Permanent minions come with special active abilities called command skills. You can order these guys to detonate your own minions for even more damage and area of effect. If you want a bigger army, you'll need a scepter. This new weapon type is imbued with even more spirit, allowing you to summon even more friends.
Oh, my God.
And if you want an even bigger army than that, you can take advantage of corpses to summon true hordes of minions. But what can a witch do while her army is at work? Well, she has a range of chaos spells to spread disease amongst your enemies, or bone skills to impale them. Or, you know, you could curse them to make them weaker so your horde can take them down. There are 25 active occult skills.
Real
In-game,
summons
you'll
are
be a
ours.
fearsome army of the dead, consuming everything in its path.
I'm gonna play minions. This is new enough.
Sorceress bends the elements to her will, using them to unleash devastation on her foes. This classic spellcaster weaves a flurry of elemental magic from afar. The elemental skills have everything you might expect and more. Fireballs, icy explosions, lightning storms, you get the idea. Each spell is unique and has many different ways to build and combo with others, even between different elements.
The minion
For
gameplay
example,
is so exciting.
Wall conjures a burning line that not only damages enemies, but also empowers all projectiles that pass through it.
That's cool.
If you place a wall and fire lightning sparks through it, they'll gain extra fire damage. It's a good
That
idea to
didn't
take
work on
advantage of the
spells
ability
in
to
PoE
automatically
1, I
swap
don't think.
weapons when you use certain skills. Having a special staff with bonuses to fire skills and another with bonuses to lightning skills can really power up a combo like this. The sorceress can also take advantage of powerful trigger gems. For example, you could grab the Cast and Ignite gem and use it with Firestorm. As you ignite enemies, a counter will go up in the top left corner. When it's full, a Firestorm will automatically be cast.
there's a
for
cast
enemies
when
ignited.
tracker. Oh, that's good.
25 active elemental skills. By endgame, you'll be firing off projectiles left and right as you rain down.
Good
elemental
old
storms on
lightning
your
orbs.
foes. Now, those are the characters that will be available at the start of early access, but we will be adding 6 more character classes with just as many skills and options as these. There's a lot more to come. There's one more important thing to mention about skills. Even though we talk about them as belong to each class, in reality there are no restrictions.
Yes,
you can
good.
use all these skills on any class so long as you have the attributes.
Oh yeah, we're getting
For example,
we're getting all the
Poison Ranger
PoE
might
1
want to
classes
try out
except
using
Scion
occult curses to
and
increase
6
their
new
poison
classes
damage.
by the end of this.
Or a monk might want to trigger elemental ice walls to use with his glacial cascade combo. The possibilities for cross-class combos are practically unlimited. We're looking forward to what kind of things you guys might find. Now, Path of Exile is a game known for build customization, and we haven't even
Oh,
scratched the
assault
surface of
rifle
what's possible
crossbow
yet.
on the bell looks
So let's talk
really
about support
powerful.
gems. Path of Exile 2 has a system of support gems that can be combined with
Okay.
active skills.
No,
to
hang on.
make
Let's
games
talk
the way they
about
work.
that. What just
If you
happened?
find a support gem, then right-clicking it will open up this
He
screen.
dropped the bell that
Here you
does
will find a variety
shockwaves
of
whenever you
recommended
hit it, and then he
skills,
fired
skills
a
that you can
bunch of
pick.
rapid projectiles into it,
For
and
example,
it just did
this is a
so
multiple projectile
much.
support gem. You can
That
use
sounds like a
multiple
really
projectiles
fun
for any skill.
combo.
Normally, when you fire a grenade, it'll look like this. But if we add multiple projectiles, then you get 3 of them. Once you have the gem, you can also freely move it between any of the skills on your character. If you want to have a multi-shot sniper rifle instead, then simply move the gem over to your high-velocity round skill. Generally speaking, if it sounds like a support gem should work with a skill, then it will work. So it's a good idea to experiment. Note that you can only have one of each support gem on your character, so you'll want to think
The grenades
carefully
take
about which
forever to
supports
blow
can
up.
be used best with each skill for maximum damage. Now, if you want to stick to the recommendations, you should have a perfectly good time. But if you want to experiment a bit more, then uncheck that recommended button and you can see the full list of supports that will work with your skill. There are hundreds of support gems to choose from, and even we don't know the results of all the possible ways these can interact. Each skill can have up to 5 supports socketed into it, and if you're clever, you can come up with some pretty interesting ideas. Now, all of this is just scratching the surface. You can make frost vortexes, break people's armor, make minions explode, make skills repeat,
Oh, I like those spiders.
make enemies set each other on fire, cull enemies, or pin them to the ground.
This is making me very
Supports let you
excited.
drastically change the behavior of your skills and create your own unique build, or at least follow someone's OP build guide. So, speaking of builds, let's talk about one of the
Yes, the tree!
iconic Path of Exile
That looks so
systems,
big.
the passive skill tree. Yes, it's huge. There are over 1,500 nodes on there.
That's bigger than
Now,
PoE
a lot of
1's!
people open the tree and can get a little intimidated at first, but try not to be scared. There are lots of options, but at its core, it's pretty simple. Each level you get 1 point to put into the tree. Each class starts at a different location, but they all share the same tree. Around your section of the tree, you'll find relevant bonuses for your character. You should be safe in the knowledge that there aren't many wrong choices here. Almost all the starting nodes will be useful for your character in some way. But if you do happen to make a choice you regret, you'll be able to respec any nodes you've taken by spending a little bit of gold.
Imagine dropping multiple bells and then use a rapid AoE to trigger each of them super fast. Oh man, super cast speed on
Generally divided
Ice
up into
Nova.
clusters which have similar themes. In each cluster, you will find small nodes that give
Yeah, you
simple
start from the
bonuses
middle
like
for
increased
everyone,
damage,
but you only
but
have
the
like
real power
one
comes
spot you
from
can come out
notables.
through.
Notables normally have much more
Just like
interesting
in PoE
bonuses,
1.
and they tend to care a lot more about how your build works and what skills you're using. For example, in the mercenary area of the tree, this one gives a 25% chance for crossbow skills to not consume a bolt.
Mirage
gives grenades
bugs.
a chance to blow up a second time. This one gives a chance for projectiles to rebound off terrain, as well as giving you some pierce chance to make that more likely.
Ooh.
Note that even though this is in the mercenary section, this would work
God,
with projectiles from
the
all classes.
the
So there are
bit
often
rate
reasons
is
to go to different areas of the tree.
awful for this game.
In order to get between these clusters, you will generally have to allocate nodes in the attribute highways. Attribute nodes allow you to pick which attribute you would like to use, so it's very easy to get points for
Interesting.
any attribute that your gear might need.
So you don't have to
You can change
extend
which
around to
attributes nodes give
fill
you for half
stat
price at the
requirements.
respec vendor. In addition to notables, you will also find even larger passives called keystones.
Chaos
Keystones have
inoculation
both an
in.
upside and a downside, and often require changing your entire build to design around them. A great example is Giant's Blood, which allows you to wield 2-hand weapons in a single hand, but doubles the attribute requirements of them.
Double
Use a two-hand mace or
two-handers.
shield, or even dual wield them.
Double two-handers. Oh shit.
Or how about Mind Over Matter, which makes all damage go to your mana pool first before your life pool, but you lose 50% of your mana regen. Skills like these can be tough to
Ooh,
build,
that's a different mind
but
over
for a
matter.
challenge, they can be very rewarding. As we showed you earlier on the Sorceress, you can swap between weapon sets on the fly as you use certain skills. One of the new features in Path of Exile 2's passive tree is that you can choose to have your passive tree change as you switch between weapon sets to take advantage of specific
Building this is
bonuses
going to
on
be
the tree.
so
For the
complicated. I
Sorceress,
love
You
it.
might want to change between fire and lightning specialization. Or you could switch between one hand and a two-hand setup in order to be able to block boss attacks while following up with heavy hits from your bigger mace. Or perhaps you could have a full curse setup on your witch to debuff enemies before switching to a chaos degen build for maximum damage. If you want to stick with just one weapon set, you can just use these specialization points as bonus points to invest however you like, but creative players will find plenty of opportunities with this system. You can get weapon specialization points throughout the campaign from optional
That is a
bosses
small-ass
and
arena.
quests. For example, if I manage to defeat the Crowbell, I'll get a weapon specialization book. There are lots of other permanent boosts available from the campaign too. On the map, you can see icons that indicate the many optional encounters you can find.
The King and the
Some of them have
Miss.
permanent character boosts, and others have powerful items. If you're having trouble getting past a boss, it might be a good idea to explore and see what you can find. For example, if you defeat Blackjaw the Remnant, you'll gain a permanent increase to fire resistance.
Regal Shard.
Important finds are spirit bonuses. You can find the first one here in the canopy in Act 1. Defeat the boss in this area to acquire a permanent addition of Spirit. The permanent buffs you gain from Spirit are very powerful, and every class will find a use for them, so make sure you hunt down these upgrades. There's one in each act. Now we haven't even talked about the most important element of character progression, items. That's why we're all here, right? Items in Path of Exile can be broken down into 4 rarity groups: normal, magic, rare, and unique. One of the
Cool
things
Rain's
you're going to
back.
want to do as you play through the campaign is upgrade the items you find, and you can do that with currency items. An Orb of Transmutation will allow you to upgrade a normal item to a magic item with one
Critical
mod.
damage bonus.
You can then apply an Orb of Augmentation to add a second mod, then use a Regal Orb to add a third mod, and upgrade it to a rare. Finally, you can use some Exalted Orbs to add more mods to your rare to a total of 6 mods. One of the things we think is really important is to make these options available to use as you play. All the items that add mods are much more common than they were in Path of Exile 1, so that you can use them throughout your campaign playthrough.
Okay.
We want you to find things on the ground that can be crafted into upgrades much more frequently.
Common
As
exalts.
well as making the drop
Interesting.
rates on these items much more common, you can also get them by disenchanting unwanted gear at the magic item vendor.
Interesting.
If you disenchant magic items, you can build up to an Orb of Transmutation, and by disenchanting rares, you can build up to Regal Orbs. Another important area of crafting items in PoE2
Oh, do you
is
sell them for
sockets.
gold then?
Some items you find will have sockets that can have Ezomite runes placed in them that add more mods
Runes?
to the item. If I insert this glacial rune into my helmet, it will give extra cold resistance. This is a great way to solve problems that you have with your build, like resistances or damage. If you find socketed items that you don't have a use for, you can take them to the salvage bench in town to work towards an Artificer's Orb. This will allow you to add sockets to your existing items.
Interesting.
Body armors and two-hand weapons can have up to 2 sockets.
Jeweler's Orb
while the rest of your armor
reworked.
and one-hand weapons can only have 1 socket. You can also salvage items with quality to create items like armor scraps or whetstones. These will allow you to increase the quality of your items for an up to 20% boost. If you don't want to disenchant or salvage your items, you can always sell them for gold. Gold
Okay,
can
you
be
sell
used
them
to
for
buy
gold.
items from vendors, and we've tried to do a lot to make sure that the items they have for sale are actually useful. Every time you level up, they get more stock, so make sure to check back often. Other vendors offer a gamble. Pay a flat amount of gold and you'll get a random item of a specific type. This could be a great way to improve your gear, if you're lucky.
Oh,
Gold is
certain
also used to respec
certain
your
pieces
passive
of gear,
skills.
certain
Take
types of
advantage
gear
the system
grant
to experiment with
specific
your tree and
skills.
rework it as required. The other thing you might want to use gold for is the currency exchange. This allows you to exchange currency items.
All of
with
it is
other
the
players
currency
on an
exchange
open
now.
market, in exchange for a small gold fee. Now, all items in Path of Exile are freely tradable. We never bind anything to your character, except gold. Now, most gear in Path of Exile 2 is randomly generated, but there's another type that isn't. Uniques. They are especially rare. Each
God,
with a
the
handcrafted set of
Devourers
unusual
look so
mods which can
good.
dramatically change
Gamble
your character's
sprint.
build.
Gain
They're
up to
not just better
40%,
rare items.
increase
They
movement
can
speed
do
at random when
much
hit
stranger
until
things
hit
that can
again.
fundamentally change your character.
Interesting.
Corpse Wade will make any corpses you run through explode into clouds of poison. The Sands of Silk is a body armor that changes
They're
your
great
dodge roll into a
skills.
blink, morphing you into sand as you teleport past your foes. And of course, some uniques are just pure hits of dopamine, like Quill Rain, which just turns your bow attacks into full auto by doubling your attack speed. Each unique is something that you can build your character
All of us
with.
an NPC from
We try
Path of
to make
Exile
sure
1.
that most unique items have a potential use at endgame, even if you find them early on. And as you can see, every single unique item comes with custom art to match.
God, that's rad.
The last character progression system that you can do during the campaign is Ascension. Starting in Act 2, you will come across Ascension trials, tests that you must complete to unlock your Ascension class. We'll explain these trials soon, but first let's take a look at what Ascending can do for your character. Each class has access to 3 Ascendancy classes, but at the start of Early Access, only 2 per class will be available. Ascendancy classes are unique to each character class, so choose wisely. They can drastically affect how you build your character. As a sorceress, you could become a Stormweaver, a master of the elements.
That's a lot of skill points.
Elemental storms to be
If it
summoned
starts in
each
Act
time
2
you
and
do
there
a
are
critical
6
hit with a
acts,
spell.
there's probably 2 points per act
With
for a
Strike
total of
Twice, You
10.
can stack 2 copies of Shock for more damage. And going deeper into the tree, you can make all your damage types apply Shock. Make a Shock build from any skill. Alternatively, you could become a Chronomancer and command
Ooh.
time itself. She literally has the ability to stop time with time freeze. Not only that, but
That's
she has
cool.
many other time manipulation abilities. Using Temporal Rift, she can teleport
Can she
back
do that
a
to
previous
bosses?
location, resetting her life and mana back to what it was.
Can she
With a
time stop
stack,
bosses?
She can reset all her cooldowns and cast all her spells again. On the warrior, you can
Resetting
choose between the
cooldowns.
Warbringer or the Titan. The Warbringer channels the might of his ancestors to gain tremendous power. Using Answered Call, you can summon ancestral spirits linked to each of your totems. With Jade Heritage, you can encase your body in a protective layer that absorbs all damage until it breaks. Warcaller's Bellow allows you to explode the corpses of your enemies. And with Great Wolf's Howl, you can ignore the cooldowns of your war cries. Let all that anger out. The Titan class is all about hitting big. With Earthbreaker, every slam is a chance to create an aftershock. With Crushing Impacts, every hit becomes a crushing blow, which will allow you to stun your enemies with ease. With Surprising
I guess get a
Strength, you can take
flamethrower.
advantage of stunned enemies to deal 40% more damage. As a ranger, you might choose to be a Deadeye. and
Yeah,
take
we have
certain
8 in
hits
Path of Exile 1.
with style. With Endless Munitions, every attack gains an extra projectile. With Gathering Winds, she gains a small increase to movement speed with every attack. But be careful, she loses them when getting hit. With Eagle Eyes, she will never miss, allowing you to stop wasting all those passive points on accuracy. Alternatively, you could become a Pathfinder, the master of flasks and poison.
The return.
She can choose from one of several throwable concoctions, allowing her to spend her flask charges to throw explosive bottles that deal various types of damage. A bleeding concoction will make your enemies bleed, while a fulminating one can shock your enemies, allowing you to do extra damage. Contagious Contamination allows her to spread poisons between her foes, while Overwhelming Toxicity doubles the number of stacks they can be infected by. Running Assault allows her to move much more quickly while firing, while Relentless Pursuit makes her totally immune to being slowed by enemies.
Cool.
Witch can ascend into the Infernalist or the Blood Mage.
Tell me
As
there's a
an
minion
Infernalist,
class.
She can summon a loyal Hellhound companion. The Hellhound
Ooh.
sets enemies on fire, as well as taking a percentage of the damage if the Infernalist gets hit. With Pyromantic Pact, you can turn your mana into Infernal Flame. As you cast more spells, the flame builds up, and if it overflows, you'll take damage. Using Bringer of Flame, you'll want to make sure you keep the flames topped up. While your Infernal Flame is above 30%, all damage from you and your minions will ignite enemies.
Interesting.
She can also transform into a literal demon.
Yo!
While in demon form, she takes an increasing amount of damage, but her cast speed and damage increase rapidly as well. So if you're planning on transforming into a demon,
Yo!
make sure you stack a lot of life recovery.
That's rad!
She can also become a blood
That's
mage,
so
the
cool!
master of life and energy. All blood mages must pay the price of making skills cost life as well as mana, but in exchange, every monster they kill will drop life remnants, which allow them to quickly gain back that life.
Interesting.
With Crimson Power, she can gain large amounts of extra life, and with Vitality Siphon, she can use her spells to leech life back as well. Once you've got a significant amount of life, you can use Gore Spike to make your critical hits deal incredible amounts of damage. A monk who is in tune with the elements might become an Invoker. With Elemental Expression, the
Yeah, that's
Invoker
nice. Show me
will create
minions.
waves of elemental power each time he does a critical strike. With Faith as a choice, you gain the ability to meditate, allowing you to double your energy shield.
I'm definitely turning
Choose
into a
between
demon
I am the Blizzard
at some
or I am
point.
the Thunder to specialize in cold or lightning. And I Shall Rage will allow you to turn into an unbound avatar. Each time you apply a status ailment to an enemy, you gain Unbound Fury. When you have enough, transform into an avatar to deal way more damage and inflict even more elemental ailments. Some monks choose to reach into the darkness instead. The Acolyte of Chayula can exchange their mastery of
Ooh.
spirit for darkness, a resource that can be utilized to both absorb and deal damage. The Shroud of Darkness will protect you from all damage incoming, but if you take Grasp of the Void, you will deal extra chaos damage from all the darkness you have. Their Dark Pact offers greatly increased resistances to chaos damage and can allow their mana leech to not only happen instantly, but apply to their energy shield as well. Another
Yo!
node you can take is Waking Dream, which
There's
allows you
so
to see
many
into the
different
domain of the bridge
options.
demons. There you will see the Flames of Chayula that can be taken to gain life, mana, and damage.
There are so many options that weren't in
The
Path of
mercenary
Exile
has a
1.
job
This is
to do.
awesome!
Which job suits you? You might choose to become a witch hunter.
Hey, no hunting
Obsessive
me.
Rituals will give you a sorcery ward, allowing you to defend yourself against elemental hits in exchange for less defense against attacks. With Zealous Inquisition, your enemies have a 10% chance to explode on death. The chance is doubled against demons and undead.
Explode chance as an ascendancy point.
Your initial hit against enemies can deal up to 30% of their life and damage, if you're lucky. This is great for hunting powerful bosses. And with Witchbane,
Torgal, no,
you can
don't
break
kill
your enemy's
Torgal.
concentration, preventing them
He's
from
the best
casting
boy.
spells as often as they would usually do. You could also choose to become a Gemling Legionnaire, enhancing your abilities by embedding gems directly in your flesh.
Ooh.
Integrated Efficiency will give you extra skill slots. Thermatological Infusion gives you extra maximum resistances as you socket more and more support gems. Adaptive Capability allows you to use any color of gem without worrying about attributes, while Crystalline Potential adds extra quality.
Oh, that's flexible as hell.
Gem socketed into your character.
Whoa! That's busted.
So those are the Ascendancy classes for the start of Early Access. But one thing we haven't talked about yet is how you ascend in the first place. Ascension in Path of Exile 2 requires completion of one of the Great Trials, which you'll find as you progress through the campaign. Each one is associated with one of the major cultures of Rayclast. Located in the Vasteri Plains are the Maraketh, a culture of rich tales and brutal traditions, who must do whatever it takes to survive in the desert. The highest position in Maraketh culture is a Sekima, and it is not a title given freely. All aspirants must complete the Trial of the Sekimas, a grueling gauntlet that will test their strength, will, cunning, and patience. To enter, a warrior of the Maraketh must prove their worth by trapping the soul of a djinn in a coin, and you are no different. Once you have earned your coin, it may be placed on the relic altar to begin the trial.
Oh, that's Sanctum UI.
In the Trial of the Sekimas, each room has its own challenges to overcome. In this room, each rare monster you kill will send its blood to the chalice in the center of the room. Once the chalice is filled, you will be able to proceed. While fighting monsters in the trial, you will need to be very careful. Each hit will not only hurt you, but will damage your honor.
Oh my god, it's just Sanctum.
So that you can avoid their attacks, but if you run out of honor, you will fail the trial and need to find another coin in order to try again.
It's just
It's a
Sanctum.
good idea to make sure that you are well prepared before challenging the Trial of the Sekimas. After each room, you will be rewarded. In this case, you have been given a key that can be used to unlock chests later in the trial. Once you have claimed your reward, you will be shown
There
a
must
map of
be
the
a
rest of the
silver
floor
door.
and may choose how you
Oh
wish
my
to
god,
proceed.
it's just Sanctum.
Which challenges would you like to face, and which rewards do you want?
This is going to be so much harder
Some
than
rooms are more
than
dangerous,
the lab.
afflicting you with debuffs that will persist for the entire trial. For example, entering this room will afflict you with Spiked Shell that will cause all monsters.
It's
in the
literally
rest of the
just
trial
Sanctum.
50% increase.
I don't know if I like that.
You will want to
That's
take
going to be
care
so
to
much
choose
harder than
the path.
Path of Exile 1's lab.
There are many different challenges and rewards as you journey through the trial. Deadly traps, waves of monsters, and strange artifacts will test your honor. As you progress, you'll be able to gain boons from the Jinn, which will help you on your journey. For example, the Sekima's cloak will revive you once if you die, giving you a second shot at a run. One of the rewards you may find is Sacred Water, an extremely valuable and treasured resource to the Jinn and the Maraketh. Trading it with the Jinn will allow you to receive many benefits. You can recover honor, gain additional boons, or remove afflictions. At the end of the floor, you'll find a powerful boss which will truly test your limitations. In order to ascend, you will need to defeat him.
There's a damage number on top of his, on top of the health bar. Oh, that's so nice.
Having defeated the boss, you've earned the right to ascend. But first, the loot. The keys you have found may be used to open the various treasures in the vault at the end of the floor. We only have a single bronze key, so we'll just have to open one of these small chests. If you want to open the better ones, you'll need silver or gold keys. Let's use the Altar of Ascendancy. Your first ascension will allow you to pick your class and grant you 2 points to use in the tree. Now there are more floors and many more rewards that can be found within the Trial of the Sekimas, but we'll save that for the section on the endgame. For now, let's talk about the second Ascendancy trial, the Trial of Chaos. In Path of Exile 2, you can choose whichever trial you like to earn your ascension. Each culture on Rayclast had their own methods to ascend.
Okay.
If the Trial of the Sekimas is not your kind of playstyle, or you're finding it too difficult, you could try another. You can gain all your ascension points from just one or mix and match them. It's up to you.
Interesting.
For early access,
Okay.
we'll have 2 trials as options, with a 3rd trial coming later for the full release.
Oh,
exploring
only
the
3
Vaal jungle,
trials.
you'll discover the Temple of
6
Chaos.
points max.
Before the Vaal embraced the science of corruption, their civilization worshipped chaos. This ancient trial was once used by the Vaal to test their high priests. A high priest of the Vaal must show willingness to risk everything to gain power. Entry to the trial requires
Hey,
a token
it's
from
the
a
Trial
strange
Master.
entity known only as the Trial Master. For those in which he sees potential, he shall inscribe an ultimatum. Many have attempted these trials in search of greatness.
Okay.
Most have perished. Will you be able to defy the odds?
So
Before you begin each
different
chamber,
mechanics
the Trial Master
are
will
the
offer you a
Ascensions.
reward and a choice. Choose one of 3 tribulations to affect you through the rest of the trial.
And the Trial
These
Master is going to be the
modifiers might beef
last
up the
one, I
monsters,
think.
curse the player, or add environmental hazards like turrets or trap runes. In this case, we'll be picking shocking turrets. As you enter the room, the Trial Master will fill it with hazards to test your commitment. In this case, you must destroy all the monsters that fill the room, while dealing with the lightning projectiles from the shocking turrets.
I wonder what the 3rd trial is going to be. Sanctum and Ultimatum. Interesting.
After each room, you will need to make a choice. Take the rewards you have earned so far, or go double or nothing. Increase your rewards, but take on more risk. Each tribulation you add is minor on its own, but they quickly stack on top of each other and can become overwhelming. There are many types of chambers in the trial. Each will test your resolve in different ways. This one simply requires you survive for a certain amount of time. Another requires you to escort the stone idol through the level as elevators full of monsters descend to attack you. Should you be able to get through the first 3 chambers,
Whoa.
you will face your first boss. The order of the bosses is random, and combined with the tribulations you have selected, the fight will never feel the same. After defeating the boss, you may claim your rewards. Of course, there are the items, but you also gain the
Only
right to
3
ascend.
chambers to reward.
If you already did the Trial of the Sycamores, then you can claim 2 more points to add to your Ascendancy class. Now, it's possible to go much deeper. There are more bosses, rewards, and risks to take, but we'll talk more about that when we get to endgame.
Okay.
So how about we talk about that now?
Yeah!
So far, we've only been
Maps,
showing you footage
maps,
from the
maps,
campaign.
maps.
But some people would argue that the endgame is where the game truly begins.
Okay,
Something that
accent
happens
at
almost
level
every time a new
65.
action RPG launches is people saying, there isn't enough in-game content. Well, we want to make sure that in PoE 2, people don't feel that way. And we actually only changed our development priority for this recently. The first 3 acts of PoE 2 already take around 25 hours to complete if you're a new player. This is already a pretty significant campaign. On the other hand, people spend hundreds of hours in endgame each league. We realized that finishing the rest of the campaign for early access was actually a bad idea. Instead of having acts 4 to 6 in early access, we could concentrate on endgame and make that great. For new players, a 25-hour campaign is already a huge game with lots of content. But for existing action RPG players, what you mostly care about is all the endgame challenges to overcome. So several months ago, we switched the entire development team's focus over to making endgame content. At
Okay.
the start of early access, there will be 50 bosses and around 400 monster types. But the great thing is that the rest of the game is like 80% there. We'll be adding content to roughly double the size of the game during early access and into release. Now, in order to make the endgame happen at the same character level as what it would be after we added the rest of the acts, we've added a second difficulty level
Cruel
called
difficulty,
where
okay.
you repeat the campaign with all the monsters and bosses leveled up. And of course, new rewards. You can kind of think of it as like a new game plus. It's also a lot faster to get through the content the second time as your clear speed increases. That will take you to around level 65, where the endgame begins. Once we add the remaining 3 acts, we'll be removing Cruel difficulty, so you'll progress straight from the end of Act 6 to endgame. But what is the endgame?
Remember
Explain
playing
that
through the
on Path of
game 3
Exile.
times
We can
in
tell you all about it.
2015?
Hi, I'm Mark Roberts, Game Director on Path of Exile 2. Well, one thing that Path of Exile is known for is having a lot of distinct in-game content to choose between.
How much are
Each
you
in-game
carrying over?
mechanic needs to have its own progression system, areas, bosses, rewards, and player power that can only be gained from that content. We are going to be adding a lot more over time, but for Path of Exile 2, we decided to start with 7 distinct systems you can progress through.
Okay.
This is the Atlas, and it serves as the core
that's
of the
the
endgame
Atlas
of
map.
Path of Exile 2. It's infinite and expands in all directions. Now, we are not going to spoil the plot too much here, but corruption from the beast has blighted the land, and your objective is to help fight it.
Whoa!
In the center of the Atlas, you will find the Ziggurat, a temple in which the Val research the fundamentals of space and time. Here, we can open portals to nearby locations and begin cleansing corruption and finding resources. In order to power the portal device, we will need waystones.
Waystones
Each waystone
instead of
has a
maps.
tier, which will determine the level of the monsters that you will face. To go to an
Can you
area,
craft
simply
them?
click one that is adjacent to an area that you have already completed. Insert the waystone and click Traverse.
This is
Allowing
kind of
you
like
and your party
Delve.
to travel to the area you have selected.
This
All
is
the
kinda
areas
like
in the
Delve.
endgame feel distinct from the locations in the campaign, and we have dialed
Flicker Strike!
randomization up to 11. The monster packs you will face in each map are totally random, and the combination of them can lead to some very interesting combat situations. There are over 400
so you
monster
can't
types in
predict
early access,
monster
and they have
types.
a lot of varied and interesting abilities. Depending on which combinations you face, you might find some serious challenges. In order to cleanse the corruption from the area, you will need to defeat all the powerful rare and unique enemies in it. Once you have done that, the area will be marked as completed and you will be able to travel past it to progress deeper into the world. If you die, then the map can no longer be run, and you will have to find another way around to get to the areas behind it. There are also all kinds of other random encounters you might run into as you play maps. One such encounter are precursor artifacts. These are ancient, corrupting monuments that irradiate the monsters around them. The monsters that feed off the corruption are drawn to their power. If you defeat the
So wait,
monsters and
what
cleanse
happens
the
if you die in
artifact, you will get a
every
powerful
spot
temporary
around the
buff.
start?
Some of the buffs make you faster, others rain lightning or fire around you, and some even give you increased experience or help you find better items. You can also find strong boxes. These enigmatic chests guard piles of treasure, but are always a trap. Monsters lie in wait to attack you the moment you open it, and the boxes often have mechanisms to unleash powerful spells or dangerous debuffs.
Encouraging you
There
to
are different
exalt
types of
strong
boxes
boxes.
containing different items.
Hey, it depends on how
Even use
common
your
exalts
currency
are.
items to craft them on the fly, so you can optimize the content. But be careful of opening one you can't handle.
Oh, wait, are you locked in around the strongbox?
Sometimes you'll discover monsters frozen in essences, solidified.
Oh, that's
crystalline
freaky.
corruption. These dangerous monsters can be broken free. If you defeat them, the essence they drop can be used to upgrade normal items to magic items with a guaranteed mod from a category. For example, we could use this
Oh,
one on some
essences
boots to
only
ensure a movement
upgrade
speed
them to
mod.
magic.
Rarely, essences will also drop that allow you to upgrade magics to rares, adding the guaranteed mod.
Okay. The essence. I'm glad I have an essence stash tab.
This is incredibly powerful, since it allows you to get a second deterministic mod in your crafting projects. Combining these with the currencies that are commonly found in Rayclast for modifying items, and we can get a very nice pair of boots indeed. Waystones, like all items, can also be crafted using your currency items.
Okay, good.
Adding prefix mods will improve the rewards, while suffix mods increase danger. The more dangerous a map is, the more waystones will drop.
Oh,
Adding
not
mods to your
item
waystones is
quant,
key to
waystone
progressing to
drop
higher
chance.
tiers and sustaining them, but it will require you to take on larger challenges. There are a variety of factors you have to consider when crafting your waystones. Some maps will have higher density, some lower, some have more magic and rare chests, or monsters, some are more linear, and others more open. Make sure you explore and think about what makes certain maps good. if
Yeah,
you
map
want to
system getting
maximize your
baked
returns.
in. Interesting.
As you cleanse corruption from higher and higher tiers of the Atlas, you will gain points that you can spend in the Atlas tree.
Yeah!
This tree allows you to
Unironically, the best change they made to Path in the
last
last
in the endgame.
X
You could
years.
increase the number of monsters, the number of rares, the number of precursor artifacts or strongboxes, even the quantity of item drops. As you explore the in-game world map, you'll notice various different biomes, from snow-capped mountains to dense jungle valleys. Most maps are restricted to certain biomes. As you continue to explore deeper into the Atlas, there are all sorts of things to discover. These cities are constructed by different peoples of Rayclast, and have specific items that can be found there. These strange structures marked on the map don't appear to do anything for now. Perhaps you'll work out how to use them later. You might find unique maps like Untainted Paradise, an undisturbed island full of beasts that give an extreme amount of experience.
Hell yeah.
You may even find a lonely man just enjoying his retirement who will give you a unique item for free.
Nameless
In
here.
addition, you can find special areas that would make a good spot to set up camp. Clear these areas of their hostile inhabitants, and you'll be able to claim
Unlock
them
a
as your own
hideout.
You can decorate your hideout as you see fit, and invite various NPCs to join you there to create your own personal base of operations.
Hell yeah.
A great tool for exploration are towers. These mysterious precursor constructs are dotted around the Atlas. Completing the tower will reveal a large area around it, allowing you to scout out your next challenge. There are lots of things to find, so keep looking.
This is an interesting
Some
endgame
sections of your
system.
Atlas are influenced by corruption. This adds extra modifiers to the maps in the region, increasing difficulty and rewards. Here, slaying monsters in close proximity to each other will cause the vestiges of corruption within them to merge together, forming powerful and grotesque abominations. You may have noticed while looking at the Atlas that some of the areas have these icons above them. The icon indicates that the area contains some kind of special encounter. This icon indicates that the area has a powerful boss. Because only 1 in 4 maps contain a map boss, we are able to make them very powerful and very rewarding. These bosses come from the campaign, but have had their difficulty increased with changes to AI and some of their abilities.
Okay,
It's
unique
worth noting
versions
that
of the
because
bosses.
you can see where the bosses are, you can choose to take them on or avoid them. If you do choose to hunt bosses though, then you will be rewarded with special points for the boss hunting section of the Atlas skill tree. The points here will allow you to specialize in boss killing, giving you much greater rewards for defeating them. For each different type of content in the endgame, we are adding specialized trees in order to make it so you don't feel the need to
I see
reach special
Expedition.
points when you change between different
And
types of
Delirium.
content. We will be showing
I see
you
Expedition
separate
top left,
things by the
Delirium
end
top
of this
right.
presentation, so there is still a lot more to come. Bosses are not the only icon you will see on the Atlas. Let's take a look at one of the endgame systems, Breach. If you played PoE 1, you might be familiar with Breach.
Oh, that's a
PoE
kick-ass
2, we have
Breach
created
portal.
Sequels to several PoE 1 leagues. While the mechanic is familiar, the monsters, bosses, rewards, and progression are all new.
That's
a
sick.
breach is a tear in the fabric of reality. Opening it will allow you to see the demons and otherworldly monstrosities that lie in wait on this other plane of existence. By engaging with a breach, you'll create a bridge between their world and Rayclast. In order to keep the breach open, you will need to kill the demons that pour forth. The faster you can kill the monsters, the more monsters you will fight, and the more loot you will find. You can also find clasped hands that will open and drop more items if you run over.
Breach rings are back.
These can be a good boost to the rewards of the breach, so keep an eye out.
Yeah, I want to know if there's
One of the
methods of
rewards that you may
reopening closed
find while
paths.
Fighting monsters from Breach are tablets.
Also,
Tablets
you
are
only
special
get-
items that can be used with precursor towers to add more encounters to the Atlas.
It said when you
Breaches
die,
without
it closes
breach
the map.
tablets. Clicking on a completed tower will allow you to consume the tablet to add more breaches to areas within range of the tower. This makes all the content in the Atlas self-sustaining. Want to do more breaches? Find the tablets, add them to your towers, get more breaches, getting more tablets. Soon your Atlas will be covered in otherworldly domains. In addition, like all items in PoE, you can craft them.
You can
Use
craft
your
them?
currency
Huh.
to add mods to your tablets, allowing you to upgrade all the breaches in range. Tablets can have up to 2 mods. These mods do things like adding extra rare monsters, extra clasped hands, or even monster density of breaches, allowing you to keep them open longer. Often, you will find multiple towers near to each other with overlapping areas of effect. This can allow you to really juice the mechanic by stacking the mods from multiple tablets. In your fight to hold the breach demons at bay, you may want to use the powers of their world against them. Each in-game mechanic always has player power that can only be gained from that mechanic, and Breach is no different. In Breach, you will find catalysts, items that can increase the quality of rings and amulets by improving specific
Okay,
rings.
so you get
You
them
can
from
also
different...
find Breach rings, a special base type that can have its quality improved by catalysts up to 50%.
Ah,
In this
that's a
case, you can
different
create
Breach
a
ring
with
mechanic.
around 170 life. Breach rings can become
Hot
some of
damn.
the strongest rings in the game, giving you some good motivation to face the demon.
That is
addition,
much
each
better than the
in-game
breach rings in
mechanic
Path
needs
of
to have
Exile
a
1.
pinnacle in-game encounter. While killing breach monsters, you may find breach splinters. Collect enough of these and you'll be able to create a breach stone.
Stack size 300.
Vile technology called the Realm Gate. You can use your breach stone to access their domain and bring the fight to them. In this twisted domain, you will find nothing but a single massive breach. Triggering it will reveal hordes of breach inhabitants. And should you be fast enough, you will be able to fight their leader, Zesht. We that are one.
Oh, okay. Zesht Ula is the only Breach Lord? Before, Breach Rings doubled their effects when you were in a breach. Yeah, the game's built around dodge rolling.
This is just one of the pinnacle encounters of PoE 2. We won't be showing the rest of them, so you will have to discover them for yourself.
Good.
But rest assured,
This is
some
cool
of the
enough.
hardest content we have ever made. All of these encounters have specific uniques that can only be found from them, but that's not all. We still have the progression system. Defeating Zesht will give you points to allocate into the breach section of the Atlas tree. Allocating these points will make
So you just have to do it 8
breaches and
times?
the breach domain even harder, but will give you more rewards. The small nodes will increase the difficulty of the twisted domain, while the large nodes have more specific bonuses. For example, this node adds more clasped hands to your breaches, and adds a pack of magic monsters that can guard them. Get some more points and you can allocate Waking Nightmare, which will double the number of splinters you get from clasped hands, and inflict you with a mysterious debuff. In order to earn more points, you will need to defeat Zesht at a higher difficulty, and some rewards from Zesht can only be found by increasing the difficulty of the Twisted Domain above certain thresholds. Defeating Zesht at difficulty 4 will be a challenge indeed, but there are many more through the
Ouch.
break past. Ritual altars are sacrificial
Ritual's
sites
back.
built by the mysterious King in the Mists. If you encounter this symbol on the Atlas, then you know that the area contains ritual altars. Ritual altars demand tribute. Every monster you slaughter in the circle will feed the altar. After the sacrifice, touch it to begin the ritual. The monsters you just killed will be resurrected
Waves
by
of
the King
blood.
of the Mist's dark magic, and you must fight to survive.
That was backported into
The
King's
tribute
March
you
for
have
the
offered to the altar can be spent to buy
pirate
powerful
boss.
items, but they can be expensive. To gain more tribute, you will want to find more altars. Each successive ritual you do within an area will spawn the monsters revived by the previous ones, in addition to the ones you sacrifice next.
Oh, they
By
they
the
keep
end of an
freezing
area,
the
you will be
game
fighting a truly
with particle
imposing
effects.
number of foes, but will have a significant amount of tribute to spend. One of the rewards you can buy with tribute are omens. These are special items that allow for metacrafting. Crafting items that affect other crafting items. Have an item with good prefixes but bad suffixes? This omen will help you to remove the mods you don't want, while keeping the ones you do. There are a bunch more of these with different effects, but we will leave them for you to discover.
Interesting.
Now don't forget that Ritual will also drop tablets, which can be used to specialize into getting more rituals. If you want to get to the pinnacle boss of Ritual, then you will probably want to use them. They
Tradable
can also be
metamods
crafted
is
to craft
interesting,
mods,
yeah.
making your rituals more rewarding. The pinnacle encounter of Ritual is the King in the Mists. Feared by the Asmeri people, he is said to have brought eternal darkness to the Wildwood. We won't show the encounter, but just like Breach, there are a range of unique items you can get for defeating him, and you will gain points in the ritual section of the Atlas tree. Some maps have been touched by insanity. A mysterious entity has taken a special interest in you. Step through the looking glass and you will find your nightmares coming to life. When you touch a mirror, the mists of delirium will spread out across the area, infecting your mind. You must stay within the mist to maintain the nightmare, which is as profitable as it is terrifying. Everything you kill will increase the rewards that drop. However, the deeper into the mist you travel, the stronger the monsters are. Be careful not to overstay your welcome.
It's a little
Rare and
annoying,
unique
but it's
enemies
better
will
overall
become
to remove
vessels
service
for
trades.
terrifying
Yeah,
enemies.
the
They will
less
manifest out of them,
power
unleash powerful attacks on you.
TFT
Also
has,
offers
the
a
better.
strange crafting material, distilled emotions. By combining these emotions, you are able to instill your amulet with a notable from the passive skill tree. This is like gaining
okay,
an
no
extra
blight.
passive point for free, attached to your gear. They are also particularly great because you don't have to traverse the tree to get them, allowing you to get off-class bonuses that would normally be much harder to get. Distilled emotions can also
Instead
be
of
used
blight.
to instill your in-game maps, applying Delirious to them and adding additional difficulty and rewards, allowing you to further juice your in-game maps. The tablets you can find from
Interesting.
Deliria can be used to further improve it, increase pack size, make the fog dissipate slower, or improve your progress towards the pinnacle encounter of Delirium. Speaking of which, every now and then you will find simulacrum splinters. The mysterious entity will create strange encounters based on warped versions of your own memories. Monsters and simulacrums come in waves that get progressively more difficult. You will receive loot at the end of each wave, and you will have to make the decision to leave now or continue on, facing other
That's a
tanks, even
cool,
tougher foes from
cool
the mist. The bosses you
effect
will face as you get deeper into a simulacrum are truly
for a
terrifying.
simulacrum. That's rad.
If you can complete a simulacrum, you will gain points for the Delirium section of the Atlas skill tree. Next up, we have Expedition.
And it's been 20 years.
Corruption, you will encounter these Kalguran settlers. The Kalgurans have
How are they
discovered
still
ancient burial sites with
fine?
lost
It's been 20
Vermisian
years.
artifacts, and they want you to help dig them up with explosives. The Kalgurans have marked the locations where the relics can be found.
Man,
Place
as they
explosives
expand
you
the
can to
endgame,
dig
there's
up
going to
as
be
many as
Atlas
possible.
trees for
Just
everything.
one problem. Corruption has brought the corpses of their ancestors to life, so you might have to do a little cleanup before you can reclaim the artifacts.
I don't mean fine like alive. I mean fine like they look like they haven't
Also find
aged in 20 years.
The destruction of which will further anger the restless dead. Each one you blow up will make the subsequent monsters more powerful, but also more rewarding. Danig, Rog, Tujin, and Gwenin will exchange the artifacts for useful items and
Oh,
heroic magic.
they're tradable
Also
now.
find tablets to increase the number of expeditions and the rewards. This one increases the radius of explosives. while this
Tradable
one increases
expedition
the number of
stuff.
remnants you will find. Eventually, you might discover a logbook. These are special maps full of buried treasure and relics. Essentially, one giant dig site. Here, you can create an extremely long chain of explosives and go through a very high number of remnants. But be careful, many remnants have mods that can really brick your build, so you will probably want to avoid these ones. If you add too many remnants, you could easily make the encounter harder than you can handle. There are
That's a
all
much
sorts of
cooler
interesting
explosion than
things
in Path of
buried
Exile
underground
1.
Logbooks. You might find dripping caves and hidden pirate
That's
cases.
so many
The
skeletons.
most
I want to play a
powerful
minion
encounter
master
is
so
always
bad.
the ancient undead commander of the Knights of the Sun. Defeating him will grant you unique rewards, as well as points to spend in the expedition section of the Atlas tree. So those are the in-game systems on the Atlas, but we are not done yet. The trials we talked about earlier have much more content when you get to endgame 2. Just like the other endgame systems, they also have progression mechanics, unique rewards, and player power that can only be gained from them. As you get higher level coins for the Trial of the Sycamores, you will unlock more floors to explore. Each floor has its own challenging rooms and a floor boss that you will need to kill. There are 4 floors in total, leading to another pinnacle boss at the end of the last floor, which can only be accessed at endgame. The Trial of the
Is it gonna be
Sycamores
Lycia
will
again?
provide jewels, which you can socket into your tree. These are like passives that you can craft with your currency items. They can be really powerful as they allow you to stack modifiers that may not be easily accessible on the tree normally. This jewel gives lightning damage and shock chance, for example. There are quite a few jewel sockets on the tree.
They're actual
so it's possible to
gemstones
gain
now.
A lot of power here. There are also other types of jewels that don't provide any bonuses themselves, but affect other passives surrounding them. This jewel increases the effect of small nodes in radius by 25%.
So it's not limited to
With
unique
careful placement
ones.
in the tree, you could get a significant amount of power from it. There are also unique jewels available with very interesting effects, but you will have to find those for yourself. In order to push further into the trial and uncover the secrets of the Maraketh, you will want to take advantage of its progression system, relics. Relics are items that can be placed in the relic altar as you start the trial. They give special bonuses that affect the trial, making it easier and increasing its rewards. Of course, you can craft these with your currency items, making them even stronger. If you can complete the entire trial overcoming all 4 floors, the final boss will reward you with one of many unique relics. These relics will be consumed when used on your next run, but can reward you with unique and powerful items. For example, this is the Last Flame.
Temporalis.
If you use it, you will have only 1 honor for the entire trial, so you will need to do a completely hitless.
It's Original Sin.
The Trial of Chaos also extends into the endgame. As you gain inscribed ultimatums of higher and higher levels, the number of chambers that you can go through.
I wonder what the max level is going to be.
Are
Are they going to go to 100 this time?
Even more risks for even more rewards. At endgame, you can progress through up to 10 chambers with 3 bosses on a single run. Stacking 10 tribulations on top of each other will make this a significant challenge, but it's worth it. The Trial Master will tempt you with items of the Vaal Empire, such as Vaal Orbs.
Wait, you can only get Vaal Orbs from Ultimatum?
Corrupt your gear with random mysterious outcomes.
Interesting.
Corruption prevents an item from being modified further, so it has to be the last step of your craft. But it's
no, not
also
player
the
level,
most
area
impactful
level.
one. For example, if you use one on your body armor, it might add a new powerful enchantment, or it might reroll up to half of its modifiers. Vaal Orbs also have the ability to add a socket, allowing you to bypass the normal restriction of how many sockets an item can have. A body armor could get up to 3 sockets this way, allowing for a significant number of mods. Vaal Orbs can even modify uniques. Adding enchantments or sockets to uniques can make them incredibly powerful.
So
but
it's
there is a good
now
chance that you'll break
enchantments.
them as well. The Trial Master
Corrupted
will
impulses
also
have been merged with
occasionally offer you
enchantments.
soul cores. Originally formed by Chaos, the
Soul
Vaal sought
cores.
to replicate soul cores through human sacrifice rituals and blood magic to power their civilization. Soul cores are powerful socketable items, with mods that cannot be obtained from regular runes. Like all endgame content, there is of course a pinnacle boss. The final chamber will drop keys to this mysterious door. Some say this is where the Trial Master himself resides.
Yeah, it's
Perhaps you
Trial
are willing
Master
to
again.
Take the risk to find out. Had enough yet? Because there is still just one more thing.
Okay.
The most difficult content in Path of Exile 2. While mapping, you might come across this fortress that has emerged from underground, surrounded by an enormous maze riddled with danger. Is the maze preventing something from getting in, or something getting out? This fortress is of ancient origin, and its construction has similarities to the towers and tablets that you have been using on your journey through the endgame. It is clear from the entrance that there are 3 keys required to enter. Local factions are vying for access to the fortress in order to seize the power they believe will be inside. Each
Okay.
of the faction's leaders have managed to get their hands on one of the keys, so you will need to defeat them. Each faction is led by an Uber Act boss. You can see one of them inhabiting the city, but in order to fight him, you will first need to defeat their 2 lieutenants in the adjacent zones.
Viper
Be
Napawatsi.
careful. If you fail against either
Doriani.
lieutenants, or to kill the leader, they will move on. And you
I
will
knew
need
that
to
was
fight them
Doriani.
again. Kill all the Uber bosses and you will gain access to the fortress. We aren't going to spoil it, as we can't wait to see you guys attempt it for the first time.
Interesting.
But is there a tree you get points in after killing it? Of course there is. This is Path of Exile. There is always another tree.
So these are the challenges for PoE 2. As you can see, this project is crazy huge. Way bigger than even we expected when we started out. But how do you gain access? Well, during early access you'll need
Supporter
to
packs.
To thank our existing PoE supporters who have spent more than $480.
Okay, I'm
we're
in.
giving you guys a key for the PC version for free. Anyone else who wants one can get one by purchasing one of the new early access supporter packs that have just been released to the store. If you just want early access to PoE 2, then you can get a key in the $30 early access
And
pack.
300 points.
The pack also comes with $30 of points to spend in the MTX store. But we also have a variety of other supporter packs filled with
that's a
exclusive
Kiwi!
microtransactions, points to spend in the store, and even physical items. The cosmetics can be used right now in PoE 1 and in Path of Exile 2 when early access starts. Most of this footage has been recorded in Path of Exile 1, since that's where you can use them immediately. The Lord of Ogham supporter pack contains a cosmetic armor set befitting of the Count of Ogham himself. There is also a matching back attachment which has an alternate variant depicting the influence of corruption.
Cool.
Also in this pack, you can find a portal formed
Yeah,
of the
portals.
busted armor of the fallen soldiers in the Red Veil of Ogham, and the offspring of a vicious crowbell boss found in the hunting grounds. This one doesn't look so vicious though.
The mini bosses are back.
On top of that,
That's
you'll receive
cute.
the Iron Count's Zweihander to apply to your one-handed or two-handed swords. For those who are wanting to
It's a
decorate your weapons
Zweihander.
with fond memories and
Why can
tales
you
of
apply it to
Path of Exile's
one-handed
history,
swords?
You will also get a series of hideout statues. This pack contains the statue of Hillock. For Path of Exile 1's closed beta, each pack contained a true New Zealand icon, the Kiwi. Following this tradition, all packs in this series will also contain a new themed Kiwi pet.
Hell yeah.
The pet will loyally follow you into battle, but run away at the first sign of trouble. Become the
Now that's a
ruler of the
classic
desert,
description.
King of the Faradin supporter pack. Show your mastery of traversing the sands of the Vasteri Plains. The body armor will allow you to glide along the ground with ancient sand magic. Now each armor set comes with body armor, boots, gloves, and helmet, but the boots are covered in sand. If you'd prefer to show them off, you can turn the gliding off if you want. The accompanying back attachment equips you with 2 powerful pillars that can control and manipulate lightning. They will periodically release their energy in a powerful blast while in town, and hover in a circle around you, arcing lightning between them, forming a barrier of energy.
Oh, not more town
Replace
effects.
the appearance of any bow with the Faradin's Glory skin. Or replace the appearance of a spear with the Tyranny's End spear skin. This spear skin can be applied to staves and war staves in Path of Exile 1. If you want to truly show your worth as a king of the Faradin, then you definitely need your trusty, moving, entire city fortress known as the Dreadnought to travel across the Vasteri Plains.
Oh my god, that hideout is so
In Path of
cool.
Exile, you can decorate your hideout however you like, and it's no exception here. It comes with a variety of thematic elements to use.
That's so
and
cool!
Decorations from elsewhere in the game. Additionally, you will get the Deshret's Blessing level up effect.
That hideout's so
The
rad!
Kiwi pet,
I need it.
and last but not least, a statue depicting the Vile Oversoul from Path of Exile 1. For those who don't know how supporter packs work, each pack comes with all of the cosmetics from the previous tier, so you'll get all the items from the Lord of Ogham supporter pack as well. The Thaumaturge of the Vile supporter pack features an armor set and back attachment themed around the Vile and their pursuit of science and progress. You can find the Soul Core weapon effect in this pack, which causes thaumaturgic energy harnessed from sacrifice to spill from your weapon. This
Cool.
pack also contains Doryani's Idol. It replaces the default appearance of any foci to an ancient relic once used by Doryani, and this can be applied to shields in Path of Exile 1. That's not the only Vile weapon you'll find. It also contains the Wand of the Thaumaturge skin.
That's a
and the
wand? I thought it
Royal
was a
Sacrifice
dagger.
skin.
There's daggers.
You wouldn't think to put sacrificial gems on a Kiwi, but the Vile did. Thaumaturge of the Vile supporters will receive the Thaumaturge of the Vile Kiwi pet. And the Statue of Dominus.
It's a gemling
This
Kiwi.
is also the first pack in the series with a physical item. When purchasing this pack, you'll receive a Path of Exile 2 logo t-shirt. But if you don't want one, you can opt out and return for additional points to spend in the store. Becoming a Warlord of the Karui supporter will grant you an armor set and back attachment, adorned in jade
That's
carvings
rad.
and iridescent feathers resembling power. Enough to even impress the ancestral gods, specifically Tukohama, the Karui god of war. Overkill, you say? I think the Karui people would disagree. Why not drop a gigantic totem on rare enemies you slay to crush them to a pulp? Replace your crafting bench in your hideout with the Ancestral Canoe crafting bench, where Ancestral Chief
That's
Martha will
huge.
summon a giant canoe manned by Karui warriors to aid in your crafting desires.
We must all start somewhere.
You'll also get a pair of weapon skins. Equip Akoya's Felling Axe skin to your one-hand or two-handed axes, or Tukohama's Crusher to your one-handed or two-handed maces.
Cool.
A true Karui warlord is always accompanied by their trusty Kiwi. Equipped with armor and harnessing ancestral magic, they make the perfect sidekick. Once one of the most feared beings in Rayclast, Malachi was slain by a powerful exile. May the statue commemorate the virtue of exiles past, present, and of the future.
Oh
Of
my
course, it's not
god.
all about dressing up in game. You'll want to look good in real life too.
Is there going to be a Valdo's puzzle box
Warlord of
in
the
this
Karui
core?
supporter, you'll also get a Path of Exile 2 hoodie. Our final tier of supporter pack in this series is the Liberator of Rayclast supporter pack. The Liberator of Rayclast armor set and back attachment come made with the finest materials in Rayclast, and shattered glass mosaics suspended in divine power.
That is pretty cool.
Set up your base of operations in the Beacon of Salvation hideout. Why restrict yourself to just one island when you can liberate more?
Oh.
The Beacon of Salvation hideout comes equipped with your own collection of small islands and personal operators of boats that you can use to row between them. Just
Huh.
walk to the piers, click a boat to enter, and navigate as you choose.
Decorate each island as you see fit to best represent your well-earned hideout. Everyone in
Dude!
your hideout can use their own boat. Why not have some races? You can also get the Window to Twilight portal effect, a beautiful mosaic piece of art that shatters and reveals a gateway to your desired destination as you approach it. As you walk away, the glass magically reforms back to its original form. Rule and style with the Throne of the Ruler map device. Sure, this map device can create portals to in-game maps, but it also comes with a throne you can sit on to oversee your growing kingdom. Look down on the plebeians running your maps.
That's Cirrus's
Being
model
a liberator,
pose.
though, is not just about sitting on your throne all day. If you do decide to join the fight yourself, you can leave a high priest in charge as your second in command. Liberator of Rayclass supporters will also get a set of varied weapon skins. The Light of Divinity Scepter skin, the Deliverance crossbow skin, the Justice flail skin, and the Redemption shield skin. Once again, you'll have an accompanying Kiwi, and of course a statue depicting one of the most iconic events in Rayclass's history, the battle between a powerful exile and Kitava, the Insatiable. With the help of two deities,
That's
Sin
a
and
big-ass
Innocence, the exile
statue.
was able to defeat him once and for all. This supporter pack also contains the Path of Exile 2 art book. This 215-page full-color art book includes a huge amount of amazing concept art and lore produced during the long and exciting journey of Path of Exile 2's development.
Oh, I need that.
And finally, Path of Exile has a tradition of letting the community participate in designing game features. For Path of Exile 2, we'll be adding the Twilight Order foil reliquary. By becoming a Liberator of Rayclass supporter, once Path of Exile 2 is released, you will be able to select any unique item you have found and be able to drop it from the reliquary. Once players have submitted their items, keys to the reliquary will start dropping, and other players will be able to find foil versions of uniques that you have submitted along with a message for the lucky player. The more players submit the same unique, the more chances there will be for the reliquary to drop them, so choose wisely. Now, almost all of these items are available to use in PoE 1 right now. There are a few exceptions where the item class clearly doesn't exist, such as crossbows or flails. And there are also a few microtransactions on weapon types that are unavailable in PoE 2 at the start of early access. Once classes that use those weapon types are added, those microtransactions will be available to use. If you can't decide which supporter pack to choose yet, you can always start with the early access supporter pack that just includes a key and some points to spend in the store. Then you can upgrade to any of the following tiers at a later date. These supporter packs will be available for purchase throughout early access. We'd really like to thank you for your ongoing support. Without you guys...
So what do you think? Year-long early access?
Now, I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. Stick around, because coming up next, we have a live Q&A with Ziggy D.
Holy shit. I made a deal last year with my housemate where he'd buy me the Valdo's Puzzle Box pack, and I would pay him back $40 a month for a year, and I just got done with that, and I'm tempted to ask him for that again.
To the post-show discussion and Q&A. I hope you all enjoyed what you've seen so far. It's been pretty exciting for us here as well, as you guys have been inspired.
One sec, guys.
Things. And you're already cooking a new ascendancy class.
Yeah, for sure.
You've got to do design whenever you can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's been a few fun moments here already. But I'm your host, Ziggy D, and I'm joined by Jonathan and Mark to talk about everything you've seen. Honestly, it's so much.
I mean, we were really keen to make sure that when we went into early access that people didn't feel like it was just, limping along and kind of, just like a minimal amount of content. We really wanted to kind of blow people away. So hopefully people feel like, there is enough.
I'm blown away.
Because, it was certainly a mission to get all that stuff in.
Yeah, I did come here expecting that there would be, maybe a basic mapping placeholder end game and your 3 acts and, the half the classes, but...
that atlas is wild.
Clearly, that's got the core PoE player community in mind.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we have to make sure... look, Path of Exile's endgame is kind of known for the fact that you get to choose between different types of content and that, some people enjoy one thing, some people enjoy another.
I'm going to have to put more dates for Path of Exile 2 on the December schedule. I've only got 3 days there. Because I thought I'd do an act in each day.
It's kind of what we have to make sure of. So we kind of said, okay, well, what is the minimum number of different in-game things you need to be able to have in order to be able to actually have a viable in-game that you feel like you get different choices. And that's how we ended up with what we have here.
I definitely feel like
a lot of games nowadays release, you know, and their campaign's intact and real good. You get to the end game and it just falls real flat.
Yeah.
And it was certainly a very important moment for us when we were like, hold on, that's the wrong thing to do. Like, let's not make the same mistake as everyone else. Let's pivot. And we actually did that, and like it made a world of difference and made the game all of a sudden, you know, 100 times bigger with an infinite amount more content, right?
It was definitely hard though, because like, okay, like it's like we're you know, we're progressing. It's like we would have made it. We would have gotten, you know, all these acts in if we hadn't have changed direction. It's like to actually say, you know what, we're going to specifically not finish this content that we'll be working on. You know,
Progressing in Infinite Atlas is going to be wild.
We're stopping work on this. We're going to move over to Endgame because it's actually more important. Like that was
People are going to be playing whole leagues, seeing how far they can get.
Well, I mean, it's like suddenly the whole, you know, like environment art team, it's like, you know, they're all just like, whatever you're working on, just scrap. You don't want to scrap, but, you know, like just stop it. we're doing something else now. So
saving clothes, yeah.
Especially for a lot of the developers, because you got to also think, like, a lot of our developers have just been working on this campaign for, what is it now, 6 years. Like,
I think it's even longer, actually.
Yeah, it's like just this epic journey, whereas none of them, you know, a lot of these people haven't been working on Path of Exile 1 this whole time, where, so some of us are like, you know, we're just churning out endgame with every league and doing all of that, but for a lot of these people, a lot of these developers, yeah, it was quite
Is
jarring to watch.
everyone going to have the same
Everyone
Atlas, though?
embraced it. You know, we talked about it, everyone was happy about it and stoked about it, and it just ended up coming out real awesome, so.
I think it's landed well, and it definitely kind of blew me away when you. So even before I saw anything, we were in the car on the drive here, and you were just info dumping all of the end game. You're like, oh, we got this feature, we got this feature. I'm getting dopamine just from hearing about it. I haven't even seen anything yet. But do you guys feel like you're competing against yourselves a little bit here? Because Path of Exile's kind of set the bar. The original game has set the bar for what is available to endgame in a game like this, and it makes it's not acceptable really to launch with just nothing in terms of endgame now.
Absolutely. I mean, I mean, like if you're not competing with yourself, then I don't think you're going to make good progress, right? So that's what you really have to do.
Yeah, but cracking that out for beta even.
Yep, absolutely.
Pretty
Well, as I
exciting.
said, I just think it would not have landed nearly as well without that. And I think it's important that our existing Path of Exile 1 community feels like they're also served. Like, yeah, sure, we're doing all this stuff for new players, and that's really important, and that'll expand the audience. But, you know, if we launched and all the PoE 1 players are unhappy, that wouldn't be good. So, you know, we have to make sure that they also feel like, you know, they've got a game for both them and for all the new players we hope to bring to the genre.
I'm never going to be able to play anything else because there'll be alternating
just
leagues.
Having two, right? You'll get a lot of content can be immediately divisive, right? Obviously, that's the nature of it. That's how it goes, right? And so you have all of these different avenues because there are different players who like different types of content.
Yeah.
So if you're just like, here's your one end game system, well, immediately then there is a portion of players who are just like, I don't want this, right? And so having all of these options is like ultra key, and that is what Path of Exile 1 has taught us. And again, it's like, I'd say lessons learned, you know, for the genre, and it is expanding in other games and stuff, but yeah, certainly, as you said, competing with ourselves, yes, PoE 1 has like, you know, 40 axes, you know, and we've got 7 really good ones here, and obviously more to come. But 7 is a lot, mind you.
Especially when it's all like, you know, like people
They've
have to learn
each
all
got
over
a
again.
boss.
It's going to be very interesting to see how long it takes people to do the kind of difficulty 4 pinnacle content. It's like we have we have to. It's honestly like we actually don't even really know because like you never know what people are going to find in terms of builds and so on. Like I'm hoping that it will take people a while to be able to work it out, but you know, you never know. Maybe end of day 1, people just be like, oh yeah, easy, no problem, mate. You know, could be what it's like.
We have a few people that are doing that sort of thing. I saw like a solo self found level 100 in 24 hours or something.
Jeez. Okay, have we got this is where we've got it now, is it?
So, but I imagine there'll be a little bit of a soft reset there for people.
Sure.
A relearning period.
There's stuff to learn.
And I mean, PoE 2 has changed a lot over the years, so more than 5 years of development now. And what was that initial pitch when PoE 2 was first put forwards, like, as to what it's going to be? Because it was much
I'd like
smaller
to hear that.
originally.
Yeah, so when we started, it wasn't even a sequel. It was just we're just updating the character rigs, and over time, it kind of feature creeped into a proper sequel. But the thing that we were saying is, whenever we were talking about it, and I guess this is the main thing, is that we're like, okay, when we make an area here, it needs to be that there's like a theme for it. It feels unique from everything else. We're not going to just like.
I wonder if they'll
recycled
update
stuff
the Path of
like
Exile
within the
1
campaign. It
character
just feels
rigs
like, oh, you know, we just took this area and
eventually.
modified it slightly. You know, each one's got to have its own stuff. It's got to have monsters that were like carefully thought about that like, you know, fit in with the world, and it's got to have bosses that are actually like good tier quality. You know, and every area is going to have one. So those decisions have kind of been things that have meant that they really raised the quality bar to a level that took us way longer than we even really expected. Like those things there, just like it's huge, right? Like honestly, I feel like we underestimated significantly what it would take to deliver that level of quality.
I remember really early on, a battle I fought for, and I mean like way back, was like, if you think back to say Diablo 2, which obviously still holds a lot of, you know, power in terms of design motivations and philosophy and stuff within the company. You get things like the super uniques, and PoE 1 did them, and it's just like, here's a boss with 1 or 2 skills. And I remember very, very, very early on in PoE 2, I'm like, I want every single boss to be memorable and a thing. I don't want a unique monster that's just like dies in 2 seconds and uses heavy strike. And
the bosses have all been super interesting looking.
I remember, I mean, I even got some push.
Poor Caliph.
I remember getting some pushback at the time and thinking like, you know,
they've taken the time to do it right. It looks like
my favorite part of everything, and so I was just like, man, I don't want this. This is just terrible. But of course, that decision, me pushing for that, me wanting that, turned into this megalithic.
What have you done?
Now we have 50, aiming to be 100. Honestly, probably later, several more 100 once all the end games, everything start to evolve and more expansions comes out. And I'm like, yep, we maybe just made, you know, 100 times more work for ourselves, but 100% bloody worthwhile, because I'd say those bosses are one of the main, you know, attraction pieces of the game, and anyone who plays it is just like,
yeah, hands should have dropped, guys.
Those boss fights are amazing. So like, you know, obviously some are bad and some are good to different people and all that. That's how it all goes. That's part of all the fun. But it is true that me pushing for that thing literally created thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of work. Now, worthwhile work, but it is again that exact thing of like, the scope was kind of small on numerous axes, and as we just raised the quality bar to what we thought was good.
Hey, dude, it looks like it's been worth the wait.
You know, what was it initially? Just reskinning some character classes and new rigs or whatever into this like mega scale entire campaign. Yeah, everything. But
full standalone separate game. Yeah.
Fun other anecdote, since we went out of that territory. It was originally codenamed Project Chimera.
What? I don't. That was.
It was this pipe dream.
I've never been a fan of these codename things.
It was this like, there were times way back in the original Office, there was all this like, sometimes there'll be a feature you can't really do in PoE 1, and it was always like, we'll do it in Project Chimera. That was like amongst the developers, and people were like, what the heck is that? Now, ironically, there is a boss in Act 3 called, well, it's got a different name, but it's called the Chimera internally. It is a chimera. It's a multi-headed beast, and you've seen it in a few of the marketing, you know, things here and here, different trailers, little snippets of it. And I think it's just ironic that was actually the first boss asset made before everything, the first monster, because back in when we used to just make random monsters and we'll find out how to use them. And that was made for that game. It was used in the original PoE 2 trailer, right? It is the only incomplete, technically, but only from a balance standpoint, or it was the last boss to finish in the entire Path of Exile 2 campaign.
It sounds like there was like some sort of emotional demon that you had to battle there, of like the legacy of the original idea, and you had to finish it.
We had a moment with the monster game designers where we're like, oh my god, it's happening, the Chimera is finally being finished. Holy, this is like, yeah, we were effectively like, we need to celebrate this boss finally being done. It was like at the origin, and now it's at this, you know, point where we're about to deploy early access. You know, not to say the end, because there is.
I don't know if I'll be able to make a loot filter for launch.
Yeah, it's still the big
or early access launch.
Yep. But on that note of celebrating,
because I'd have to put together a whole new loot filter for Path of Exile 2.
I feel really like laid bare kind of everything.
And
you're putting
I don't know if they'll give access to all the item terms.
Everyone playing it.
They probably will, actually.
You know, coming into a release, and I think
hopefully they do that several days before early access starts.
Who have, you know, like they have, this is their first game that they're going to be releasing, and that experience is something that you know, like I may have to have you guys use like Neversink or something. Even we were feeling a little cocky actually about the fact, because you know
until I get Frog Filter updated
content for PoE 1 all the time. I feel like we kind of felt like we knew.
I say that, but Zay started using Neversink and refuses to go back to Frog Filter.
Entirely different demon as far as getting things out right. Like, it's just way more difficult. Like when you actually have to make everything, like the whole frickin' thing, right from the ground up again. It's like, wow, there's way more stuff there, and like there's even things like the passive tree where it's like, I feel like we underestimated what it would take. to get something like that to an actual releasable state. Like that was a huge amount of work, just like absolutely colossal to get it to get that kind of stuff in shape. Like it's just been crazy. Obviously it's nerve-wracking, coming up to coming up to a release day, but I think we do have something that players are going to really enjoy, and it's always comforting when we had a live event in LA recently. People, we got to the time limit and everyone's like, oh man, we don't want to stop. So I think people are going to really enjoy it.
It's been a whole different experience for me here playing this time around as well, whereas before I was playing a very buggy kind of internal version of the game that was very experimental. Now playing almost what I'm going to be playing.
Well, I heard you still managed to blow the count up the elevator with some kind of knockback bug. Yeah, we have to just go with that one.
I did send the Act 1 boss up an elevator.
Yeah.
It was good.
Intended mechanic.
I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
He was in his like big wolf form and kind of trapped in there, so just barking at me through the wood. It's good. So a few little. I'm sure there's a few things to work out over this next 2 weeks. I hope the team can have a little bit of a rest for a day before they get back into it. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot. So you've done that pivot to the end game focus and got so much for us now to play around with in the beta, and it seems like originally I was thinking, we might be playing for a few weeks here, and then maybe
then the Infinite Atlas dropped, and
it seems like you guys want to play.
I saw my future disappear.
That would certainly be good. Look, there's enough stuff there. I think it will take people a long time to get through.
Yep.
And obviously, it's also going to be the first time people are playing through a completely fresh campaign as well. I think that will take people a fair amount of time. There's and then of course the end game as well to explore. It should be pretty significant. We've always wanted it to be that Path of Exile 2 leagues, are going to be, like how PoE1 leagues are, where you play them and you play them for a reasonable amount of time, and then sure you get done with them eventually, and then you've got the next content that comes out. So in order to be able to realize that, you have to have enough of a base to make that happen.
Yeah, people are definitely wondering how invested they can get in the beta. So I definitely want to ask a few questions kind of around that idea. Firstly, is there going to be wipes and resets, and will there be something before launch as well?
So we are going to be having new leagues effectively throughout the beta whenever we launch something significant, because we want to make sure that all of the effectively that people are able to play through. But that's going to be merged into an early access league, and effectively after we go into full release, that league will stick around. Now, I can't promise that everything about your character will function exactly like how it did.
Early access league.
I imagine it'll be a glorious kind of snapshot of all of the here's all the broken stuff.
But effectively, we can contain all that stuff in the sort of early access league, and then if you still want to play those characters, then you can go right ahead and do that. But the action is always going to be in whatever the most recent league is, and then of course after that point there'll be a standard that everything goes into, which all
interesting
our economic sins will forevermore be archived in the in standard.
Interesting. That's an interesting approach, and it'll stick around.
Not going to be affecting.
I guess that's a concession to make people more interested.
People will be able to kind of get invested in their characters. Because,
absolutely.
There's even something kind of cool about the idea of making something that will be like that little historical piece.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little collectible.
Absolutely, and I'm sure there'll be some handful of legacy things that only exist in early access leagues. So I guess we'll have to see what gives a unique balance.
You talked about the playing for a week or how long are we expecting?
Yeah.
Well, we also got to remember, and a lot of the PoE1 players will be thinking very differently to people who are obviously going to experience this as a new game, but it is a new game. Right? You don't have all these predefined, hyper-refined builds to play to immediately, go through things. You don't have people coming in with fully detailed 7 million line build guides of exactly what to do with what items. The discovery is going to be there. The discovery takes time, and the discovery is honestly ultra fun for me. I love it.
Yeah.
Now, those things will emerge after time. Of course they do. Completely fine. But you should remember, there's a lot of game to play here to discover, to learn about the world, the new narratives, the new world building, the new
I hope
items,
people don't commonly skip the campaign dialogue and they actually experience it, because I'm excited for the story.
Game systems, the bosses, it's not going to be this I personally, when a PoE1 league comes out, for example, I play for a month. Sometimes a bit longer, sometimes a bit less. It ultimately also depends largely what's going on here and how much I need to invest here. So, and there are other people who play for more 3 and whatnot, but there's certainly going to be a much longer time period you can play this for while still discovering new stuff and not feel like you're finished, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now,
Infinite Atlas.
Subjective. everyone can pick their own point when they finish. But if you want to see everything and do everything, you're going to be investing a lot more time, especially these first-time rounds. And then obviously with every league, there's more to discover, but you get faster at doing all these parts over and over and over again. You'll get more efficient over time. That's how the game works. So, yeah, I'd expect a lot of time to be sunk into this to fully explore it to start with, like a lot, you know. Not a week, not 2 weeks. You're going to be going far, far longer than that if you want to see everything. But, you know, it's up to you. Play at your own pace. See how you want to go. Learn at your own pace. That's the beauty.
I have to finish Shin Megami Tensei 5 by December 6th.
Path of Exile 1, you know, or other games, and for so long is actually discovering the entire world. And yeah, there's some familiar mechanics at the end game and stuff like that, which is awesome for people. But yeah, I certainly want to I'm very excited to see people discovering the new things and getting so excited about it.
I can tell you're amped for watching people go through that discovery process. I'm maybe even diving in yourself
100%.
I mean, I love sitting there in Path of Building, as many of us do, but I am very excited for that.
Well, yeah, as we were
new
saying,
discovery process for a while.
I think you were saying how much you were part spreadsheet. I think I was saying I'm like maybe 60% spreadsheet, 40% discovery, and that's my play archetype. You know, so
coming up with our player profiles, Timmy spikes, and things like that. For Path of Exile characters.
The discovery part of me is ultra excited, and I'll mind you, that's coming from someone who kind of knows all the content. I'm still, because there's something different about making it versus actually playing it live with the players, seeing them discover it, uniques being linked in chat and on Reddit and all of that is just so cool. So we're gonna get a massive dose of that. And
unfortunately, I won't be in Global 1 on stream because I want to curate what goes on my stream. And Global 1 is a cesspool.
We were arguing about this earlier.
I'm pretty sure that 1C spam in chat might turn into 1E, because, like, you know, 1 Exalt, given that Exalt is now...
I think it'll be chaos.
People probably...
Ad remove will still be...
People don't appreciate, by the way, like, so when we say we've increased... you're going to be getting multiple Exalts in Act 1. In PoE 2. Like, we actually have increased that a lot. It isn't just like an idle, you know, like
I
thing.
can see Exalts becoming the new kind of like chaos.
Yeah, I actually think
chaos
it will
being the new divines.
I actually agree. But we'll see.
But that's my point.
But it's a new economy, right? Like, who even knows? The market will have to...
But I like that we're already arguing about this. It's good fun. So, do you have some kind of like beta release roadmap for updates and things like that for people to look forward to?
I mean, we certainly did have one 6 months ago when we were, but now that we're, you know, now that we're sort of getting to release, it's like, oh my god, like, you know, we have to look at it. So, I mean, look, I don't think it'll be any less than 6 months, and I think it could easily end up being more. I certainly don't want to. I mean, look, 2025, I think, really want to be, you know, full release in 2025. I don't really want to be spending more than a year. That would be
okay. So we'll probably get a year.
Like, we have to get all the content finished and all that sort of stuff. You know, we always feel like we underestimate these things, and of course we have to learn what we need to learn. We have to get the game to the point when it is really fun. You know, we have to.
Ziggy, ask him how big the game file is going to be.
Difficulty right for all the players. Got the economy right. Like, all
how much space do I need to make on my computer?
Things that we're gonna have to sort out. And so, I kind of have a feeling that the first few weeks, at least, are going to just be scramble of like, you know, oh crap, someone like worked this crazy thing out and we found this thing, and like, you know, that's always scary. You know, because it's just when we add content to PoE 1, it's like at least the kind of base of stuff that we have is kind of, you know, well tested and people know kind of what's going on with it. But here it's like just complete new world, and we're the kind of game that has a lot of ability for players to do stuff that we wouldn't anticipate. You know, we have
Wait, have they said how big the game file is going to be?
Like so I just,
2 PoE 1s, so about 80 gigs or something?
There's just going to be builds.
How big is PoE 1's file now?
Like completely ridiculous that we just never anticipated, combining certain things in different ways we don't expect, you know, with hundreds of...
Oh, you're joking. Okay.
Like that. So, you know, that's going to be an interesting one.
It will happen.
Yeah, for sure.
It is inevitable, right? Like, there's nothing we can even do about it, because you'd need hundreds and thousands of hours of testing to be able to do that with what can only be done with hundreds of thousands of players. But that's also the magic of it all, which is awesome.
That's why I was asking you, like, are you literally really doing 12 classes and 36 sentences, like, actually?
Yeah, that's absolutely. We have we know what we want to do with
it's
all
a bit
that
unhinged.
Stuff. It is a bit, but you know, we like a challenge. I mean, you know, a studio that produces a passive skill tree like we do clearly has a bit of a glutton for punishment with regard to.
You totally could have done 6 and then, like, I don't know, added more later in an expansion or something.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could have. I mean, look, this is the plan. This is the plan. You know, I mean, like, as people go through early access, it's going to feel like there's just expansion content coming up pretty frequently. Just because, you know, we have all the stuff that we kind of, you know, got a lot of the way through. So yeah, there's stuff to come. I mean, look, I'm pretty sure, like, I really want to get the Druid out. Like, we announced it, we've talked about it. It's a lot of fun. You know, I'm keen to get that out there as soon as we can. You know,
I'll probably play Druid in the second
like,
quote-unquote early access league.
You know, we'll be able to move towards those pretty quick. But you know, there's obviously more to do.
The other thing you mentioned, talking roadmap-like things, is we've always been... You know, it's hard to predict because a lot of what will happen is, and what we leave space for, is reacting to what the players want.
I wonder
so
if
you plan
minion
everything
spirit
for so
costs will
long,
go
you're gonna have
down
very,
as the gem
very
levels
slow
up
reaction times to fixing,
to simulate
you know,
having
or
access to
adding
more
content with them.
minions.
You know, maybe the issue is like, the campaign needs more of
As
this,
gem
or this
levels.
class needs more of this, or something. So if you're planning, then you're going to be delivering on what they want solved like a year down the line or even longer. And where we like to remain very, very dynamic and, like, you know, you want to be able to fix that stuff like, oh, well, this is the main problem. Like, sure, obviously you need more than a week sometimes, most of the time. But we want it generally to be that the next releases, expansions, updates, whatever, can alleviate as many of those problems as possible. So, yeah, you try not to get too strict with the planning has generally been our philosophy, because especially when it comes to actually having the live service product out, because that is very, very important. Otherwise, you're never going to seem like you're doing what people want, and what are you doing if not that?
So that actually is a good point. Like, I was going to ask, what do you folks, what does the team want out of the beta? Because obviously it's like a good way to market the game, but it's also, you know, key to shaping the game in the future. Like, an actual beta, it's not just early access.
I think one of the most important things, I think it's going to be really good for the development team to get back into a live mindset and, like, get it back into the idea of, like, okay, everything we make is shipping.
People are
soon,
seeing
you know,
this.
like, get back into this. You know, people are seeing, you know, like, actually getting back into that, and, like, yeah, like, and, like, being able to sort of see directly, like, okay, we make something, it goes in the game, people like it, don't like it, like, that kind of stuff. Like, and that really, like, that has been our studio for, like, most of its lifetime. Obviously, we, you know, before we released PoE1, it wasn't, but after that point, I mean, we are a company, like, we are a company that likes to think that we can do live service better than anyone else. Like, that is our goal. And so, like, getting back into that.
Well,
for the entire,
you've succeeded so far.
Everyone's working on things that are going to be releasing within, you know, certainly in less time than, you know, than 3 months away. Is going to think be really, really good for us again. I look forward to just being able to do that, because these long-term, like, really long-term things, like, that span over years. It's like you go so long without proper feedback, like, stuff kind of gets made, and then, like, you know, it's not really in a real game, and so it doesn't get
probably
tested
lose
properly.
perspective.
And you absolutely lose perspective on this stuff. So I think that that's just going to be a really great to get back to that again.
Yeah. I honestly, as you said, it is early access. It is a beta period, and I'd say, you know, personally speaking, the thing that, and we mentioned it briefly about the character balance and the builds that are broken and all that, that's obviously pretty useful to me, right?
Yeah.
Plus, we have other systems in there, like, you know, the checkpointing system, right? You have to kill the boss in one life. You know, these are things we haven't mass tested, and obviously other games have, and they work, and that's awesome. There are other things like, you know, the end game system is a little bit less forgiving in that if you die, you fail the map, right? These things are things that we obviously need to test and iterate on in the future by adjusting the difficulty and stuff.
Ask him about it
especially
blocking
as you get
progress.
towards this point of, you know, the end game. Like, okay, Act 1 has been tested like crazy.
Yep.
Right? And you get less and less testing as it goes on, because you get less people, you know, they've just been around for less time. And so, yeah, it's going to be a huge amount of iteration and feedback, and from the players and us just, you know, reevaluating all the stuff. And the thing is, we're always dynamic about that stuff. Like, we'll just change things if it's wrong. We'll redesign it. We'll come up with a new way. Jonathan's a firm believer of, if A doesn't work and B doesn't work, then we'll find C, we'll find option C, we'll find option D, and we'll keep changing things, and we'll make it work. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of that iteration on our design decisions, how forgiving, because, like, the game is pretty hard. You know, it can be pretty hard. And so when you're on that fine line of, like, you know, things are difficult, you know, it's not too easy to know if you've tilted one way or the other. So you know, finding what everyone agrees should be the common corrected difficulty is something that I will obviously be paying very, very, very close attention to.
It's a pretty hard thing to nail down when you are making the game. And so we've seen that a lot, where you folks have been pretty willing to change and then rechange and rechange again some of the core features like flasks and the waypointing system and portals. And you're keeping that kind of mindset going into the beta then?
Of course. I mean, look, we're always willing to change stuff. Like that flask thing, like the most recent change to that was like ultra recent. Like, have we even had like a closed beta of that yet? Was that? No, I think we haven't. Yeah. But I mean, I think it's way better than it was. Like, it's the things have improved a lot.
Yeah, I'm excited for
honestly,
the new
like,
flask
that's one of those
system.
things we've been wanting to do something to sort out flasks for ages.
Yep.
And it really came about because when actually looking at what new players were having trouble with when they were playing, Flask Piano was actually like, even from the very beginning of the game, actually ended up being one of those things that like people just had trouble with, just like just the manual dexterity required to like hit all your different flask keys, and then you have to know when one of your flasks run out so you can move to the next one, and like various things like that. Like all that stuff actually was like just a weirdly large amount of mechanical complexity right from the very beginning. And then even at in game, I don't think it was really satisfying either, because you ended up with, like, you know, just like having to press all these buttons all the time, and obviously it's all utility flasks that people are using at in game. And then we kind of tried to band-aid this in PoE1 with the some of the flask automation stuff that was added there, but there was still this idea that that you're still more powerful if you don't automate. So therefore, you know, like it's like there's that trade-off there. So
you're just more powerful if you get mage blood. Really,
sure. I guess. Sure.
And then it's all automated, and you're very powerful.
Yeah, sure. All right. But so the point is, effectively, that the charm stuff that we're doing effectively means that you no longer, the game is making that decision of like, you know, that stuff will be automated. You no longer have to do that like crazy flask piano to get the best, the best out of your character. And I think that is definitely a step in the right direction. And the other thing as well is it actually makes the crafting more meaningful, I think, on the flasks, because when you've got like 5 slots, then like the individual mods and the individual stuff like seems to tend to not matter as much. I mean, obviously, you know, people want instant recovery and things like that, but you know, like
I didn't see anything about
like the
auras besides spirit stuff.
on your
like
life flask, the
we
choice
saw
between, do I
Arctic
want
armor.
instant or do I want way more life? Like that kind of stuff actually can be a lot more meaningful once you've only got one. So yeah, I think it is a lot better personally.
You have we'll jump ahead to flasks since we're on the topic. You have locked in effectively the fact that there's a mana flask there now, so that there's always going to be a mana flask slot. And how does that tie into your design for mana? And are we always going to be using a mana flask slot, or if we solve another way, what does it do?
You can absolutely solve another way, and then you'll just have a flask slot that isn't doing anything for sure. But I think it kind of has to work that way, because we really don't want. Because like once you sort of start to get into changing that around, I feel like the system sort of starts to break with regard to like, you know, the feeling of like, I know where mana is, I know where my health is, like that kind of stuff. That being said, you know, we've always got uniques and stuff like that. I believe there's already
there is a unique that allows you to equip 2 flasks.
But the thing is, then that's a build choice that you're making, so it's a little bit different, and that's fine. But I think the system as it works now just it's a lot easier.
So it does sound like on the mana side of things then that there are going to be multiple angles of solving mana,
Of
not
course.
necessarily flasks.
Well, they did show instant mana leech as an option.
Of how it works, and we've finally got it right this time. You know, I think it works. So I think it's good. So I think that leech will be more common.
I'm not going to have to like crack out the leech diagram showing the different buckets and things like that.
I was saying, I think that leech might be. No, I think. I was going to say, leech is one of the topics in the studio that has wasted the most designer time of anything in the industry. But I actually don't think it's that. I think the actual worst offender is what stats should Dex give you. I think that is like that one has wasted there's so many arguments about that.
I feel like that one's never come to the fore. Like we know about the leech one,
but no one is happy about it giving accuracy. But no one has a better idea than what accuracy that it can give. And like everyone's going to come up with like
evasion rating.
They'll be like saying, oh, you know, it can give this or this, whatever. But there's like yeah, seriously, there's been endless arguments about that topic. It's like, it's outrageous.
Yeah. You've got me thinking about it now.
Yeah.
I mean, speed would be good, but then that's probably too much. Too much.
Something like Dex, you just can't.
Dex stacking speed.
We can get all the designers down here right now.
Yeah, I know. But we'll just have it out again.
The longest Q&A of all time.
Yeah.
It's already going to be that.
Sometimes you're just like, you start the day, and you're like, all right, here are the problems we need to solve, and then you're like,
what about?
But then accuracy on Dex comes up again.
No, it's 3 p.m. and we're still discussing dexterity.
Yeah.
So go home. Just make it accuracy
Yeah,
again.
yeah, exactly. That is literally how it comes back to accuracy every time.
This is arcade.
Yeah.
Rewinding a little bit, we can't forget our roots with Path of Exile 1, of course. So for the PoE 1 enjoyers, what is the plan for PoE 1 during the course of this beta? Is there going to be leagues launching? Is it on the back burner?
Yeah, there absolutely will be leagues launching. Now, I don't know the exact date, but the plan is kind of late February.
Yep.
But, I mean, look...
You said late January. No, you said we would learn about it late January.
Damn. A few PoE 1 resources just towards the end here, which is kind of been a bit unfortunate. I really wish we didn't have to. But, yeah, as I said, we kind of underestimated some of the stuff.
Endless Settlers League.
Everyone is going to be going back to PoE 1 again for the February League. You know, we're going to make sure that we can do that. Like, one of the things that was a big problem for our studio when we had a long-term project and a short-term project is that you know, you've always had that thing of like you always want to work on the short-term thing.
Yeah.
So now that we've got two short-term things coming up, I actually think it's going to be a bit easier.
Well, there is a lot of PoE 2 content in the
it's like
beta, to be
all that
fair.
stuff is then you know, is like coming up soon. So, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But,
So 2 months
we need to get that PoE 1
for that initial beta before we get another PoE 1 league is fair, I guess.
I just want to always make it clear that, you know, the reason why things can't be so planned out is, again, we're just releasing this game.
Yep.
Obviously, we pivoted to endgame, and then that needed more resources. And then, of course, combined with the fact that, you know, things obviously change. There are unpredictable things in the environment we can't necessarily guarantee. And then, of course, you have, you know, Christmas coming up and all of that, right? There's so many variables to consider, but we also don't know how much time is going to be invested necessarily or need to be invested into live operations for post-release. How many problems are going to go wrong? How many builds how many of the uniques are broken? How many, you know, and where do all these resources
They've
go?
got to let you use your PoE 1 purchase tideouts in PoE 2, right?
It can get very, very difficult, especially at this time. But once you release, you have a bit of a grace period, so to speak, where well, more like a period of extreme amounts of fire, where we're putting out fires everywhere. But we have a period where we're fixing everything. You get everything stable, and then we're going to be like, all right, let's recalibrate, figure everything out. And what is our plans, and then establish all of that, based also on the feedback we get from that, you know, period where everything's on fire. Not to make it sound like it's going to be bad, but that is the inevitability. Is there's always problems.
Hopefully, it appears good from a player perspective, but there's always going to be like, oh my god, people found this, and you know, like
we don't have to see all the fires.
How's the Q&A? They haven't really gone into much.
Ideally, the best time.
Much interesting stuff.
Exploit before people even hear about it.
Yeah.
And when I say exploit, I'm just talking about some broken thing. Like if we we obviously normally have to worry about like the whole mid-league nerf concept. But it's like if you can deal with something within like an hour or two of it happening, then it's like you're kind of okay because you know no one had a chance to kind of like everyone didn't swap their build over to it or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna have to be really on the ball for PoE 2 just because there's so many things that are new.
Well, I mean, look, we have several bosses with several elevators. How many of them can be put into the elevator? You know what I mean? Well, that's what I mean. When I say a fire, I'm talking about bosses getting pushed up elevators.
Please tell me bosses in elevators is going to be the new PoE meme.
Knockback is very fun.
Right. Yeah, you need to look into that, by the way. The whole flashbang.
I feel like you're going to nerf my build.
Yeah.
Is this when he's
Stay away from my
finding fires
Grenader.
already?
Yeah.
No, these are the fun things. Discovering that stuff can be very fun for the players. It's just internally, it's like, oh no, what are we doing? It can get a little bit panicky after release, you know, and it you know, there's lots of things going on. You're like, oh geez, what do I solve first? But obviously, you know, it's the same as PoE 1. We're good at it at this point.
Got some experience.
Yeah.
Belts. You aren't going to be torturing us with like releasing beta stuff at the same time as PoE 1 league launches.
Yeah, the plan is to keep them separated a bit from each other so that you know, you get a chance to play.
Don't
with
make me
both
choose.
Yeah.
So we saw a cinematic. To put it lightly, it was pretty. That was quite epic.
How many of those are we going to have?
It has been cooking for quite some time, and that was pretty exciting. But we've also seen just a lot of story stuff happening on a much higher level than previously now. So stepping up your storytelling game here a bit.
Yeah, so we're really wanting to make sure that the storytelling in PoE 2 is much better than what it was in PoE 1. Like, you know, there's a lot more kind of, I guess, like that kind of like stuff with the introductions to boss fights and the outros and things like that, like all that stuff, we've just got a lot more storytelling going in. All of those things.
I'm all for it.
Intro cutscene. There's also can kind of light between the acts. There's these kind of more kind of motion graphic type cutscenes, just kind of establish things. And there might be some more surprises later on in the game as well. Not in early access, unfortunately. Later on that we can that you can see as well. But ultimately, we just want to make sure that I think a lot of people who got through the PoE1 story had no idea what was happening by the end. And so, effectively, we want to make sure that is not the case this time around, that people really are able to absorb things. But
really? It was pretty simple.
Say, though, is that it's ultra important to us that we don't break the feeling that, when you're playing a second time, that it feels we don't want it to feel annoying the second time.
We were talking about this morning. About we don't take the control out of the player's hands.
So I'm personally a believer of the fact that if you just when you change the camera position for a cutscene, immediately it feels way more annoying, because there's just this whole thing of like if you click on an NPC and the camera changes position, sure, when you're playing through the campaign the first time, that kind of thing is that can be cool, but then if you're you're playing through the second, third, fourth, fifth time, you want to just be able to go to the NPC and go click, 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 and just get past, and without it feeling like you've had to sort of worry about anything.
Fair, I suppose.
So, effectively, we want to make sure that it's still that we still have that, because ultimately, we're a game.
I mean, you can still click, 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 click if the camera changes
position. So ideally,
position.
we can kind of deliver both the situation where the first time you play through it, it feels like an amazing story that you're getting, that you're taking seriously, that you're understanding, that there's all those sort of touch points and little things just all through, while also maintaining the fact that if you know what you're doing, it's you don't have to go talk to some quest giver just to get a quest. You can just go do the thing, without having to talk to someone about it first. That kind of stuff is really important, just to make that stuff work well when you know what you're doing.
Yeah, you said something this morning that stuck with me, where you said Path of Exile is a game where the player's meta knowledge is allowed and encouraged.
Absolutely. So
you're allowed to cheat this quest.
Effectively, there's what the character knows and there's what the player knows, and in our game, what the player knows needs to be sufficient as far as being able to progress the storyline. If you don't want to have it so you just talk to an NPC just to find out something you already knew as a player.
If you kill this boss, you get the next area's waypoint, so you just kill it, log out, log in, waypoint, right?
I love doing that.
Meta knowledge.
Sure. Yeah.
So you explained to me the other day the kind of the context for the beast and how that leads into the cutscene in the beginning of PoE 2 from PoE 1, and that I think helped put it in a lot more perspective for me and made me appreciate and understand what's going on with the story.
So effectively, what you're seeing in the opening cutscene is effectively a new seed of a beast that is going to be is growing. Now in PoE 1, the beast was killed. And then what happened in response to that is a bunch of all the gods in the world were able to effectively rise again.
And then we killed them.
A bunch of them, but there are more, in the world. And effectively, we don't want to spoil too much about the storyline overall, but effectively, obviously someone here, the Count is wanting to harness the power of the beast once again. And then we have the mysterious figure there who is saying, no, don't do this. This always turns out badly.
There was a comment in chat that I loved that was stop opening Eldritch boxes.
Yeah, exactly.
Why do people keep doing this?
Yeah.
But I would.
If someone handed you a mysterious orb, wouldn't you press the button?
I mean,
there's a puzzle box.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's how you get Cenobites. Do you want Cenobites?
But who knows how many hours it's going to take me.
Indeed.
So we had a fun moment earlier where you were watching it and you were like, "Oh, we really need to rename that passive because he's a Karui and it's a wolf. It's called a wolf.
Great Wolf's Howl. And the Great Wolf obviously being
so he went out there.
Ismite history.
He started telling him.
I stomped out of the room. And I was like, we need to rename that notable. He's Karui. And then I was kindly reminded that actually he was
an orphan who
orphan and was adopted by a Ismite and raised and so yes, there is a mixture of Karui and Ismite background, and I was like,
it works. You were wrong.
Fair enough. I walked back in here all sad and whatever. My bad. It's fine. The name is good.
He looked so chastised when he came back in. But that just points to the fact that I feel like you're doing a lot more with the characters here.
For
And
sure.
you even mentioned that ascendancy stuff is going to have an
Yeah,
impact
yeah.
story-wise.
So, like with
That's wild.
We just think a lot about this kind of stuff. So the acolyte of, I always get this name wrong. The acolyte of is it Chalula? Chayula. I always say this wrong. The acolyte of Chayula, for example. So that we have this sort of storyline with the origin of the monks, where there's like an order of monks who worship a thing they call the Dreamer, and the Dreamer is actually Chayula.
So, Chayula who dreamt.
So they're effectively worshipping a breach demon.
Severed in sleep, united in dream.
You embracing the fact that I'm worshipping a breach demon. I'm just going to go all the way.
I'm in too deep now.
Yeah, exactly. we're just gonna do it. So there's a lot of thinking like that goes into these things. Like what is the history of these people? Because I think a lot of that stuff inspires interesting mechanics as well. So for example, on that one, you've got that into the breach skill, which kind of means you're always in a breach all the time. You can see the things going on. Like that stuff is. I think that there's a lot of cool inspiration there. So coming up with that storyline stuff for that stuff,
There's a couple other little things that I think is cool as well, and hopefully people will notice and pay attention to. So there's one of the bosses that was shown as uses a lot of time or chronomancy, and interestingly, if you are a sorceress and you ascend to chronomancer and you then go to fight that boss, if you, for example, try to use time freeze, the boss is like, that doesn't work on me, and has a dialogue line, and if you cast temporal chains on them, he's like, just puts it back on you, and it's like, and so there's interesting things.
That's cool.
Like change things on a grand scale, right? It doesn't make a certain class not viable or anything like that, but there's just interesting little quirks and quips everywhere.
Time freeze looks so cool.
Have different intro lines depending on what.
But this is implying that you can
they have
time
different
freeze a
skill
lot
lines
of bosses.
depending on what class you're playing.
Yeah, we've got different dialogue all through the campaign for different classes, like the sorceress is obviously from the Maraketh. When she goes back to the Maraketh, there's kind of a little backstory there about how she was banished originally. So she needs to find a way to she needs to be accepted back into their culture again. Like we've got things like the character we talked about earlier. So the warrior, was an orphan. He was brought up by actually one of the NPCs in Act 1 town. So obviously there's a whole different dialogue there because he's effectively his adopted son. We've got things like that. There's a lot of thought that's gone into just trying to make it feel like all these character classes have some level of involvement with the world. They didn't just come into existence the moment that you.
There's other little things. So like more on the narrative side, obviously we saw the world map. You have the icons that show different things that are in each act, like all the things you want to explore, find, and awesome. But each of them also has a little bit of a little bit of text on them as well. And like, for example, there's one in one of the first areas in the game that's just like a camp of Iron Count guards. And, we showed it in a trailer when the Ranger class trailer we did, whenever it was. You saw the Ranger kill some of them because they were trying to like hurt a child, and the child was just trying to get some food. And the Ranger just like snipes them with arrows and kills them ruthlessly. And so you read this thing and you're like, you hear whispers of an Iron Count, scouting party that was slain by a rogue archer or something like that. So you get these little things where we're like connecting a lot of little dots, and even that you absorb a little bit of interesting little information. You've got other things, for example, when you enter an area, it not only says the name at the top now, it has almost a subtitle text that's giving you a little bit of history. And these little things like somehow make the world building feel so much better. And when you approach
I'm excited for the story
and you walk into them, you'll get a banner at the top as well, which says what it is and gives again a little bit of a thing. And all these little micro narrative delivery mechanisms like make you feel way more immersed in the world and way more aware of what's going on and way more connected to your character, way more connected to the bosses, to the NPCs. There's a lot we're doing now that we certainly never did before, we didn't even think of before. But yeah, it's
I like that a lot because like as an action RPG gamer, I don't really care too much about plot, but I do want a really cool world to be blowing monsters up in. Basically, that's all I care. I want the characters to be cool, I want the baddies to be cool, and I want like the things happening around me.
People who skip the plot in action RPGs are dumb.
Having to stop
Well, at least on their first playthrough.
It sounds like there's more of that going on as well, which is great.
There's tons.
The baddies being cool. I mean, that's that's how we almost designed an ascendancy class in here just before when we were watching that trailer earlier.
Yes. So what you were saying a shadow. You came up with a shadow ascendancy.
Yeah. Internally we had some developers watching the trailer yesterday, getting excited about it, and then I was like, I want to play that I want to play that character. I want to be that character.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That like kind of Val Thaumaturge type character. And so like all of a sudden it's like, we should make that a class. And then we had another guy like suggest it should be a shadow, and so now I'm like, oh yeah, we're definitely, come on, we have to do a Val Thaumaturge like shadow ascendancy. Like that's gonna be cool. And you can do awesome things now. Even I know it's hard to see because you hide it under all the armor, but you can do things like, you know, with our character classes, just due to the upgrades and models, where all of a sudden now the character can have tattoos added to them and stuff like that is completely feasible in the future. And like, I want to do a lot more of that stuff. Like,
this new beast is definitely the final boss, right?
Warbringer, I think was the class name on the warrior. When you take that ancestral totem node, all your totems now have like an extra blue glow to them, kind of like they're enhanced by this ancestral magic. And what we also want to do is add tattoos as well that like glow blue when you're using certain skills and all that. So heaps of little things that again connect all the culture and all that.
How
stuff
are we going to be
together
able
and
to
make
see
you feel
that?
like, you know, it's believable as opposed to, and this is a character as opposed to this is just a mechanic, and you know,
makes picking an ascendancy more epic. I know that there was a part in the trailer that was like not fully finished where you ascend and it doesn't really do anything, but I know you want it to be like a cool moment where some power goes in you.
Absolutely. We just hadn't finished the VFX yet.
Even the another one, the Blood Mage, when you like, you know,
I think we'll get a bunch of new acts like in PoE 1.
Surge on your character whenever you cast spells, you're getting like almost blood.
In 1.0 of PoE 1, there were 3 acts that you repeated 3 times. And then in 2.0, we got 1 more. And then in 3.0, we got 5 more.
As they ascend and things like that.
But this 1.0 of PoE 2 is going to have 6 acts. I don't think they're going to add more to the campaign that people will have to do.
The vibe of what they want to do with
than that.
For sure, because I mean the classes are pretty open. You can play whatever skills, whatever.
People would complain too much.
Start point, but you know, by high level, you kind of go wherever you want to go using.
So I think the 6 acts is what we're going to get.
Whatever you want with the base class.
Yeah.
So eventually, the ascendancy is what becomes more of that important identifying feature, because that's what you have actually chosen that makes you distinct. That another different class wouldn't be able to actually have. So yeah.
So you want to make that super cool. And on that note, I know I was definitely confused. I know people were definitely confused and a little worried about ascendancy and what's happening with that. And people were like watching the Sekima trial and being like, oh, what if I don't like this? Oh, is this another lab again? But I want you to like lay it out as like simply as possible. Like how do you ascend?
Yeah, so effectively, in the full game, there's going to be 3 ascendancy trials. For early access, there's 2.
1 sec.
And effectively, you can use any of those ascendancy trials to be able to do your ascension.
You choose.
You choose which one. And effectively, if you as you get to higher level keys for those trials, that will unlock more points. Like if you do it at certain level breakpoints, that will allow you to get more points for those classes. So if you want to just play the entire, just only the Trial of the Chaos God. With to get all your points, then you can just decide to do that. Just play it at higher and higher levels, and you get more points as you go through.
That is a pretty interesting ascendancy system. Like you missed it, Ed. Ascendancy is now Sanctum and Ultimatum, and then a third unspecified thing that we won't get to see until they add more acts to the beta.
Because in the Trial of the Sekimas, you can choose which rooms you want to go to. If you don't want to deal with traps, you just don't pick those rooms, right? Like
you don't go to the gauntlet rooms.
Don't go to the gauntlet rooms. You can just go to other things.
Do the combat ones.
Do the combat ones, and that's fine too. So effectively, it's like you always get to choose like what you're doing there. Like it's funny because like I know traps are so contentious, but also there are other people who just enjoy that stuff. So you know we want to have something for all those people too.
There's these like
Path of Exile, divisive content, but lots of choice, and you can choose what to do and what not to do, and then we're embracing that here now, and that is.
I mean,
just
you're clearly leaning into that now. You have, well, I mean, such a competitive advantage in that you have so much content, and even with PoE 2, that's still going to be the case. So you can lean into that, like making content that is spicier.
Ed, there's an infinite atlas in PoE 2.
And having these things.
You gotta see it.
Be focused on a lot more. And you're doing that with the trial, with the ascendancies.
It still maxes out area levels eventually, but it's like Delve.
And there's also stuff that you're going to be getting from those, like specific rewards and everything that might incentivize you to do that. But of course, on the other hand, if you don't want to do that content, we have full open trade, right? You can just trade for the rewards, and that's fine too. So like that's always part of the.
Yes, like the rewards there, for example, like jewels drop throughout the world. But if you want to get more jewels, you go and run Sanctum. Now, if you want to get the Radius jewels, it's Sanctum. I can't. Trial of
It
the
is.
Sekima.
So just so for anyone who isn't a Path of Exile 1 player, this is effectively a sequel to Sanctum League that we did in Path of Exile
Yeah.
1. So it's mechanically very similar, but it's
mechanically identical.
Like a Marraketh trial now, and we've changed it. A lot of things about it have changed, and like the content is new, but it is effectively the same overall mechanic.
Yeah.
In terms of that sort of roguelike mechanic that we have.
And it's the same with the other one. You have Ultimatum and PoE 1 being the theme, and of course now it's redesigned and it's evolved into Trial of Chaos. So yeah, a lot of people in chat would have been spamming Ultimatum, and for those who haven't played would probably be like, what? I don't understand.
Yeah, effectively the Trial of the Chaos of Chaos is a sequel to Ultimatum. Which is
and we just have to get used to the new names, which is very hard. Anyway, the point being,
people are just going to call it Sanctum and Ultimatum for a while.
A larger dose of Varlorbs, and you don't want to trade. Feel free to run some ultimatums. Thing is, because they're all item generated keys as well, it's not like you have to do it right then and there. You can trade the keys away. At any point, you can also buy more keys if you want to farm more of that thing. And if you just want to do it later, just stockpile a bunch of them, run them all at your leisure. You know what I mean? It's like you have the freedom. They are itemized, tradable, as a lot in Path of Exile tradition. But
as is everything, right? We do the only thing you can't trade is gold. So we're like the exact opposite of most games, where it's like the gold is freely tradable and the items get locked. We're like the gold is the only thing you can't trade, and every other item is free and open.
And that's the way I like it.
Made gold be this like way to be like you're playing the game, so you have access to this, and
Absolutely,
so you don't want to trade that away.
Effectively.
So how on the ascendancies and the trials, how hard do you foresee getting your ascendancy to be while leveling? Do you expect people to fail out and attempt these things multiple times, and what does that look like if you do?
Well, I failed the first time I did this. Did the trial.
It is important to know that first itemized key is a quest key, and we have special rules around it that if you do fail, you can just repeat it, right?
Yeah, you changed that recently because that was something that I didn't actually realize you'd changed. I guess it was a little bit too harsh to require you to get another one.
Yeah, you weren't the only one failing it.
Yeah.
So pretty much you get to reattempt it, and for something like Ultimatum, just to immediately start thinking of the exploits. It's like, I can just do 3 of the waves, then intentionally fail, and then repeat them. Well, we've thought of that. Don't worry, you can't. But the first ones are repeatable. You're not going to be like, oh, what the heck? Now I have to just play to the whims of random generation to ascend like that.
Right.
Yeah. So
it is pretty hard though. Like it'll take. I definitely don't think you'll do it on your first attempt.
I did. I did pass on. I was clenched though.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, especially in that boss fight.
I was watching him do the boss fight.
You came by right as I was doing the boss fight.
But you had some kind of powerful
the Ultimatum,
I got 60% move speed.
The Sanctum Ascendancy trial is pretty much just Sanctum, but the Ultimatum Ascendancy trial is hugely reworked and it's basically new content. I really like
It's
it.
supposed to be slow. Yeah, it was good. It was good fun. I quite liked it. I mostly like Sanctum. I don't want to do it all the time, but I did quite like the Trial of Sekima. But knowing that there's other choices, so I can do Ultimatum instead or something like that is fun.
100%.
So you got these like 2 roguelike dungeons that are going into the beta that launch, but they're done very differently. One's got the honor system, which is like a separate health, but it's based on and scaled by your health, which I noted as quite.
And your
is it?
Now it can be fully mitigated and everything.
So fully scaled by your character. You go in a tanky character, you'll be tanky in the dungeon, which is really cool.
Okay, that's better.
And just because people will ask, in Ultimatum there aren't any traps.
Yes.
So that's the
no
thing
traps in
that-
Ultimatum
yeah.
and no honor system in Ultimatum. If
Correct.
you just want more of a pure combat
correct. You can do
experience,
Ultimatum.
then that's your choice. And then there's going to be a third one as well, which
They will eventually.
is a secret for now.
So
but-
once Act 4 goes in, then we'll have a third trial. So
So we're gonna be
also
limited to
knows that the
6
crew are in
points
Act
then.
4, so it's the question of how would the crew ascend is the question there.
Yes, and if there's any other things that have been called trials associated with the crew at some point in the past.
Oh, Toda? Is Toda going to be back?
I'm just thinking now. We're just thinking of that.
Oh wait, the Toda lore had in Toda League. The Toda stuff had dialogue about the exile being here too early. We're totally doing a Toda tournament for ascending with the Karui, aren't we?
Quite good. I love that he's back, the trial master.
Yeah, he's cool.
Good. A little salty sometimes that you're taking this power, it seems. So we have the unique rewards from each of them. We got like the like you said, the jewels are global, but there are unique jewels, and then there are unique socketables from the other one.
Yep.
And is there something planned to be unique from the final third trial that will be added later?
Of course.
Yes, there is already.
Secret.
I know what I'm not going to say. Don't worry.
Keep some secrets. Fine then.
Again,
Frodo
I'm
meme.
Discovery, right? I'm certainly if I accidentally say it, it is certainly by mistake. But yes, don't.
And that Varlorbs from the Ultimatum in particular they seem like they're a lot more important, a lot more powerful.
I mean, I certainly think that like some of the stuff is a lot better with how they work. So yeah. So one of the things that we wanted to change was that implicits on items are truly implicit. Like you can't get rid of them; they stay there. And so that means that when you do a Varlorb, the mod that you get there now is an addition to whatever implicit already had, which is obviously good. And
Can you brick uniques?
Plus one socket above the normal limit, which is also kind of powerful. So especially with the soul cores, so that in the Trial of Chaos, you get soul cores that you can't get from anywhere else, and those effectively are mods that are typically a bit beyond what you would normally get like on regular items, whereas runes, which kind of drop everywhere, those ones are just kind of normal everyday mods that you would expect to find on any
Resists
kind of item.
and things
Yeah,
like
just
that.
resists and damage and that kind of stuff. So effectively the soul cores is is kind of the more end gamey socketables that you might want to be using. And obviously being able to get plus one socket, I mean it's something that everyone will want, but on the other hand there is that risk of just bricking your item. So that's the deadly gamble you have.
I wonder if King's March will be Act 5 or Act 6.
Varlobs are more forgiving though.
They are, yeah.
But like if you think about we talked about enchantment. Yeah, so some slots you might value the enchantment over a rune or a socket slot, right? That probably, especially towards end game, I'd say that's probably going to tilt that way because maybe a soul core contests with it, but the whole point is that there's choice there involved. And then there's enchantment. We just talked about the socket. There's obviously always the case of doing nothing, which happens. But for just say regular rare items, it will re-roll like 1 to 3 modifiers at random. Effectively, do a chaos orb on 1 to 3 modifiers, not all 6. And as much as that can often be a downside, because if you're using it on a very good item, obviously it's going to take away the good ones.
Interesting.
But if you're using it on a mid item, you can actually turn it very good. Now, I've had this happen. Like when I've been playing, I've got like this is life, defense, double res, and something else that I don't want. And I'm like, I'll just start Varling everything because why not? I've got my Varlorbs and I Varl it and it re-rolls that bottom mod into a tri-res, and now I got a tri-res double defense life helmet, and I was like, yo, awesome. So even that, which can often be perceived as a bad outcome, now isn't going to completely brick your item. And so, for example, if you have a weapon, you got your 3 damage mods, and you got some bad suffixes, it could even be an option, or hopefully it doesn't just remove all 3 damage mods, whereas before it's like if it bricked it often was almost always a brick, right? Like that item is now dead. So.
And then you told me about a new unique result, which I don't know if you want to spoil or not.
100%.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's so cool.
I'm surprised you even got that one past Rishi, honestly.
I mean, he got it made.
Okay, great.
We discussed it. I agree. I agree. I messaged it to him thinking he'll be like, no way, this is unacceptable. But
Just
no,
he was all for it.
It didn't turn into a dexterity chat.
Yeah.
And so, what it effectively does is it just takes the mod values and it it goes up to I can't remember exactly the values, but let's just say it changes all the values to between 0.8 and 1.2 of what they were multiplied, but it doesn't care about the minimum and maximums. So, for example, if you had 1,000 life Helm's Heart, you can use this to get. Again, this is me assuming it's 20% variance, but because I can't remember what we balanced it to, but you'll be able to get a 1,200 life Helm's Heart, for example. Now that's obviously giving up the enchantment and a socket. Just thinking about sockets on Helm's Heart. I can't remember what we did, but whatever. I think you can actually do that, which is interesting. But ultimately, it's like, now I'm choosing, do I want the enchantment? Do I want an extra, 100 something, 200 life, whatever that ends up being? Or do I want the socket? So it's quite an interesting choice and adds an extra axis of corruption to unique items that is, I think...
Corrupted divining of uniques.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, effectively, it's divining them, but with higher maximums and lower minimums.
Surely there's going to be some broken things like max res or something like that.
That is interesting.
Cross that bridge when it comes to it.
That may be more interesting than the things you can do with bricking uniques.
About the trials.
No, that is more interesting.
But what about
basically, the only thing you care about
themselves?
bricking is strangle gas.
How are they cooking?
Well, they're fun. They're cool.
Yeah.
We certainly tried to get what we've tried to do is for the classes we've tried to have one that's a bit more out there.
Yeah.
You know, something that isn't just like if you think even
like the
about
witch being able to turn into a demon.
Duelist, you can go like champion or slayer or holy words I don't remember, but you know the drill. And the gladiator. And the problem is like. Okay, they're all just about like hitting stuff with weapons, and they haven't. There's nothing really out there. Sure, they all sound cool. Like, don't get me wrong, and they can be cool, and they do have differences, but there's nothing that's like kind of crazy. So all of a sudden now, when you're like sorceress, you're using all your elemental skills, and now you can just like go into this thing that can stop time. It's a little bit more crazy, and you got the mercenary, and you can turn into a gemling legionnaire and like, effectively fuse gems into your flesh to like.
The flesh.
Mutate yourself, It's like not just talking about crossbows and projectiles over and over and over and over again. It's like doing kind of whack stuff. So I really like that. That's awesome. And we're going to make sure every single class has one thing that is like definitely out there. And then one thing that's, more predictable, more to the expectation of the trope. For example, the Deadeye to the Ranger. And, but yeah, lots and lots of... cool interactions, just cool playing with different mechanics, and we've tried to make them, like, for example, none of them call out a weapon, right? None of them. So we're trying to make sure that they're broad enough to be that you might be a ranger going a Deadeye, but playing a caster, right?
Yeah.
Playing spells. Like, keeping all of that open, that flexibility, that kind of crazy, for the Johnny players, as we call it, out there, who want to just completely experiment and figure out the most broken weird
magic
stuff.
parlance.
And you get things with that when you're still like, okay, I'm a ranger, and I'm using a quill rain in one weapon set, spec'd into a bunch of prod speed, attack speed, and in my second weapon set, I'm using a spellcaster staff with a bunch of projectile stuff, and I'm invested into more spell damage side, and you got a whack tree, and all of a sudden now you're this like Deadeye, Archer, Spellcaster, Mage hybrid doing all kinds of wacky stuff, or like even, or let's say the same build and experimenting with a bunch of triggers. And so you're using your bow as a Quill Rain as a high attack speed delivery mechanism for, laying down a bunch of either CCs or slows or building up crowd controls, and then you're using the caster stuff. And like, you get some pretty out there things going on, and the important thing is it's not like just like benefiting only arrows or only bow attacks or anything like that. It's broad and now opens up the world to what you can do. And same like the Gemling Legionnaire on the mercenary is entirely just about gem slots, skills, support, etc. You don't have to be anything. You can be literally whatever build you want. And yeah, so that's embracing that and making sure that people still, even though we have all these classes, we're embracing that Path of Exile. You can
this
do
Q&A is going on forever.
We want people to be able to do.
Get to the map questions.
If you don't want to, go with the trope. Perfectly fine. Yeah, and you'll still be powerful.
It sounds like you're really trying to avoid that thing that we've had a couple times in PoE 1 where like a certain niche is relegated to one ascendancy. Like that's the only way to go for it.
Sure.
But it sounds like that's not going to be the case here.
Well, at least if we're doing our job right, that should be the case, yeah.
And with so many of the ascendancies as well. Got a lot of choices. Originally the plan was to like have all of the PoE 1 ascendancies available, and it was some sort of weird split campaign stuff and all that. I don't really know at this point. It's a bit confusing. You mentioned Deadeye though, so it sounds like some of them are coming forwards. But is it all just being?
I think it's more
redone at this point.
At this point, At this point, they'll just be different, right? Like originally, way back when, we were planning on just keeping the ascendancies as they were and putting them over. But at this point, that wouldn't even be good enough because like it doesn't fit the kind of like Path of Exile 2 way of designing this thing. So I mean, look, we might have a class called the Deadeye, and it might have the same themes, but it'll be like different actual mechanics and different things.
I mean. Yeah, even the Deadeye, you got Tailwind, works differently. You've still got an additional projectile. Like there are things that certainly carry over, but it's really easy, and it's honestly been fun just looking at them going like, now we have all these system changes, all these skills, and everything works like this. Just what would the perfect class be? not like how can we retrofit and band-aid a PoE1 class to work. It's just
Yeah,
purely
the witch classes are entirely new.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, like when you only have now the life and mana flask and stuff, it could obviously things don't work quite the same. But then now you have the charm system, and all of a sudden, if
I
you
actually
did
do
have
wonder
that,
if
you
Pathfinder
could
would be cool with that.
Exactly.
About stacking charms.
So it's just here are 12, eventually 36 classes. It's not really like here's the PoE1 counterpart and they're identical kind of thing anymore, for sure. Too many things changed for that to even be possible anyway.
Yeah. All right. That sounds very epic. We can skip over the flasks and trinkets as we did cover that very well. So moving into skills, I realized I was like,
no
many
maps
pages of questions here, and then I was like, wait, we haven't even talked about like
this has been going on for a million years. Get to maps.
So much for us to discover over the course of this beta. How has the list of skills been shaping up overall?
I mean, it's certainly getting there. I mean, look, there are even certain skills that won't even make it, even just within the classes we have. Like, there are still going to be some more skills coming later on as well for these classes, because there are more skills that we got just about there, and didn't quite make it. Yeah, and like getting a class finished in terms of the skills you need, like it sort of seems very easy when you come up with, okay, we need like 22, 23, 24, number of skills, something like that, and it seems like that's not so many, and you kind of design them. But when you actually come up with all of the things, the way they interact together, the number of prototypes you have to do that kind of don't really work, and you end up not being fun. And then, of course, the support gem stuff, like you need to make sure that every skill has enough viable supports so that you can actually even recommend people to be able to do. Then you need things like the passive tree support for all of them. You need to have all of the stuff with like the buff gems for each character class as well. You need to be thinking about uniques for the type of that can work with these things. It's just like there's so many different elements to actually make skills work, and once again, it's another area I think that was underestimated to some degree before, and it does take to actually get that finished, it takes a lot. That's been a total struggle, and we didn't think we would have to have only 6 character classes initially at the start of early access. We were thinking we would have 8 to begin with. But
you didn't get the druid finished.
Getting to actually finish something, it just ended up being too much.
Excuse me.
We've got a bunch. I mean, we've got a bunch of work on more of the classes that we've done. There's things there, but it's that finishing work of like making sure that all the systems in the game come together to support, how that works. That requires a lot.
Doing all of that as we're still discovering how we want those systems to work. Like the changes to support gems and all that. As we're
I realize I'm complaining about the length of this Q&A, but I am so excited for this game.
And then we have to
I'm going to be counting the days until December 6th.
It was an extreme amount of work that we certainly
16 days.
But that was also because we are making all these cool systems to all these changes to all these systems, which are having like immense benefits as well. So, yeah, I would say it's pretty safe to expect that as much as you can't play them on day 0, some of those other classes that we have shown in the past, and some of the skills and stuff.
No, not 16, 15 days.
There, like just not
9 plus 6.
Seem like it's shallow or anything, but we will be adding those classes in for sure.
Yeah, the thing that keeps like surprising me is, when you click that all gems tab when you're doing an uncut, there's quite a lot of skills in there, but you initially kind of box yourself away where you think, okay, so I'm playing
the gem and flask tabs are going to be.
And then I was like, well, what if I go look at the elemental skills?
I wonder if the gem tab
will
carry over to Path of Exile too, and it'll just carry leveled gems. Or carry like the leveled uncut gem items.
And you've got the trees that like customize.
I can see that carrying over.
So that's like all of a sudden I'm like, oh well, why can't I use a sword? On the other hand,
you absolutely
that's actually a very cool mercenary vibe, sword and crossbow.
So yeah, I mean that stuff is like is crazy. I mean, like in the actually there was one in the community guys recorded where they were using a bell, the bell skill with the quarterstaff with the rapid shot mercenary skill. And when I saw it, I was like, oh man, that's like a whole other thing. Yeah, like that I didn't even know about that particular combo.
That is a combo I want to try out.
I started thinking about that too with like multiplayer, and I was like, I was throwing my gas grenades, which you can blow up with your explosive grenades, but then I was throwing it at a boss that was doing burning ground, down and they were blowing up instantly. I'm like, oh wait, so it reacts to the environment. Well, it's obviously going to react to my friends doing burning ground then.
Oh yes.
So
and
my flame wall friend.
And this is the reason. Like this conversation here is the reason why there's going to be crazy builds that we don't anticipate, because the some of the stuff that can happen between classes, I just have no doubt we will not have discovered.
Yeah, like how much co-op have you really been able to test?
I mean, we do test party play all the time. Like, and Mark's like,
but to find all those,
I'm the support character player. Now I'm like freezing, armor breaking, putting down clouds, slow. You know, I'm like, holy, there's just a lot going on all of a sudden. I'm not just standing there like I got buffs coming out of me. You know, it's like
what's the state of auras?
I'm actually doing all this active support and like different conditions to synergize with the group, and how it's like, oh, okay, you're doing that skill. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do this and enhance my armor breaking and go ballistic armor breaking, and you just spam your thing that consumes it. You know, so you get a lot of that stuff going on for sure. Where but you know, it's kind of honestly the terrifying part as well, where it's like, you know, what do we have? We had the whole like vulnerability curse with gas cloud ticks or something, and it was like literally applying armor break like every frame, and so you have the monsters going ting 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 ting.
Then you have armor explosion on there as well.
Yeah, and then you have some other thing, and you have some other guy consuming it, and again, oh my god, Quill Rain! Just don't even how many bloody synergistic things with Quill Rain.
Just, I mean, that's expected.
On the ground, and because they can, you know, lightning things hit them and explode, and all of a sudden now everyone's running around with Quill Rain, spamming lightning rods everywhere, and.
Yeah,
and Frostwall. Somehow Frostwall had about 15 abuse cases, and
I mean that's historically accurate.
Yeah.
Kinetic blast, Frostwalls, and all that. It returns. Sounds like it's coming back.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
It's cool. Even finding all the stuff so far has been really fun. But yeah, I generally play multiplayer. Most of the alpha I've done is being in multiplayer. Play with other people. It's good to get a lot of that testing in there as well, because not a lot of others do it.
That's really good.
And then try and see what we can break, just for good fun. Honestly, the thing it's like hard is to then like, because you get this thing which is quite interesting where you have a staff is both a player and a developer, and I'm of the like, don't you better not keep that you know, something that's I wouldn't say exploit, but you know, something that's OP, a secret, right? You better tell me, because
the exact reaction you had earlier.
You were saying people weren't telling you about their good builds.
Like you get a situation where someone doesn't want to tell you about their build, that's because they're like, oh, Mark will nerf it then. You know,
like that's you're supposed to be making game, not hiding good builds.
I legitimately had a Monday meeting, and you know, whatever. I was like, I swear, if I see any of you at the top of the ladder on day one, we're going to have a talk.
Exactly.
No, I did tell you about my flashbangs and how good.
But maybe it's fine. I just wanted them to check.
Well, that's the thing. No, that is the thing that is hard. No one knows if their thing is actually look, there's a line that gets crossed, yes.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't know. Is it just I've found something cool and it's powerful, or have I found something cool and it's broken? You know, and those things. I mean, we have to make those decisions, of course. And a lot of the time, what is reported is just fine. And it's like, yeah, you got a good weapon, and you got this combat. You're strong.
If it's supported by items, then it's like fine to be very powerful. But if you're just like, I just pick these skills, and no matter what weapons I'm wearing, I'm just like completely ridiculous, then that's a different situation. Because now
I wonder if there's going to be a quote unquote league at the start of the early access. Like, will there be challenges to complete and cosmetics to earn?
But no, we've had a lot of good testing, a lot of good feedback, a lot of good. People reporting that stuff, especially in the last month. It's like coming in a lot because as the systems and everything's kind of stabilizing, you start to get a lot more of that, and people are understanding what the difficulties meant to be and what the power of characters is meant to be. As all of that came and started to stabilize, we got a lot more of this coming in, and we are kind of getting more understanding. But again, you'll never find them all. But you know, it's fun, good fun journey.
Support gems have changed a lot. How have you found the changes to them being now having no levels, and the restriction of having only one support gem on your character of a type, but having a lot more of them?
I really like how this works. Like, I think that it adds so much more build diversity and interest to have to be making the decision of like, you know, where is this going to go? And the thing that's been important though with that system is it requires a lot more support gems to exist, because you only have one on your character. You need tons of them, and like you need a lot of different.
I forgot that support gems wouldn't have levels.
It's like if you're going to have something like freeze,
that is going to be interesting.
If you're going to have a freezing skill, you need to be able to support that and augment that in like many different ways.
I don't know that I ever knew you could only have one of each support gem on your character.
Like, there needs to be, in order to have choice, you can't just have 5 here's your 5 freeze things and that's all you do, right? There has to be more than that in order to be able to have it so you actually have some choices as well. So that kind of stuff is...
That could also encourage multi-button builds as well.
I think that the choices that you end up with as a player of like, where do I put my model projectiles? Where do I put my PS? Where do I put, like, I think that leads to a lot more interesting decisions with how you build. And, I think that to me is where a lot of why it just works so much better. And we were certainly hesitant about the whole, you can only have one support per character thing, because it sounds bad if you just hear about it as a player without actually playing it. Like your first reaction is you just hear that and you're like, oh, it's just a restriction. Yeah. And it is arbitrary in some sense, right? There's no like, we can't justify it thematically, really. It just is what it is. And so that, I really don't like that kind of thing usually, because I want the theme to match the mechanic as much as possible. But in this case, it just made the gameplay so much better that like it just had to happen. So it was
arguably, if you need to, like, if you end up in a situation where you like, I have to put the support on every slot.
Exactly, that is less choice, and that's the reason why the gameplay is
less
bad.
choice, less interest, and also you may as well just bake that now into the skills and or
100%. And so this is the thing. It is actually much worse to have that, because it results in this outcome. But like, that's a kind of more subtle argument that like you have to kind of make to people if you want to kind of convince them that this is actually the right way. Because
I'm
when
sold.
you tell people, oh, there's this restriction.
I think I'm sold on that.
There's more choice. It sounds like they're getting less. But the reality is, it is actually more choice, because you no longer have like mandatory, like here's the 5 mandatory things you have to put on the skill. It's like there's actually much more going on.
I think it's much better helped realize my experience on the Mercenary that your vision of having like all of these skills available to you and them actually being worth using.
For sure.
Because if you had all the same support gems, I feel like you just pick the one that does the most damage and you make it do the most damage, and that's the only skill you use.
Yeah, and I mean, the great thing is now it's completely reasonable to have a skill in your character that you just use occasionally, right? Like every 5 minutes you might have a situation where you need to use that, and that's actually fine and completely reasonable.
Yeah, so I'm playing a Grenadier, and I would be like, okay, I should only
Grenadier,
use this
Ziggy.
Is what I would be like in Path of Exile, because this is the best grenade, or maybe this one that does like interacts with it in some way, the obvious combo. But now I'm actually like, well, there's a reason I could use those lightning ones to apply shock, because I have all these shock support gems that I'm not using anywhere else, because I'm using the damage and the LMP on my big damage dealers. I can put the shock things on there, and I can actually have a shock set up. I can incorporate that into my build.
100%.
I can incorporate poison into my build to strip their armor and whatnot. And that
maybe you only use that
do.
occasionally when you face something that's got heavy armor, you know?
Yeah.
But it's like,
exactly.
it's like that kind of stuff I really want to be viable. And that situational stuff, I think, just makes the game way more interesting.
It's really feeding into the flavor of the mercenary as like this like prepared kind of fighter who has all these tools at their disposal as well. Like, you're like, oh, I have this grenade for if I get into this situation, and this grenade for this one.
It's going to be so cool to be a demon leading an army of minions. It's going to be so cool.
Definitely been asking about like Vile skills and transfigured gems and stuff and like that. I feel like this sort of thing doesn't make sense at launch. Exactly.
Yeah, because ultimately, if we were going to add something like that, it would make sense to add it just as another skill. So at this point, there's no real reason to do that. Like, that kind of stuff comes in when we want to have a specific reward system somewhere that wants to be able to do that, and so we don't really need to do it right now. But look, we might decide to bring that theme back in a reward system later.
Yeah, I think
like that.
for Vile skills especially, it's a cool flavor.
Yeah, for sure.
Like
but I think the Transfigured thing is also interesting. Like, if you're looking to be able to, like, the reason why Transfigured was nice is because it's like we got to sort of iterate on a bunch of different themes around the same skill, which obviously at this point we don't need to do that because we're already just having to make, still adding the skills. You know what I mean? So all the iterations of it are like less of a necessary thing. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll be doing more stuff like that in the future. Like, we absolutely will be.
Do you know how many skills roughly you have / are going to end up with?
I actually don't know the number off the top of my head. But what I will say is that we initially, I think, when we announced like what the full game would have, we said 240. And I'm pretty sure we're actually nearing that. I feel
definitely it's going to be way higher than that.
Yeah, because I think we're nearing that now when we've only added half the classes.
So
I think that
hell yeah,
that there's going to be a lot
hell yes,
whatever, like some little utility skill or whatever. But there's even if you discount for those, it's
I know, no, that's a lot.
I mean,
even
you got what like.
Because there's 20 to 25 for each of those for each class. So just with 6 of those, I'm terrible at math in my head. But I feel like that's 100.
Wait, are gems limited per class? No, they can't be.
110 or something. Like, end up around there, 120, something like that. I think probably 120. Around there, like that. But then you've also got all the buff gems as well, and like each character class has 9 of those. So that then sort of adds up. And so you've already reached probably 200 just by the time you've got to there. And then it doesn't even count things that really are skills, but like are not, you don't get them via a skill gem. So like we're talking about all the ascendancy little skills, and there's like uniques that have little skill things on them. And, like,
all staffs, wands, and
oh yeah,
scepters
there's a
have a
staff
skill
exactly.
baked
Right? We're
in.
not even counting that, right? Like, because the staffs, wands, and scepters have skills built in.
Yeah.
And then those are like that's another.
You
how many of
can
those? There's, like,
use
20 of those
whatever, but
probably.
each class has a set designed for them specifically.
Like,
Okay,
them all up.
that makes me feel better.
Remembers all these
Yeah, I know,
things.
but no one has counted recently. But there's a bunch.
Countless skills.
You should be able to use zombies on a marauder, damn it.
Yeah, no, it's
true.
tons.
Yeah.
It's tons.
Yeah.
Someone
And
chat
those skills, by the way, ascendancy class skills are fully supportable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild because I remember.
Oh,
with the fault attack,
okay.
Yep, you can support
That adds some build
and you can
options.
support any
Ascendancy
skill that comes from
ones was-
something.
That one caught me by surprise. I was like, oh wow,
Yep.
you can actually link those up.
Yep, it's so that you're going to end up
Time
with quite a
stop,
lot,
increased
going on.
I
duration.
was even surprised when I was like, oh, I can add additional accuracy to Herald of Ice, and it like provides a buff to my character. I can like
Increased
add buffs to
AoE.
support gems.
Well, you know why that is though, because those things like heralds are so hard to find like a good set of supports to recommend.
Yeah, see.
So we're like, damn, we have to come up with like tons of these now. They're like really
I like
difficult.
that idea though. You can like create a custom aura.
Yeah,
kind of.
absolutely.
cool.
So yeah, it's that actually mean it's actually nice because part of the it means that you get the feeling of having more aura effects on your character without having to have the spam of actual auras that many characters had in PoE1. Like you get to kind of have all that stuff as well. So that's been really nice.
Thanks for the invisible aura MTX. Well, it does remind me though. So with all this is very off topic, but with all the very good teasers you've been doing for like new 3D art for uniques and stuff like that, have you had any thoughts about reworking the skin transfer MTX in some way, making it more permanent? More
Honestly,
able to, like,
it's not in our thing about
Haven't even
stuff
thought
we're
about
thinking
it?
about. You know, like it'll work the same way it works for now, at least. But obviously, skin transfer in PoE2, there's a lot more cool base art.
Yeah,
that's
gonna
uniques
make
and
people
stuff
actually
that you
wanna
want to
use it
use.
now,
So
I
yeah,
feel,
you'll
so.
probably be using that a lot more.
So yeah, it'd be cool to see something for that in the future potentially.
I wish they would
So,
give
onto the
permanent
in-game,
skin
which is,
transfer.
I feel like a big bulk of the announcement
for sure.
Yeah. So just as like an overview, so we have the end-game versions just for beta launch, by the way.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be a lot more later.
Yeah.
We have the end-game pinnacle versions of the two trials.
Yep.
So as like fully farmable content. They don't have trees though. Those ones.
They don't have trees, but they do have a progression system of some kind. So you've got the
Yeah, like
relics,
relics,
in the Sanctum sequel, and then for the Trial of Chaos, you have the inscribed ultimatums have getting mods from the end. So when you kill the final the final boss of that. Which is alleged to be the Trial Master. Then
alleged.
Yeah. Then he'll drop items that can then have mods on them to make the trial itself harder. And there's also some pretty interesting ones on there that we actually were going to put in the video, but it was starting to get a bit long. Which was that you've got the thing which where you've got the bets that you can make of like put up 13 exalts, and then you might get double that back if you're able to complete the thing. So those are some of the mods that can spawn on there, and as well as mods that make the actual trial harder as well. So there's things like that as well. So yeah, those two have those kind of like.
I wonder what the order was. Was
Atlas, like,
Ultimatum created for Path of Exile 2 and backported into 1, or was it created in 1 and then added to 2 because they liked it?
Sort of part of the whole Atlas. Like play them there.
Yeah, so they're their own distinct endgame too.
Exactly.
So there'll be 3 roguelike dungeon things that will be
sure.
Like
Or, I mean,
endgames.
I wouldn't say 3 roguelike dungeons. I will say there will be 3 trials that have various mechanics that can be different.
Yeah.
But then of course you've got the 4 kind of what I guess would say sort of I don't know. We actually need a name for what are we calling the
Oh no, not again!
icons on the
because they were called leagues, but they're not really leagues.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense to call it a league exactly. That is what we call them internally. We just call them further as like there are 4 leagues that you have that appear there.
Doesn't really work anymore, does it?
I don't have a good idea right now.
Yeah, we'll need to come up with a
we
name for
probably
that.
have actually named it. I just don't remember what it is.
Right. And then you've got the kind of boss hunting kind of element as well. And then the kind of, I guess what you would say is the pinnacle of the kind of boss hunting thing is then, you've got the cities with the lieutenants and then the Uber Act bosses. And then above that, you have the pinnacle boss who we don't want to spoil.
Tell us how the
show
dead
you
nodes
about
work
this,
when you
just
die and you
private,
fail a node and
before.
can't go that way.
But yeah, that's that one's gonna be hard. Like I know you're cooking up some pretty difficult mechanics there.
Yeah, it's fun. That's the fun stuff.
Yeah,
because now you don't need to worry about if people can't progress through. It's not a progression blocker. You can just kill them.
Yeah. It's a progression blocker to difficulty to the higher difficulties though, because once you kill that,
That's
of course,
true.
then you get the increase of the difficulties, and then it's like, okay, now try it again, but way harder, and then and then there's four levels of difficulty for each of those for each endgame system like that.
So yeah, like apart from the trials, the in-game trials, everything has like its own distinct passive tree, and
Yes.
progression through them is also by doing them.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to prevent the situation where you feel like you allocate points for a certain piece of content, and then you feel like you can't do the other content because you're kind of wasting the points that you've got.
Yeah, the lock-in.
And we kind of band-aided that in PoE1 by adding multiple atlas trees, or you can just do each of them as you come to them, and just add them kind of piecemeal.
Gonna have
but
to
either
turn
way,
down the
however
quality a
you
bit
wanna
to
do it,
test.
you can make progress on your character. Well, I should say in your league.
Nope, it's still happening. It's probably on
for
GGG's
all
end.
those, because the progress and all that stuff is, of course, for the whole league.
We use the Atlas tree, I would say very much so, to make sure that we were doing the type of content that we wanted to do.
Yeah, so now it's not so much about finding the content, because that's what the tablets are for.
Yeah.
Now it's more about improving your ability to
Come on.
sustain effectively. Like you're going to want to have those points to sort of get
Oh no. Is this happening to everyone?
sustainability for the next level up, and we want to make sure that there is sustain if you're doing engaging with those mechanics well.
Yeah.
But effectively, you do have to actually to get sustain at higher difficulties. You will need to be able to be making smart choices in terms of allocating and using the tablets correctly and that kind of stuff. It is part of that sort of story of all of that. Yeah, that's kind of the main thing with that.
Yeah, this idea of sustaining the content you want to do by doing it is a little different to how it's been in PoE1 a lot of the time, where it's like
Sure.
you had to fuel it by going back to maps to
Right.
get your delve juice.
I mean,
or
you're
whatever.
still doing maps ultimately,
Yeah,
in terms of
to find
but yeah,
more.
but effectively, so long as you're doing the content that you that you want to do, you should, and as well, and making it harder. So your build has to be good enough to be able to sustain it. Those then you will be able to sustain that stuff. And if you want every single map to have a breach in it, that's absolutely doable by using the tablets correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, so the Atlas passive trees and the trees for each of the distinct types of content is about scaling the reward and difficulty primarily.
Yeah,
now.
yeah. It's absolutely.
And what does I saw on the breach nodes it said increased difficulty. What does that mean?
It's somewhat arbitrary and asymmetric, but it will feel like, for example, some of the difficulties will actually change the boss's skills and how they work. Generally, that will increase the level of the area, right? So you get the general monster and life scaling, but arguably to a player that's arbitrary as well, because they don't know how that scales.
Okay, so it's happening to everyone. Okay.
And in other contexts, it might be more of certain monster types, less of others, and stuff like that. It is generally.
I wonder if somebody's DDoSing grinding gear games.
Of the meta content, whereas the notables will increase the reward of the in-map content. But when I say difficulty, that is reward as well. So an example of how this works is let's say the boss has 6 uniques it could drop, or 5 or 6 uniques. It can drop 3 at difficulty 0. Then at, say, difficulty 1, it can drop, maybe has increased level or higher item level, some rarity. Now also that, when I say rarity, also do note rarity does increase the grade of items, not just
that's wild.
making them yellow or orange. It does make them better yellows or better, not better oranges.
Right?
But it does affect, it affects other things about items than just the rarity.
Yes. And so, when I talk about just getting rarity here, I don't want people to, and PoE1 players in particular, to think, they're just going to go from yellow to more yellow. So anyway, and, maybe the next tier will add a unique to the pool.
I wouldn't complain if they added that rarity method to PoE1.
More rarity, something else.
Higher rarity got you better mods.
Perhaps. And then the last difficulty introduces something ideally, without giving away exact specifics of them, more in the line of a modular unique item, say like Megalomaniac or Forbidden Flesh and Flame from PoE1. So a unique item that is ideally very powerful, very chase, but has a lot of different combinations. Watcher's Eye is another good example, right?
Those are
So
my
a new series of jewels is a good example. There are other uniques that are modular and stuff, and that comes in at the last tier. And so you want to really be getting to that hardest difficulty, so you can be getting these farming for these extremely good, powerful, unique items. But of course, you have the thing, if you're never ready for it, if you try it and you're like, oh, this is too hard, you can always just respec the nodes.
Yeah, you can unspec them away and then not, just effectively decide, like, I've got these points, but I'm not, I want to go back and do this later. And so that ability to effectively configure the difficulty like that, I think is...
So if you're maybe target farming one of the uniques, the difficulty 0 drops, you might want to just be like, I'll do that. I'll do the difficulty stuff later and I'll just farm it at this difficulty. So,
and I think that's a much better way than than some of the systems we've used to scale down in the past. And the nice thing is, of course, with difficulty is that we can effectively use whatever scaling levers we want to make that more difficult without necessarily having to, because we could have been like, oh, you increase difficulty, it's like 200% life or something like that. But by effectively being a bit more vague about it, we can actually specifically tailor the difficulties of the different tiers.
And add moves. That's going to be interesting.
Projectile thing he shoots has more projectiles.
Sure, and that kind of thing. So just whatever we feel works best for making this particular fight more difficult.
It seems like there's a lot more for players to kind of discover experimentally there as they progress.
For sure.
In what ways they're getting harder, and that is going to be different for different players too, where a different build is affected by a difficulty change more so than others.
Potentially.
And that's an interesting question as well, I think, where how much are you guys pitching these sorts of distinct endgame pieces of content at being completable by the same build, or by encouraging players to make a different build that's better at certain
this is a very difficult one, and it's something that we've discussed a bit recently, is
perfect pause time for the video. Hello?
The harder you make the hardest content, the less builds will be considered viable by the players, because effectively, a build's only viable if it can defeat, the pinnacle boss at difficulty 4. That will be kind of the general perception. So we have to be really, I actually don't know necessarily what the right answer here is.
Yeah.
We have the ability. I mean, maybe you feel like you do, but I don't think you do.
I wouldn't say I'm 100% confident on it, but I'll have a go at it.
Look, there's going to be iteration here, because what we'll see is if we find that there's only some particularly abusive, only the most abusive stuff is possibly able to defeat the hardest content, then we might have to dial it back a bit.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a bit of experimentation, and it's very hard at this point to be able to pitch that, because we don't have the crazy history. PoE does not have the history of PoE 1 to be able
Man,
to,
I'll
to know
bet
kind of
that each league, they're going to add the league mechanic and also a PoE 1 system that they want to add to the game.
That being said, though, the bosses are
I'll bet
more skill-based and tactical, right? At the end of the day,
the first league will have a league mechanic and then also add Legion monoliths or something.
No one can really make no mistake for some amount of time. So you do have that thing, and you do need to mitigate certain things, but a lot of these are very dodge roll tactical, or using certain skills or mitigation tactics or whatever. There's heaps of different things to bypass the things that make them hard, for sure. But I would say it is very much a lot of skill is involved, especially when it comes to some of these with dodge rolling. I'm trying to emphasize that quite a bit. Or blocking, if you want to do a different way about it. Not to say you must block, but yes, dodge roll is a pretty key mechanic here, and I'd say we're certainly upping the emphasis on using it, and using it well as you get into these higher tiers. But gear is always a way, and combinations of uniques and passive tree and builds is always a way to go, I'm not good at dodge rolling, I'm going to gear around that skill check and become strong enough to defeat the boss.
Or another skill, some sort of skill.
Man, if spirit minions automatically resummon,
I would say pretty generally,
I might see a lot of builds that have an extra skill slot. Just put a minion on and just fire and forget it. To use whatever spirit they have left.
Oh no.
If spirit is a thing that's innate to a character and not purely from gear.
Excellent. So this very cute Atlas, this infinitely
Atlas time.
Civilization map-esque Atlas, which I know you're particularly fond of, Jonathan.
Yep.
What's kind of the idea here? Is the layout the same for everyone? Is it the same across the league?
So it's the same for all your characters in the league, but the layout is different for everyone. It is random.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to find.
That's gonna mess with
racers.
racers.
In this respect, which is obviously a league that I was particularly a fan of.
Yeah.
I'm just what I really wanted is I wanted a feeling of exploration in the Atlas, and it's something that we sort of tried to do with the Atlas and PoE 1, with that feeling of kind of having the connection.
I'll turn up the volume
and exploring, but it didn't feel like exploration in quite the same way that this does.
Yeah.
That's the feeling I loved.
How's that?
It was one of the reasons I love Delve, so that's kind of where this was coming from, and at the same time, it's sort of solving various other problems that we've always had where, like, one of the things that's really cool to do is to be able to have things like, okay, like in this area you've got like this item drops and like that kind of thing. You know, like I guess in PoE1 you had div cards, but yet there was always a problem where if you have
are div cards going to be a thing in two
areas in a system that works like PoE1 does, then effectively that's the only map people like.
It just sounded like they're not
that's
going
the one
to be.
everyone will run like continuously forever.
Yep.
So effectively, we wanted to try and make sure that you actually like had an experience that had more variety while still retaining the whole like I get to play the content that I want. So ideally with the Atlas we kind of get that we've got in PoE2, we get to kind of have both of the best of both worlds. We get to make sure that there is some variety. You know, you feel like you're exploring, but because once you've run a map, that's run, and now you have to move on and do it and find another one. It's not just like the like just play one map again and again and again. But yet the content can be added to it. You can do things if you like the particular maps, because there are biomes and you can see them from far away. You can be like, okay, I know there's a particular desert map that's great, so I'm going to go for deserts, and that's fine. You can do that kind of thing. So like you've both got controllability, but also the ability.
Tell us more about node blocking.
You get a lot more very high satisfying spikes.
Yeah.
Where like for example you get more variables where you just have there are like 4 towers really, you got a good tower cluster, and you've got really good maps in that range. So like there are maps, so in Path of Exile 1 for example, the range is effectively say how do I quantify this, like say 350 monsters up to 700 monsters, whereas the range here is like 300 monsters up to like 1,500 monsters.
Holy
much more drastic range. Now those numbers are arbitrary, but it is approximately the representation of the range. Obviously, you then modify it and add more to it and all of that. So
that's a lot of fucking monsters.
That are, like, extremely good with Delirium, and some maps that are like way better with something more like Breach.
Yeah,
because Delirium enhances the monsters of the map, whereas Breach entirely adds the monsters, and you will even have things where there are maps that are like way more magic monsters, way more rare monsters. And so you probably want that with, pick your league of your choosing and whatnot. You have all these variables that are at play, and so you all of a sudden find a really good set of towers with some really good maps and radius, and then you'll get really good tablet modifiers, and then you'll get really good maps with really good prefixes, and you want to just combine all of this and you obviously instill them all, and you corrupt them all. And there's the corruption influence.
We didn't show that,
and so then there's the corruption influence on them. And it's like, okay, like...
It is possible for there on one map to be many, many mechanics stacked to the point of craziness.
So it sounds like the juicing is definitely there.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's important, right? I mean, like, that's part of the PoE experience. But, yeah, for 100%.
But how much control do you have as a player, though, over min-maxing your just exploration of the Atlas map?
So effectively,
can you do better in some way?
So effectively, what you're going to want to do is the towers are where you go to like see areas around, and then there's the structure of the connections is quite open. So like you can beeline for things pretty well. Yeah. Like if you you can certainly see a lot more maps than what you play, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So because of that, choosing what you want is easy to do.
And you can kind of see the towers in the fog.
Yes, so you can see the towers in the fog from a distance, which means that like a lot of the time it's like go to a tower, you'll see some maps you want to play, you go play those, then it's like the next tower is just a few other maps away. Go to that tower, see the next area, and so on.
I'm guessing that's like a certain range out you can see.
Into the fog. The fog kind of in 3D kind of the fog's actually a 3D thing, and it rises slowly as you get away from where.
I hope my computer can handle this game.
So you might see a cluster of towers off somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see that.
It sounds like this is like potentially an infinitely expanding map that is going to be, by the end of someone's league, quite big.
Yes. So we actually need to add a search feature. I don't know if they've done it yet for finding specific maps that haven't been run yet.
Yeah, we have a few things. Like there's a button you can press and it like goes to your last map run, one that goes back to a home base, and one that goes to some of the special, more iconic things you find. But this we certainly need more. 100%. So that is something we will be working on. Hopefully it's there. Who knows?
And so Waystones have a tier, but they don't have specific maps on them anymore, which obviously shrinks that whole map pool thing down substantially. What sort of impact does that have?
It'll make the map stash tab a little easier to manage.
That's good. Yeah, so have you thought about like what sort of, economic consequences that have for like how players progress through maps? Is it easier to do when you don't have to collect all of these individual maps to get the completion bonuses and stuff like we do currently? Like we have that whole... hunting down over 100 maps to get completion for.
Now you're hunting, you're hunting certain valuable maps, you're hunting towers, you're hunting content, you're hunting, the the warlord, the faction leaders to get the pinnacle.
Yeah.
You know, you're hunting unique maps, a very different thing for sure. As opposed to, and then
Sounds
the
more
item is
interesting.
all about, I've just got a key, I just want good modifiers. You know, there's not really all that whole other variable to it. So there's still a lot of interesting choice and access, but we've taken it from the item and put it on the actual world map. But it's cool. It also makes you just feel like you're traversing a world. You know, you're not instantly like finishing the campaign, very grounded, and now I'm in space. You know, like Path of Exile does have that.
I only literally just thought about that. I was going to ask about that. So, you know, the mapping system was always this like extra dimensional kind of unknown thing. It's pretty interesting, but it is a little
So
weird.
we wanted to start with to actually like at least. I mean, look, I'm sure we'll get to the extra dimensional beings eventually, but at least to start with, you know.
What do you think Zesh
is?
is?
A bit more grounded initially.
Yes, you're on the planet.
Yeah.
Right, you're in
You're
raid,
on the planet. That's
in
like a
raid
good
class.
thing. We have become a
bar we've
sci-fi
gotten
crazy, but yeah. You know, you haven't gone to the moon yet.
Yes, not yet. Well, even then we were saying like, can we at least before we go to outer space, go to the moon first? Like,
The moon's in
How many
space.
moons are we don't? You know, there's a whole complicated thing we need to figure out there.
Wow. I feel like there's a delve but up league coming. All right. So we've got this 1 in 4 maps is boss maps, and then that means the other 3 are not boss maps.
Yes.
What does a non-boss map look like? How do you win it?
So effectively, what you need to do is kill the rares in the map to remove the corruption and finish it. Once you get down below 50 monsters, it will point out any rares that are remaining. That are like a
good.
marker, just so you know.
I was worried
but
about that.
honestly, I wouldn't expect that to even be necessary most of the time because the layouts are kind of designed so that you know, like you know, if you generally speaking, you want to clear the maps to find the rares.
How
anyway,
many
because those
gorges
the
are there
ones that
gonna be?
those have good drops, and effectively. The only reason that you would need that marker thing is just occasionally you get some slightly weird degenerate layout where there's some side bit you didn't notice or something like that, and then that's where you have to go. So generally speaking, you'll be able to make your way around and kill them all.
The goal of the player is you're cleansing corruption from the world, you're bringing order back, you know, stuff like that. So you even get the thing on the map where you're like, you know, if there's some corruption-y looking stuff around the map, when you complete the map, that gets purged away. You know, so you feel like you're reverse painting the map a little bit. And
We're
you're
cleaning up.
It can actually be quite satisfying as you're like changing all the nodes from one color to another, and you're like, yeah, this is fun. I'm like, you know.
But ultimately, what we wanted to do is we wanted boss combat in PoE 2 to matter when we have it.
Yeah.
And so, in order, like, if you have a map boss every area, then if we made it so the boss combat mattered enough, like in order to actually balance it that way,
stressful.
It's too much. Like it actually is like, you know, you spend too much of your time fighting bosses.
Yeah.
So effectively, if that's what you want to do now, you can do it because there's bosses there. You know, like when I say 1 in 4 maps is a map boss, that doesn't mean that 1 in 4 maps you play is one, because you know obviously you can pick what content you're doing by exploring
you
around.
can chain
You're
the
picking
map
your
boss.
pathing and your path.
Exactly. So effectively, if you want to hunt the bosses, then that is the thing you can do. If you want to just like do some mindless grinding for a while, you can do that too. And what it means is we can actually make the bosses way more rewarding. They can drop way more items than they were going to because of the fact that there's not one at the end of every area, right? Like we can actually, and the fight is substantial. You get a lot of drops. So that actually is something.
And
that,
they get their own tree.
And they what? Oh yeah, I know. Right, the boss got a tree. Yes, there's a tree for boss hunting. Sorry, I thought you meant every boss had its own tree. And I was like, geez, did you do some design while I wasn't looking?
Not yet.
Josh was like, wait, stop. It's too much.
Jeez.
That's like a year 3 feature.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so there's actually like I do love that there's a boss hunting.
ask about node blocking.
There's a boss hunting tree that you can fill out as well. So how do you get points on that? Like,
yeah, so effectively, I mean, well, you can.
You get a lot of points for the core tree. There's a core tree that affects all mapping. That all of things like pack size, quant rarity, and you've got multiple keystones that can work together, and all can. So I think there's 3 of them. One plays on like corrupted maps. One plays on like prefixes and suffixes, and I can't remember what the other one does right in this very moment. But you obviously get that core tree, and then you have a boss tree, and then obviously all the different league and pinnacle content trees. So you get those points by just completing maps. It just has you effectively get a quest, and effectively it's like you complete 10 maps, you get your first 2 points, and then like complete X maps and one, goes up the chain.
But of certain tiers, like
basically at least tier 1, at least tier 2, at least
tier 3. So this is the tier
3.
climb, effectively, where it's like as you get up the higher tiers and clear maps of certain tiers, that's when you start getting points
and
for
then
the Atlas.
At like maybe say the third one, I can't remember the exact specifics. It's like complete this and defeat a boss, and then later it's defeat at least 5 bosses at something, and so killing bosses get generated.
It sounds way better for fresh starts. I'm not having to go and get that estuary map that I missed or something. It's
yeah, for sure.
I'm just doing content.
But it is kind of the analog of that in a way, because it's that feeling of I've got a system to progress through. I need to meet these objectives, and
definitely got a lot
and
of
I'm getting and from that you're getting.
I'm reserving judgment, but this does sound cool.
Passive points and so on.
Cool.
So yeah, that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, so you can really focus in on map blasting with the bossless maps, and or on bossing content if you want to, or on breaches, or on.
And you can always put a breach on a map with a boss, right? You can do both.
Yeah, they can have all. You can have every type of content in one map if you want.
Yeah, is a boss map a kind of a distinct thing from a regular map in terms of the layout or the thing you've done?
Technically, they are separate, but generally speaking.
They'll be
similar.
Yeah,
they're basically the same.
They're pretty similar.
They're pretty similar.
So there'll be a boss estuary and a non-boss estuary.
Yeah, there are some cases at the moment where there are some maps that can't have a boss, and because we haven't done the one that would go here is not in early access yet, and that kind of thing. But effectively, as I said, generally speaking, it'll be 1 and 4 that you'll find.
Okay, excellent. So I think that covers
node blocking.
Some things from you've got all the smaller contents the
ask about node blocking.
Yeah. So initially we actually had a design where everything, even all the smaller content, there was still going to be icons for it on the tree. On the atlas.
Yeah.
But we actually found that it meant that when you were actually exploring, it felt like there was nothing random to find. So we wanted to make sure we also have kind of just completely random stuff that doesn't have a progression system that you just run into randomly, because that's fun too. And we'll probably be adding more stuff like that as well over time. That's just I randomly encountered this, and that was not expected. So
is that sort of stuff on the core atlas tree at all? Yeah. So you can kind of see more of that if you want to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great.
And often mods on the items as well. On map.
He's not going to ask about node blocking, is he?
Cool. Yep.
Lots of different names. Maps, waystones, same thing.
Yes, I've had to keep kind of correcting myself about that. I was like, I don't know.
I mean,
look,
really internally, we definitely call them maps all the time. The thing is the only reason why it doesn't make sense thematically is because a map does imply it's of a specific location, whereas a waystone can take you to anywhere.
Yes.
So that's the reason why the name change had to happen. But I think that probably even players will probably just call them maps, I bet, just because, that's the PoE1 connection.
So we've got the Breach, Delirium, Ritual, Expedition, those leagues that maybe need a new name.
Yep.
Is there another one that you're just both personally really keen to bring back in the future?
I mean, I've always wanted to have Delve again, but I kind of got a bit of that wish with this system.
Yeah.
It's also a very content heavy league to make, because you need to make tons of encounters, and doing it properly is a huge thing. But I mean, look, I love Incursion as well. It's one of my favorites. I'm keen for that. I don't know if there's anything other than that you're really keen for.
There's a lot, especially because there's a lot we can do with all this new art, new monsters, right? For example, if you just take Legion had all those 5 civilizations. We've now got an entire new array of Vile monsters, Vile bosses, etc. that we can use as a baseline. We've got way better, consistent direction on what's going on there. Heaps of stuff, new animation, and the capacities are just out of control. But then you've got, Incursion. We've got, awesome Vile artwork we can use there and make that all awesome and nice. New corruption mechanics that we can extrapolate on.
You don't want to have a roof as the boss anymore?
Nah, you're not just going to have a floating roof. The Omnitex is just a small floating roof.
Oh, you're keeping with the theme of vacuum cleaners.
Look,
standing and then
mistakes were made. Now we have minimum. That's a world where you had super uniques with 1 or 2 skills.
Yeah.
Right. There's only so much you can do with a floating roof. So anyway, and then I don't know, even Bestiary coming back with something, because we've got all these awesome bosses.
Tell us what happened to Einhar.
You can do these more grand hunts for them, as opposed to just I'm in a city and there's a rare spider. You can just get way more epic and way more involved and with all the new art and so much stuff to
A Bestiary 2 that's hunting big beasts and preparing for them and tracking them. That'd be pretty cool.
Exactly.
I'd definitely take some mercenary action into that. It'd be a good fit, I feel. All right. Well, there's lots for us to look forward to there. You have some kind of penned already for adding to the beta.
I mean, all plans can change, but there are absolutely. I mean, look, that we've done things like commissioning art assets and so on.
Gonna tease us with anything?
There's stuff coming along. It's just a question of when we actually get there,
committed.
what's it going to look like?
Yep.
Tease us with something.
Let's talk about crafting a little bit, because you've done a lot there, and it's pretty fundamental to the game, I think. So what's the core of what you're trying to do with crafting in Path of Exile 2 compared to Path of Exile 1? Kind of noting that you've really kind of stepped back from the idea of like reforging an item many times or scouring it.
So we really want to make it so that you're finding crafting items all the time. You're using those crafting items way more often than you were in PoE1.
Yeah.
That you like the game of like picking something up, like seeing what I could modify it to, like, and then actually equipping those items is just happening way more often. And there's so many subtle changes around this, like in terms of just like the way that the base mods scale and items and the like things like that, like all the stuff to kind of make it so that as you find new base types and new things, like you've got a reason to craft them. Part of that is making sure that you've got enough of that currency. It actually took us a long time to even get comfortable with the idea of making something like an Exalt drop that often, because there's just this thing cemented in your mind of like this is rare, right? Like it's an Exalt, how can it possibly drop like multiple times in Act 1? Like it just seems crazy. But
still gonna put
like removing scouring,
super rare currency border on it in some people's filters.
Like I know that you noted earlier that you can there's so many more things you're allowed to craft now that you weren't allowed to before.
Craft relics, which
yes,
were
and the reason
uncraftable.
why that's allowed is because without scouring, like those crafts become one-time things, which means that it's actually okay to allow for that stuff. And I think that's opened up a huge amount of stuff. There's so many more item types that can be crafted.
It adds so much more value to the dropped item as well.
Exactly. So that stuff
no
is just,
scouring
I think,
orbs.
a huge amount there. And it also has, and this wasn't necessarily an explicit goal right at the beginning, but it's also meant that the game of like, I'm just going to click again and again as my crafting session is no longer really the meta.
Just spam re-rolling.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything kind of is something that you want to be able to use.
You are still
times.
reforging and meta crafting things.
Oh yeah, we've still got stuff like that, right? We've got annals and you've got but that stuff is higher up. Like that's kind of more of a later game thing.
It's not
yeah, exactly. Because you have to think about it after each time. Like, will I improve this? Will I make it worse?
Yeah.
There's stuff to do there, and like like the meta crafting that omens can do is also very interesting. Like there's some pretty powerful stuff there. But once again, we introduce that stuff later on, and so effectively we want to I guess for lack of a better word, democratize crafting at early levels. Like make sure that everyone's able to do that stuff, while having the more advanced stuff be kind of a little bit later.
We certainly had a goal at one point where we're talking with Rishi, and I'm like, if every single time we're doing alpha wipes or getting the staff to play, I'm like, if I am not seeing and hearing about people using Exalts during Act 1, then we have failed, and we need to drop more of them. And so we ended up, like, I would say, honestly, in the last month, we have, like, over, like, 8 to 10 times the amount of currency dropping, and... there's the cool things about it as well, which are the subtle things, like a boss is way more likely to drop the higher tier currencies and stuff, because again, rarity affects that as well now. So you're like way more incentivized to go and kill bosses to get them, and there's heaps of awesome stuff around there.
That's
but we're
an
actually now
interesting
finding people are
implication.
exalting gear during the campaign, throwing it on weapons and building weapons from scratch that you find are very good. Transmute, Org, Regal, Exalt. That process is like.
Transmute, Org, Regal, Exalt is like a thing that you're doing often. And like enjoy, and and you find good bases and you do stuff with that.
I can speak to that experience. So I've played probably 6-ish hours. I'm most of the way through Act 2 on my mercenary, and I've found maybe 6 or 7 Exalts. I took a ring from like a 1 blue stat ring that had a nice roll, maybe a nice life roll or something, and crafted it up to 6 property rare. And I crafted a crossbow that I found with good sockets that had a good damage roll in it, and I took that to 6 properties with multiple damage mods. And I'm like, each time that power was going up, and so I was doing that.
It feels good.
I felt like the bottleneck was Regals, which was actually kind of interesting because I don't know if that's intentional or just luck, because I did really have to think about which blue items were good enough to take to a rare, so that I could then put my Exalts on them.
So you get more of those by disenchanting rares.
Yeah, they are farmable.
So they are farmable, which is completely intentional. We want to make sure that, like, if you don't have enough of those, like, so you get
having it be a
generally
separate
speaking,
menu
it's like
from
you're
the
gonna
cell
wanna
menu
keep,
is
like,
necessary,
I feel
but
like
it's going to
once you get,
feel
like, more than,
weird.
like 5 or 6 transmutes, then you
To
stop
have to go to
disenchanting
different
those and
menus
start
to
selling them
sell
instead.
or
And the same
disenchant.
thing can be true also for Regals, where it's like, okay, once you've got more than a certain amount, then you're like, okay, I can stop having to disenchant the stuff and kind of switch over. But the nice thing is like when you don't have enough, there is a way to get them, which I think is really important. And the same is true with the socket currency as well, where it's like, when you don't have enough, you can start salvaging. I know you were telling me you were buying stuff from the vendor with sockets and all order to
I
salvage it.
surprised them with my
with
my methods, my degenerate ways.
So that stuff, it's just really nice to have for people to have the ability to to get that stuff when they need it. And so it's nice that like all that really basic stuff of just like getting items to better tiers and is now way easier to get. And that solved a problem that we had through quite a lot of the betas, where people were saying they didn't feel like they had enough control, like they didn't feel like they had a way to advance their character when they needed to be able to solve specific problems. And I think the socket thing really has helped a lot with that now, because now we have a way finally to be like, okay, if I need a bunch of fire resist, there is a way to get that, and I've got the tools to do it, and I've got items I can use to do this stuff. So that has helped a huge amount, I think, of solving those like issues that come up with your character.
And this is to confirm how you've solved bench crafting. The question of
So
that.
we went through so many iterations of bench stuff. It was like a huge thing. We implemented tons of UI. Like there was tons of wasted time there implementing crafting bench things. The problem that we had was that the systems that we were making, it's like we could balance them in the ways the players were happy with, and then the designers were very unhappy. Or we could balance them the way the designers were happy with and the players were unhappy. And it's like when you've got a system where like you're fighting the players for how the balance should be, like you can tell that means you have a system that is bad. But I think we were very I myself honestly was too slow to recognize the fact that a complete overhaul was needed. Then at some point the socket stuff originally came from the Varlorb. Like it was designed there. And then at some point, I don't know who came up with it. I think it might have just been you, who said like, why don't we just
Rishi.
Rishi thought of that. Okay, yeah. So Rishi thought of the idea of like, hey, what if we just put sockets, in early game? What if you got them in Act 1? What if you had runes that would let you get the basic boss as the way of solving the remedial crafting problem? And so then suddenly, as soon as we do that, it's like, oh, like I'm happy, players are happy, everyone's happy. So that means we have a good system that is working and gets those good feelings. So that I think was a real win. I love how that system is feeling at the moment.
Yeah, so the bench was achieving two things kind of in its way, which was maybe even three. Gear customization for one, like you take an item and you can do something more to it, firstly. And then you've got the problem fixing of like, I need a bit more fire resistance.
Yes.
And then the third thing was like the meta crafts. So you've handled those each in different ways.
Exactly.
You've got the runes, which do the first two things. The customization and the problem fixing. So early on,
but I think for the customization, it's the what do you call them? The soul cores. Like the runes are more about the kind of like I need to fix resistances, whereas the soul cores are more about like I want to customize my items in different ways than what I would otherwise normally be able to do. And then of course you've got the omens to solve the metacrafting problem. So we effectively moved all that stuff around. And essences, of course, yes, of course. Essence is what they allow you to do is get 2 deterministic mods. So because you can upgrade to blue, but you can also upgrade from blue to rare with an essence as well. So that lets you kind of get some of that stuff, and then plus some of the omen things you can. There's stuff you can do there. That is, I think, going to be pretty interesting.
And that's just at the start of release.
Yeah, because obviously there's going to be more, of course, as we add more things. So
So I was worried that some of the changes you're making might move us away from some of the like deep, impactful crafting that we have. But it sounds like you are still allowing like powerful meta crafting and the ability to make like a really good item.
For sure.
But you're also making sure that like the physical item itself that you find matters more.
Absolutely. And I mean, like the more subtle,
that's what it's all about, right?
There's so much more going on. I think just like clever things we've done with the item system as well. Like one of the things I love that we did is we've made it so that so we've got blue and yellow chests you can find now, and we've changed the world generation so that if a dead end is generated, the chance that you get a rare chest there is way higher. So effectively, if a rare chest will spawn in the area, then it will choose dead ends first to go there.
You feel better about the dead ends
effectively. So like that means that we effectively mean that like when like it makes the world feel like as far as item drops go, that like it feels intentional, right? Like I went down this into this dead end room, but look, there was a rare chest there, so I feel happy about it. Like that kind of thing is really cool. So there's things like that, but there's also the way that so we've alluded to it a few times, but the way that rarity now works, where the mods get better as rarity increases, and also things like the you get better currency rather than just it means we don't have to have like the spam of items that's like crazy. Like you actually feel like that you kill a boss and it drops good shit, as opposed to just lots of shit. That's I'm a big fan of how this feels. I think it's a lot better. But it does mean though, of course, if you're a PoE1 player and you see a boss kill, like the number of like the expectation of like, because a PoE1 player sees like looks at the amount of spam on the screen to some level as the way of like knowing how good the drops were. Now, of course, you got item filters and everything.
We
kind
have
of improve
quantity
that.
brain rot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So
It is a
exactly, that was
problem.
good way of putting it. Yeah, it really is more about like are the items actually good? Like ideally, you kill a boss and you pick every item it drops up.
Yeah.
You know, like that is to me is a win, and I think we're basically getting at that point.
I quite like how the exploration systems and that as well, with the chests down dead ends and things like that, acts as a player leveler in some ways. Where like a
the more
player
you
who's struggling,
the more you explore, the more stuff you'll find, and that's true as well for the optional encounters around the place as well.
Yeah.
If you're struggling, go fight some optional content. There'll be stuff there that can drop, and you know and you will definitely find more things. And
lots of guaranteed rare items here and there,
Exactly.
and certain like that.
Yeah.
This little boss here will drop a rare caster item, and like heaps of stuff.
And the funny thing about that is that stuff came about a little bit from the fact that we actually had a problem where people were just face tanking bosses and dying over and over again.
Yeah.
And they keep on respawning, and they would never be like, oh, I'm going to go away and actually find some other stuff. And so I was thinking for a long time about like, well, why is it that in other games that people don't do that? Like if I'm playing Elden Ring and I die to a boss like 10 times, I'm not just gonna like just continue doing that. I'm gonna be like, oh, maybe I'll go do something else for a while.
A lot of people
so
will.
we realized that the map, like the idea of just there's lots of stuff to find, like is actually a really important part of that. So in PoE 2 now, one of the recent things, and it's taken a lot of work from people to get this working, but now all of that you can see all the sort of weird side encounters that have specific drops on the map.
Yeah.
And that means that if you're having trouble with a boss, you're like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna go do some other stuff. And then you'll come back and you will be powerful enough to kill the boss much more easily because you do absolutely find the rewarding things.
Yeah, there's a little chest on there or a little campsite.
Yeah, or like there's lots of little hard-coded drops from specific bosses. The hard-coded drops they only drop one time, so you can't just farm them endlessly.
Yeah.
But effectively, if you go do all that side content and you check it all off, you'll get some very rewarding stuff.
Yeah, you got some pretty clever systems there, and I definitely noted I was using the map thing a lot to be like, oh, well, to be completionist about it a bit, but also just being aware of like, oh, cool, there's some good stuff in this zone that I can come and find, and I think we figured out that like some of that stuff reveals after you like find the waypoint in a zone.
I think
for
that's
example.
how it works. Is that?
Yeah, it's either there's a few. So it's like either because an NPC told you about an area, in which case it just happens to be revealed, or at the very least, yes, when you get there. Generally, it's just when you get there you see everything. But yeah, there's a few different conditions that will reveal everything. It kind of depends. Like a lot of people just click through the dialogue, so they'll never know the NPC told them, but they maybe did.
I was checking my map kind of like when I went into a zone, and then maybe afterwards to see if there was anything.
But like you never get to an area and don't see some unless they are like very obviously hidden intentional secrets.
Yeah.
That
there's nearly something everywhere.
They might be there, they might not.
Yes,
be.
I found half of your key for your secret quest.
Oh yeah, don't worry about that.
So pivoting into economy and trading, the exchange from Path of Exile's one experiment recently, we got a chance to actually try that live in the field, and it seems from the player's perspective it was a smash hit.
Yeah, definitely for us as well.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
Solved a lot. Like we're 100% on board with that. It's very good.
So it's staying.
Most stressful league I ever played. I mean, what normally caused almost all
Literally
the
my
anger and
favorite.
friction for me was
yes,
especially bulk trading. It
Incredible.
was horrible, and I
So
was just
good.
like, oh, this is like a dream come true.
Myself and so many other players, I feel like were more engaged in endgame. We were able to do the thing we wanted to do more, and we're just less aggravated on that moment-to-moment basis. It's good. So, do you take that then as like as a big positive for it going into Path of Exile 2?
100%.
And how do you feel like it adapts to the game being quite different in the end? Because they are pretty different games. Like the economy works a bit differently.
I mean, honestly, I think it will just work. I mean, look, we have no idea what the trade values will settle on and like how that'll end up. But
is it going to be chaos? Is it going to be exhaust?
But ultimately, I think that the trades effectively Settlers was a test of what the economy will be like in PoE 2, and to some extent because of the way that we did the gold and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty confident that that's going to be okay. But obviously, you never know, right? Like when
But it's staying in Path of Exile 1, right?
We don't cause like horrible hyperinflation or have some horrible issue like that. But I guess partly this is what an early access is to find out, right? Like whether there's any issues like that.
Was there any
economy testing?
Was there any surprises with that, or with gold in terms of how things panned out?
Thankfully not, honestly. Like we were worried, but thankfully none of the like horrible situations came to pass with that, and it ended up working just fine. So it went great.
Who'd have thought 10 years later we'd be back here saying, you know what? Gold was a good idea. We just have to do it right.
Exactly.
Because I remember 10 years ago,
it's funny,
we're like,
it's
this
funny.
game's brilliant. It has no gold. Stupid gold.
But the funny thing is I don't think we would have arrived at the way gold is now if we had it in the first place.
Yeah.
Like the non-tradability of it, like using it as a sort of marker for how much play you've done.
Yeah.
I don't think that we would have ever had that way if we hadn't arrived from here. So
Yeah.
I think that path dependency kind
That
of
makes
did
sense.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we got out of it is
The
good.
paths we weave. So, how likely then, based on just how successful it is, are you to want to expand the exchanges capabilities to like other things like maps or waystones or even gear?
Well, I mean, look, I'm interested in this, but I don't think it's necessary right now. So we're not going in early access, at least. We're not going to launch with any expanded stuff in that way.
Fair.
I guess I do want to sort of see how it works, and I'm interested in potentially trying something like that in the future. I just don't like. The currency exchange was like,
Which means we're probably not getting any expansion in Path of Exile 1 either.
Like, it seemed like we would need to do more initially, and then maybe now it's seeming like maybe we don't. But I still want to experiment with it potentially. So I'm interested to see how it goes. But the currency exchange definitely helped a vast amount.
Those were the annoying trades.
Yeah,
most
they
of
were
the
for
time.
sure. They were.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So we've had some. So this is a tricky question to answer, especially if we could just scroll down. There we go.
Yeah.
So what are you aiming for in terms of Path of Exile 2's kind of like personal player economy and progression? So how much resources you're acquiring, how you're using them, but also how much are you getting from trade versus from yourself?
I mean,
Solo
this is a tricky
self-found.
question, but I mean, I think that really the feeling of like being able to trade is super important. So being able to get that stuff, I think, is good. Like not everyone wants to do that. You need to be able to progress through the game well without having to do much trade. But I do think that, like, look, it's definitely going to be the case that if you're playing in a trade league, you're going to have the ability to accelerates you very significantly, and that's the case, and it will continue to be the case. And like we are a game that embraces trade.
Yeah,
right?
well,
like,
I think the DNA of Path of Exile 1 is very much that, like, it is a game about...
Originally,
trade.
you didn't
For some people,
embrace trade. Chris
getting rich
didn't
is
want
their
good
main
trade.
motivator.
100%. So effectively, yeah. So I mean, that will absolutely be a factor. And look, like,
I'm glad we're in a
think
better
the
place
feeling of
now.
That will probably end up feeling quite similar to PoE1 in that regard.
Yeah.
And I think that's what that's the type of game we're making.
Yeah. Do you think it's... that said, though, do you think it is, in some ways, better for a solo self-found sort of experience?
I mean, I simply because, again, as we talked about, we're dropping a lot more currency that we expect you to use on gear, as opposed to save till end game for one, and then by end game, like, we don't have Kirak mods costing, that kind of stuff that all costs chaos, and you don't have like the meta mods costing divines and all that, right? They're all different items. You're like, I want meta mod crafting, there's a ritual, I'm gonna
where
go
to get
get
them
it
as well.
Right? So you're not just like having to, I'm blocked behind this thing because I need so many divines and I can't get that because I'm solo self-found, and farming divines is not exactly, beyond trivial. So, there's a number of ways there where I'd say it is honestly a much better solo self-found experience. But, each to their own, that to be seen, and,
And there'll be a separate solo self-found mode, presumably, even potentially beta launch or in the future?
It is our intention to have hardcore and solo self-found.
We'll have both of them.
Right, cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't play hardcore for your first round, honestly, because you're likely to die. Like once you learn the boss mechanics, it should be fine. But
someone's gonna.
First time, it's gonna be tricky.
Couch co-op hardcore, and you get to see.
Oh man, I'm going to be streaming at launch, so I won't get to see the rip clips for a while.
Hardcore, do we still lock the camera so you can't walk away from your friend?
No, we put you back.
You
to
put you
solo.
back to solo.
Yeah,
okay, great,
right.
good. That's good. Good to know. It's like you have
to have a mourning period of about 30 seconds.
Right.
But you're just like, all right, you can go home now. We're like, go.
See ya.
What do you do?
Yeah, that's a devastating moment. I did lose my place there. I think we mentioned the co-op support and everything. And we'll scroll down and take some of the additional questions here. Excellent, thanks. Will there be a penalty for individual party member dying when grouping up for bosses on that note then? It seems weird that the boss straight up resets when playing solo, but when playing in a group, nothing happens if a party member dies.
So tell us about the rules
now
that we have, because I know you've changed them recently.
So, bosses are obviously harder for having more people.
Yep.
Less crowd controls. Things like obviously more life, and I'm not just saying double life, more than double life, right? It does get more than twice as hard, or more than in players as hard.
That kind of
yes, you could argue,
disincentivizes
okay, we have reviving as an advantage. Well, yes, it does. It does take time to revive, and if your friend dies early and you're unable to revive them because you're constantly being interrupted, well,
from what I saw, it's pretty hard to
you're
pull
not
off unless
having
you
a fun time.
get a big stun or something.
Another change that we made recently is, of course,
Wait, you
for
can
each
revive your
revive,
party members?
between each set of checkpoints. Every time you have to revive them, the revive takes longer subsequent times.
So that's important because it just means that if you're like, you can't revive spam anymore because it's going to take longer and longer each time. But then when you go to a checkpoint, that resets, so like you're back to normal
Now,
again.
in end-game maps, you cannot revive each other. Death is a consequence.
Yeah. I was going to ask actually about like in-game maps and what is the rule for dying in in-game map? Is it one portal deal now, not 6 portals?
Well, you still have 6 portals, so you can have your party members, but death.
And you can leave and come back as
Yeah,
long
yeah.
as you don't die. So you can take items out, but a death will end that map for you.
Yeah. And to remind people, the if you like log out or the server crashes or something like not that that's going to happen, then the game pauses. So when you boot the game back up and log back in, you'll be still in your map, right?
And also, even we've also now have it so that if you just Alt F4 the game at a random time, you'll actually, even if you come back like the next day. Because for example, you might have rage quit. You will appear back at the checkpoint you were at. So if you are like fighting a boss, you die a bunch of times. You're like, crap. Alt F4. You come back, you're going to be right there at the boss checkpoint again.
Interesting. That is campaign specific because there are checkpoints in maps.
Yeah, non-maps.
Yeah.
But for the campaign though, and that honestly has helped a lot. Like there were so many. I think it really did cause new players to have problems in PoE1 where they felt like they just lost track of where the hell they even were when they came back after a session. If like they might have not got waypoints for certain times or things like that. Like you now can't have the situation where you log back in and you're like, oh, I forgot like 3 waypoints in a row and now I'm like freaking miles away from where I was, which I think happened to new players fairly frequently.
I'm glad in a world where everyone's becoming a Souls-like that you guys didn't do the running back to the boss. Segment of gameplay, and you just kind of jump back in, and have another crack.
So effectively, like that's nice to just have the save checkpoints to your character, which I think is a nice one.
Were there any other mechanics around there? Reviving? Well, obviously in hardcore, you're dead. That's the drill.
It's irrelevant at that point.
So your maps almost embraces a kind of semi-hardcore mentality there, where there is actual cost. Like we went through so many iterations here, where it's like
ask about the node blocking.
Like, the moment that you have to spend something of economic value to do the attempt, hence a map item, and especially if it's got breaches and all this content that's coming from precursor tablets, all of this stuff is worth stuff. So you all of a sudden have heaps of stuff on the line, and then you don't want to be in a position where you're like, I need to bring in some people to do this because I'm not going to risk that value. So that's why we just were like in maps, no reviving. It's just like, yeah, sure. You still can always bring in any context someone way more powerful than you to carry things, right? That's the benefit of multiplayer. But feeling like you have to do this thing because then they can just keep reviving you so you can get all the rewards. Like we're trying to get away from all of that. Otherwise you get this weird thing where like you're often always too scared to do the thing. Yeah. Now you're scared, but everyone's scared and it's fine, and you don't feel like you're like, okay, you have to go in with a sense of confidence to like, I can definitely do this thing. And so it's just a little bit less fear when it comes to all of a sudden doing that.
That's much better in the context of the fact that you can pause the game if your cat's on fire or if the server crashes or something that you just paused.
Now there's an interesting problem to have.
You're failing because of your own faults.
Yep. Now it is worth noting in multiplayer we do have a thing, of course, with respawn at checkpoints as an option. So if a player dies and you don't want to die, you don't want to finish the fight out, you can both choose to respawn at checkpoint, and then it will just create a new instance. You don't have to die to do it, and you don't have to log out and do any shenanigans like that. You can just press escape, hit respawn at checkpoint. It'll ask other players to confirm, and then it moves you all to the new area.
Cool, excellent. I didn't want to go super on it because we've definitely talked about it before, but click to move versus WSD, it's definitely been asked about a bit. So there's been plenty of reports about WSD being amazing. Personally, I've been using it a ton and really enjoying it. I know you've said a lot of people around the office have given it a try and adapted to that, but it has raised the point for people that feel like they're still very much against that for whatever reason, or maybe that they literally only have one hand and and want to use click to move still. How does it stack up? How does click to move still stack up now?
I think honestly it's fine. Like it's not been a problem.
There was a time where every time I go to sit down at a developer's computer, there'd be in WSD, and just because it's a little bit easier to move around again or whatever.
It'll be interesting to try WASD.
Now it's back to almost every designer's computer I sit back down at to go play. They're back and click to move.
Interesting.
Yep. It's gone full tilt the other way.
Interesting.
And I'm always like, change it
why
back.
that is.
But even watching Octavian play on click to move,
He's a click to move player,
yeah. He's 100% click to move. He is
there.
very proficient with that.
Yeah.
With it, like,
that'll be reassuring for I think some of the people that are worried about being forced into WASD, even though it is obviously playing so well by all accounts. That's very good then.
Will there be controller support at early access launch?
Yes. For your live things too, so you'll be able to see that even.
I have to force them to play WSD sometimes because I'm like, I think the Mercenary looks so much better with WSD just visually. I tell them to...
It does feel very good on the Mercenary.
Yeah,
you that kind of like stalking through, especially with that kind of like preparational tactical play style. It's good. I'm loving it so far. We did already talk about the skin transfers. Could we scroll down to any additional questions that we have? I feel like I don't even know how long we've been going for, but
I mean,
I'm feeling
it's a while. We're getting
creep in at this point.
Yeah, exactly. We've been rolling.
It's been 3.5 hours.
Anything like challenges or challenge rewards in the
for the whole stream?
Early access
not at first, no.
Okay, no challenges.
Did I ask about races, events, and private leagues?
I think not initially, but we will do it later for sure.
Yeah, you want people to experience the story without rushing.
Because I think the issue was that the private league interface was like on the PoE1 site, and we had to do some work and something like that. It wouldn't be far away though. Like it won't take us that long before we get to it. Like
I can't exactly remember either, but it wouldn't be private leagues in particular wouldn't be far away.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll have them, just not like right initially potentially.
And I think I did miss this actually. So cluster jewels are a thing or not a thing? Are they've been kind of replaced by those?
Yeah,
radius?
we replaced them with that almost like rollable timeless jewel kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
At least for now, there's like so much passive tree there, and the jewels accomplish the kind of off-build thing anyway.
You hardly need to add the extra passive trees on your passive trees.
Yes, we don't. We made the passive tree implicitly bigger, so
the cluster jewels are in the tree already.
That's again, I talk about like year 3 features. That's around a like year 3 to year 5 feature as well. So
we got another decade of what we had with Path of Exile 1 to look forward to for Path of Exile 2, hopefully, before we start worrying about Path of Exile 3, maybe.
Jeez.
Just start thinking. Start thinking about that.
It's a little while.
We so I guess to just finish us off for today, then, do you guys have a recommendation of what is the best class to play in the beta?
I mean, that's a very hard one. Honestly, like
there's so many choices now.
There are. So let me. Okay. If we're going by the numbers, if we go by player satisfaction reports on per class, we break it down from the betas.
I mean, this is good technical information here.
Then that means the monk is very interesting because the monk is the class that dies the most often. But it's also the class that when people play it, they have the highest satisfaction level by a very, very tiny margin that compares the others.
That's fascinating.
I mean, it is like glass cannon, like it's very fast, but you have to you have to retreat and move in and out. So,
I fell in love with the monk playing it. It looks like it's gotten a little better.
That's interesting. But I think if you're a new player, then the mercenary, if you're like used to shooters and stuff, I think playing the mercenary could be a good win. Like I really love that class.
I don't know. Cool. I've been loving the mercenary, but to me it feels like you need to really be considering each engagement a lot more. It's a bit more tactical.
Maybe I don't know. Like I like it. I
don't know, man. I'm playing witch. I'm doing summons.
Honestly,
I'm being a demon.
I go through favorite classes all the time.
And it'll make me happy.
Play a different class that becomes my favorite.
That's my current favorite.
Just whatever I'm playing tends to be the thing. So right now I'm doing a mercenary playthrough, so that's probably why I'm into that. But I'm not sure if you've got a similar thing.
You were talking about the numbers as well. It was interesting that monk and then warrior had the highest satisfaction levels.
Warrior's next, like, by the way, technically, if you're looking for...
That's pretty good. That's 2 melee classes.
Exactly.
That's a win.
That's something going on.
Melee classes being
a lot more at
popular.
It's such a change from especially early Path of Exile 1. Like, it's gotten a little better in modern days, but still.
I mean,
melee.
I just have a real desire to freeze time, so I just want to go sorceress and then just go. I don't know what
It's good to
skills
hear some
I'll play.
sorceress love. I feel like she's not getting enough
I
attention.
don't know what I don't know what skills I'll play, but I definitely just want to be able to freeze time. So
Yeah.
it just feels cool.
All right. So you could be playing a crossbow build anyway.
Yeah, I might be a crossbow time freezer. I don't know. We'll see what's going on.
Yeah, all right.
Crossbow
I
time
liked
freezer
that
who
I
drops
noted
the
that
bells and
our
shoots
mercenaries
it.
were very different as well. I was playing full grenader. You were
I was doing
combo.
the freeze shotgun.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah. Some sort of monk trigger build, obviously. It's always just going to be fun to play
they
around
have so many
with
of those like stacking effects, the wind and the ice coming off it, and the ascendancies showed some more as well. Oof.
Just see how far that can be pushed and how many spells can I get to trigger per second.
Yeah.
Monk does seem good for that. Alrighty. Well, thank you very much for your time, both of you. For I don't even know how long.
That was a mammoth session. I think we're coming up to 1 o'clock here, so
there's still lots to talk about, but I think we just need some time to digest.
For sure. So thankfully we didn't have everyone saying patch notes when this time.
So good.
So that means we can actually have a conversation.
There's no pressure on us to wrap it up,
Yeah,
boys.
exactly.
I'll say it. Patch notes when.
All right. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the Q&A. That's a good day.
They want patch notes now.
Patch notes. Well done. It's not a patch.
Thank you.
It's a launch.
Exactly.
Where's the launch notes?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, and thank you very much.
Thanks heaps. Appreciate it. Yeah. It's been an epic journey. It's kind of surreal. And it's only the start of another journey, really. So
that's it.
Yeah.
Can't wait to play.
It's cool.
I mean, I'm going to go play more now, but...
Yeah, it's true.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I got to go fix bosses going up elevators and...
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just pre-bug testing. So. All right. I assume we've faded out and cut.
Hopefully.
You never know.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Man. Oh, this is exciting. I mean, the 2 hours of Q&A was a little dull because there were only a few highlights of that, but the reveals and the laying out of the gameplay and the systems in the first hour and a half were intensely cool, and they've made me so excited for this game. I cannot wait to play that witch class. And everything. I'm really excited for the new systems. I'm excited for the Infinite Atlas. I'm excited for seeing what they've done with the story and with all the bosses, because all the bosses so far have looked very unique. And like real encounters rather than just like Uber Hillock or whatever. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited. But we've been going for a very long time. I need to eat something because I barely had anything to eat today. I will see you guys tomorrow for Yakuza 0 and Saturday for Final Fantasy 14. And yeah, on December 6th for Path of Exile 2. See you guys there.